Hey, everyone! If you enjoy my quantum audiobooks, you can support me by becoming a Patreon member. Your support helps me keep creating, and you'll get exclusive perks. You can also access my audiobooks directly through Google Drive. Check out the link in the description. Now, let's get started.
At number 3 Street, St. Louis within the Grand Alice Manor, the ancient Lucifer family had stood for centuries as one of the oldest noble bloodlines in the world. Their name traced back to the legend of Lucifer, the morning star mentioned in ancient scripture, once the highest-ranking angel, later cast down and remembered as the fallen light. For generations, the family believed they were not sinners, but victims of history itself. Strangely, despite their infamous lineage, no member of the Lucifer family had ever entered the magical world. For centuries, they remained ordinary humans, no wizards, no magic, nothing. Even so, their influence was undeniable. The church itself had once publicly reconciled with them, and with both open support and hidden protection, the Lucifers continued to thrive as a powerful ancient house. Recently, Count Lucifer had every reason to be proud. His only son, Carlos, was a once-in-a-generation genius. At just 10 years old, Carlos had already received an offer from Cambridge University. Even the Pope personally invited him to serve as a high-ranking priest, granting him authority to become a regional bishop at any time. On a quiet afternoon, Carlos lay back in a wooden chair in the courtyard, a book covering his face as he enjoyed the warm sunlight. Then, a cold, mechanical voice echoed in his mind. Host age requirement met. Proficiency System activating. Carlos froze. A system. For a moment he was stunned, then excitement surged through him. As someone with modern knowledge, he instantly understood what this meant. A system was the ultimate cheat, something every transmigrator dreamed of, and now, after 10 silent years in this world, it had finally awakened. Ding. Proficiency System successfully activated. Loading 1%, 50%, 100%. System initialized, please review host status. A translucent interface appeared before his eyes. Host, Carlos. Class none. Race, human. Bloodlines, wizard bloodline thins. Vila bloodline thins. Titles, angel, fallen angel, demon, king, dragon, ancient serpent, all thin traces. Attributes, strength 6. Durability 5. Agility 12. Energy 10. Mental power 26. Intelligence 165. Luck 26. Charm 185. Abilities, mind power LV.1, 65/100. Allows mental influence over objects and living beings. Learning LV.3, 123/1000, greatly boosts comprehension and learning efficiency. Well-read LV.4, 2164/5000, enhances memory and intelligence through extensive reading. Noble bearing LV.3, 36/1000. Refined aristocratic temperament increases charm and favorability. Titles, Genius Child LV.5, boosts intelligence, charm, and learning speed. Ancient Noble LV.6. Enhances magical affinity, rarity, and spell effectiveness. Descendant of Lucifer LV.1 grants access to multiple ancient and forbidden bloodline traits. Carlos stared at the interface, his heart pounding. In a world where he had no magic, this system might just change everything, and for the first time, the dormant blood of the Lucifer family began to awaken. Carlos saw the system interface that emerged in his mind and was very sure that he had indeed obtained the system. Looking at the effects and abilities brought by his bloodline and various titles. Buzz. There was a loud sound and no trace on the road. Carlos suddenly felt as if there was something extra in him. A great and majestic power that was either sacred or fiery or evil surged from the depths of his heart. Out. Among those great and magnificent powers, Carlos felt that he was undergoing a huge transformation. An extremely fulfilling sense of power fills the whole body, and streams of hot or cold air continuously penetrate deep into the cells. Carlos feels that he is constantly receiving increasing strength, physical strength, and spiritual power are constantly condensing and improving. The whole world in front of me became completely new, and even the ants 100 meters away became clearly visible. When his attention was focused on this ant, a huge black beast appeared in front of him. Carlos was startled by the sudden appearance of the black beast in front of him. Buzz. This invisible voice came to my ears, and the powerful power in my body gradually cooled down. Carlos felt as if a heavy layer had been lifted off his body, and a sense of contentment spread throughout his body. On the contrary, I felt that after those powers faded away, he ushered in a real new life. Carlos shook hands and carefully felt a completely different power than before. He quickly opened the system list to see how much stronger he had become. Attributes, strength, 18. Durability, 25s. Agility, 36. Energy, 12s. Intelligence, 185. Resistance, level 3010000. Lucky, 42. Charm, 286. Carlos looked at the new attribute resistance carefully and quickly opened its introduction and read it carefully. Resistance level 3, 0/10,000, immune to most magic and witchcraft below level 3 and various attacks, even viruses, plagues, diseases, curses, etc. below level 3. I made a lot of money, I really made a lot of money this time, Carlos kept roaring in his heart. After possessing this upgradable resistance attribute, according to Carlos's understanding, it would be difficult for him to be surrounded and killed by some mid-to-low wizards in the future. Unless he had to be careful with a small number of magic that could be called weird, he even doubted that this attribute would reach level 30. Both Dumbledore and Voldemort can completely ignore attacks, and can even receive nuclear bombs while naked. Carlos' confidence suddenly exploded, and he even began to imagine that he would control the entire world in the future, surrounded by beautiful women. Penelope, Cho Chang, Hermione, Luna, Astoria, Ginny, sisters Fleur Delacour, Gabrielle Delacour, Lavender Brown, Luna Love sisters Good, Angelina, Betty, Parvati Patil, and Padma Patil are all her maids. Until a figure with the appearance of a poodle Pansy Parkinson appeared in my mind. Although the pansy in the HP3 movie is very stunning, in the Harry Potter TV series it is basically a golden retriever poodle. Carlos would rather believe that this is a girl named Pansy rather than a blonde poodle. Vomit. An unprecedented nausea came over him, and Carlos' fantasy was instantly shattered. A Persian cat with golden hair and a very elegant look appeared in front of him. Carlos was a little dumbfounded. It turned out that he was scaring himself. He thought he had fantasized about the poodle. Meow Tilda. Carlos looked carefully at Helena, the blonde Persian cat who pulled him out of his reverie. The lazy cat meowing kept coming to his ears, and it turned into a blonde girl who kept saying "I love you" to him. Ding, the contributing host has obtained the elementary beast language, currently level 0, 1/10. Carlos opened the introduction to this skill with confusion. Elementary beast language level 0, 1/10, you can understand the speech of a small number of highly intelligent animals, especially those animals and things that are closely related to you. Carlos was shaken all over as if a bucket of ice water had been poured on him on a hot day. Meow Tilda Master, I like you. I'm not an adult yet and I don't have any friends of the opposite S*X. Please don't worry. Hey, I haven't filled out the admission notice yet, I have to hurry up. Carlos suddenly put down his hand, stood up and came to the stone table in the yard, and then just sat quietly, as if thinking about which school he should accept the admission notice. He really didn't dare to show that he understood bestiality to a cat, and talk about life by the way, except of course the beautiful female monster who had transformed. Before Carlos could think anymore, the sound outside the window attracted his attention. He tilted his ears, paying attention to the strange noises in the air. What sound? The sound of birds flapping their wings as they fly through the air. Such a loud sound. Is it a large bird, pigeon, eagle, or vulture? Carlos guessed this from the voice that reached his ears. But when Ano tilted his head and looked out through the window, he could only see a gloomy atmosphere. Thick clouds blocked the sun. When I looked out the window, I saw nothing but darkness or a gray sky. In addition to my own breathing, the sound of birds flapping their wings came from outside the house. In such weather, Carlos knew that it was going to rain heavily, even though it was sunny just now. In the northern hemisphere, the rainy season in Wying, a country with a cold temperate climate, is so windy and rainy. Something strange gradually came into Carlos' sight. Guess what he saw? A tawny owl. As a nocturnal bird, it's weird enough for an owl to appear during the day, but it actually has a letter in its beak. It turns out that this owl is a messenger. The owl landed next to him, threw the envelope in front of Carlo, then flew to the table in the courtyard, staring at Carlos with wide eyes with no intention of leaving. Carlos gently picked up the envelope, which was written in emerald green ink. St. Louis 3rd Street, Alice Manor, Front Hall Garden, received by Mr. Carlos Lucifer. The parchment envelope is really an ancient tradition. When Carlos opened the envelope and was about to open it, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. A shield coat of arms with a capital H surrounded by a lion and an eagle, a badger and a snake. As a young real-life time traveler, Carlos truly understands that his world is the low-level magical world of Harry Potter. This envelope comes from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, where the plot takes place, and Carlos knows that this is his opportunity to contact the magical world. The content on the parchment is written in the same emerald green ink. Headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Albus Dumbledore, President of the International Federation of Magic, President of the Wizards Association, First-Class Wizard of the Order of Merlin. Dear Sir Carlos Lucifer, we are pleased to inform you that you have been admitted to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Attached is a list of required books and equipment. The semester is scheduled to begin on September 1st. We will be waiting for your owl to bring your reply before July 31st. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry uniform first-year freshmen need 1. 3 sets of plain work robes black. 2. A plain peaked hat for daytime wear black. What? By Quentin Trimble. Other equipment: a wand and a cauldron made of pewter standard size 2. A set of glass or crystal vials, a telescope, and a brass balance. Students may bring an owl or a cat or a toad. I would like to remind parents that first-year students are not allowed to bring their own broomsticks. Duh. Carlos tapped his index finger lightly on the table, making a ticking sound. Admission letter to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. This may be your best opportunity to enter the legendary magical world in the simplest and safest way. As for the other way, the only way is to join the church. Carlos believes that he is the only Luciferian to enter the magical world in thousands of years. There are only 2 main reasons. First, the scientific power in the world is becoming more and more prosperous, which will soon bring about the decline of the power of the church. Now in the entire church, there are only a few people in the church who truly believe in the existence of God, even at the top. My Lucifer Bloodstain proficiency level is only level 1, 89/100, which is ironclad evidence that the number of people in the world who believe in the true existence of God is gradually decreasing. Otherwise, Carlos suspected that in the Dark Middle Ages, when the power of the Bible Church reached its peak, his Luciferian blood level was basically the same as the title of his family, the ancient noble level, or even several levels higher. As for the second reason, the church leaders have basically completely given up on protecting and guarding against the Lucifer family. For thousands of years, the Lucifer family has been a single generation. Except for the boys of each clan member, their lifespan is over 130 years old before they die of old age. Basically, it is similar to ordinary mortal blood, except for the honorable position brought by the world's most noble and oldest direct blood descendants of Lucifer. Carlos knew that his father was at least 90 years old, and he was born when he was in his 80s. Even during the 10 years of being together with Carlos, his physical age has always been in the prime of life, around 30 years old. Carlos has not aged at all. Over the past 10 years, Carlos and his father have gone through various explorations of family documents. We also know that the 3rd Lucifer patriarch recorded in family history personally said it in ancient times. His grandfather and father were both the greatest, most powerful and ancient wizards. His grandfather even conquered the oldest and purest Vila Queen and gave birth to his father. But he himself completely enjoyed the dedication of his family's power. He had excellent talents, but had not seriously practiced any magic ability. Until the 8th Patriarch Lucifer joined the Bible Church and became the Pope at that time. Relying on its own ability, the Bible Church began its official rise, as did the successive Lucifer Patriarchs. Either they were left to eat and wait to die, or they were sent various valuable materials and servants by the Church, and passively were left to eat and wait to die under various temptations. Carlos's father, the 35th Patriarch of the Lucifer clan, was a complete otaku who was addicted to all kinds of books. In addition to reading books every day, he spends his time messing around and contributing to the inheritance of the Lucifer family's bloodline. Carlos shook his head quickly to prevent himself from thinking about the glorious history of such a family. Now that I have received the admission notice to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, I shouldn't waste this precious opportunity. Each world has its own spellcasting rules. Although Carlos relied on his own talents to dig out some, without the help of spellcasting spells, tools, and gestures, he could only rely on his thinking and will to drive the magic power in, that is, age very simple and crude but very effective. After the huge improvement brought about by Bloodline Awakening, Carlos' telekinesis has been upgraded to level 2, with a proficiency level of 489/500. It's just a short step away from being promoted to level 3. Even the Luciferian Bloodborne has reached level 3 proficiency 265/1000, which is more than a quarter of the way. Carlos looked at it carefully again, the contents of the envelope. The so-called waiting for the owl to reply above refers to handing the reply to the owl right. Well, July 31st, isn't it tomorrow? Carlos sat on the table with a happy mood and began to write a reply. I am very happy to get this opportunity, but I am not sure where I can buy the things on the book list. I need a little help. As help, Then he put the letter into an envelope and handed it to the man who was secretly eating the dried fish he bought for Helena on the table. This is something that is about to expire. You must know that Helena eats cow's milk and food cooked by the maid at home for every meal. When the maid just bought these dried fish, Helena went to take a bath with Carlos every day. They protested clearly to Carlos, and the dried fish ended up being left to expire and become moldy. Meow tilde, haha tilde, the unlucky guy who ate expired food. What a funny little thing. Carlos looked at the owl going away, scratched Helena's ears and chuckled. Don't laugh at that unlucky guy, I'll buy more next time food is killing you. Helena nuzzled Carlos' arm obediently, glanced lightly, then raised her head and stared outside. It was obvious that she was still very satisfied with Carlos's guarantee. It is just a highly intelligent animal that is about to become a spirit. Obviously, no owner can understand its own words. It is full of uneasiness and crisis just like human beings. She just wants to live with her master Carlos for the rest of her life. It would be great if the magic that the previous master said could turn her into a human really existed. Meow tilde. During dinner in the evening, Carlos told his family about receiving the admission notice from the Magic Academy, which aroused various reactions. Very good, Count Lucifer said with a face full of relief. Our family will be a real wizard family from now on. Catherine, one of the two little maids in Carlos's family, lifted her long black hair with her right hand, looked at Carlos expectantly and said, Master Carlos, Catherine wants to serve you very much, and wants to help Master Carlos become a real man. On the other side, Angela, the little maid with long red hair, blinked her wine-red pupils, stared at Carlos and said seriously, Boy Carlos, we Catherine are the only two maids in the family. Although they are both younger than the boy, how much older are you? Catherine and Angela said at the same time, Young Carlos, please help us help you become a real man. When Catherine and I helped you dress today, we knew that you already have the ability to become an adult. Carlos looked at the two beautiful lowly maids in front of him, nodded seriously and said, You go to my bedroom to wash up and wait for me. Catherine and Angela performed perfect maid etiquette at the same time, and then slowly exited the hall, not forgetting to close the door. What are you going to do with the church? My father stared at the letter for a long time and asked. He did not agree with his only son, Carlos, to go to the Magic Academy to develop. Dear Mother Alyssa's eyes wandered between her son and her husband. Carlos had been very opinionated since he was a child. Once he decided something, he would definitely change it easily. The father and son had been very unhappy about this, but there's nothing you can do about Carlos. The young Carlos had his own property. He published a book when he was 8 years old. It is said that it was a bestseller and earned him a lot of royalties. Last year, Carlos was alone in exploring the use of his own magic. He also studied and explored his family's historical documents with his husband. At that time, I just said hello to her and did not tell her the final result of the two people at all. Until now, no one knows what kind of magic Carlos has developed, and even Alyssa doesn't know the reason for the quarrel between the two. Magic does exist. If we go to the church, our family will be protected for at least hundreds of years. This is our family's only chance to escape from the mortal world. The blood of our family is destined that the church will not let us take power unless. Carlos pointed his index finger to the sky and then said expressionlessly. As soon as he finished speaking, the fork Carlos had just put down suddenly floated down, spun around in full view, and then returned to its original position. Count Lucifer was so stunned that he didn't even notice that the thing on the fork fell off. Oh my God, Alyssa couldn't help shouting. After a period of chaos at the dinner table, Carlos, you must go to Hogwarts. What awaits our family is another 1,000 years of imprisonment. Count Lucifer said to Carlos with a clear and unquestionable tone. Carlos, you are already going to Hogwarts, otherwise we will just eat and wait until we die in this life, Alyssa said seriously. Carlos nodded seriously and said with a smile, This is why I decided to join Hogwarts. Don't worry about me, I know how to go to the bedroom. Catherine and Angela are still waiting for me. There will be people coming to Hogwarts at 9 o'clock in the morning. Carlos' figure gradually disappeared. Ding, the host gets Catherine's first kiss and is rewarded with 1,000 points of universal proficiency. Ding, the host gets Catherine's first blood and is rewarded with 10,000 points of universal proficiency. Ding, the host gets Angela's first kiss and is rewarded with 1,000 points of universal proficiency. Ding, the host gets Angela's first blood and is rewarded with 10,000 points of universal proficiency. Ding, the host activates the ability Dual Cultivation Level 02/10. When you and the female proficiency. Ding, the host and Catherine will practice together once and gain 10 points of universal proficiency. Ding. The host and Catherine will practice together once and gain 10 points of universal proficiency. Ding. The host and Angela will practice together once and gain 10 points of universal proficiency. Ding. The number of times the host has practiced double cultivation with Catherine and Angela has reached the required number, and the ability to activate Master and Servant level 1-2/10. You are your own maid and the master of many beautiful women who have practiced double cultivation with you. Effect permanent, the charm is improved, the luck is improved, and the initial favorability of beautiful girls towards you is slightly improved. You can get one skill from your own maid and woman, and your maid and woman can also get one skill from you. Skills are acquired immediately. Ding, the number of double cultivations of the host, Catherine and Angela reaches the required number, and a new title is activated, Beauty Female Collector level 1-2/5. You are the prince and collector in the hearts of many beautiful women. Effect permanency, increased charm, increased luck, beautiful woman's initial favorable impression of you greatly increased. The Lucifer family gathered in the hall of the manor, waiting for the visit of the magic professor from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. My dear, stop walking back and forth, my eyes are almost dazzled by you. Alyssa was pouring Carlos a cup of black tea. Isn't this worrying? It's already 9:30. If no one comes, our family will be under surveillance for another 1,000 years, Count Meal Lucifer said worriedly. I already feel that the magic professor is almost here, Carlos said in a relaxed tone. Carlos, since the magic professor of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is coming soon, it means that our family is finally liberated from the church, Count Meal Lucifer said with relief. Dear, our family is finally starting a new life. The church finally no longer restricts our family from entering the legendary wizarding world, Alyssa said with a chuckle. Master Carlos, you must be careful when you go to the magical world. We don't want to lose your master's company at such a young age. Angela and Catherine came to Carlos and tidied him up. Get dressed, she said softly. Carlos said seriously, don't worry, even for you I will be fine. Also, I am going to a magic school this time, so my safety is guaranteed. Meow tilde, don't worry. I will take good care of the master. Helena came to the side of Carlos and others and softly called out a few times. Catherine bent down and picked up Helena, rubbed her gently, and then handed it to Angela. Angela took Helena, stroked her golden hair, and said worriedly, Helena should accompany her master well at school, and don't be seduced by those wild cats and wild dogs. Meow tilde, no way, I, Helena, will become a monster and have children with my master in the future, so I will like other wild cats and dogs, Helena called out anxiously, then turned her head away, looking angry. Catherine looked at Helena's golden hair and turned her head, looking awkward. Smiling at Angela, he said, Helena, maybe you understood what we said and are having a quarrel. Angela smiled and said, I used to think that Helena was very spiritual. He wouldn't like the master anymore. Catherine put her hand on Angela's forehead and said helplessly, Angela, you are serious. We just officially became the master's first woman last night. Even if we like the master, there is no need to tease Helena like this. Meow tilde, this is not teasing, I really like the master. The master has a way to make me become a monster and have children with him. Helena turned around and shouted a few words proudly. Angela and Catherine looked at each other and looked at Carlos, who had been watching their interaction with loving eyes. He chuckled and said, Boy Carlos, we suspect that you called Helena something strange, otherwise she would look like a shy girl now. After a pause, they all laughed in unison and said, We doubted that you could understand Helena's voice. Carlos looked at Catherine and Angela, who had recovered from the disappointment of being separated for some time. The corner of her mouth twitched slightly, and she said with a smile, I don't know if Helena understands it or not. When I go to school, I will install a flu network at home so that I can come and go at any time. Catherine happily said, Carlos, we will wait for you at home, go early and come back early. Angela also said, When the boy goes to school, he needs to set up the flu network early and go back early. Meow tilde, Master Carlos, no one has left yet. What kind of development is this? Helena screamed in confusion, not understanding the development of human beings. Time passed by, and Catherine and Angela gradually regained their confidence. They were standing at the door curiously, waiting for the doorbell to ring. Helena lay in Angela's arms and stared at her eyes. The door, the magic professor at Hogwarts, was already more than half an hour late. Carlos didn't think the other party knew how to use a car. People who could use magic and hide themselves always had some special means. Ding dong. The doorbell rang, and the anxious conversation between Melly and Alyssa stopped instantly, and the room became quiet. For a moment, everyone didn't know who should open the door. After all, this was the fate of the Lucifer family. They just hoped it wasn't someone from the church. "I'll open the door," Carlos and Melly looked at each other and said first. After all, they were the protagonists. After the huge door of the manor opened, Carlos found an old woman wearing a green robe outside the manor. "Hello, my name is Minerva McGonagall. You can call me Professor McGonagall. I sent a letter yesterday explaining my purpose of coming today," Professor McGonagall said to Melly, who appeared behind Carlos. "Okay, please come in, respected wizard." Melly performed all the noble etiquette and said with respect and suspicion, "My family is the Lucifer family that has been passed down by mankind. The church has protected me for thousands of years. You know," Carlos shrugged helplessly and suggested, "it's best to come up with something unique to wizards. We really have the ability to convince them that the pressure from the church people is too much on us. This kind of thing, I thought about it when I came to your home. Not every family is as special as yours," Professor McGonagall said calmly. She took a step forward in vain, and in the blink of an eye, her whole body suddenly disappeared. Leaving behind a tabby cat with traces of a frame. "I am the Professor of Transfiguration." The cat suddenly spat out human words, making everyone jump. The person turned into a cat. "The Transfiguration classroom is amazing. Our master can finally escape from the church's surveillance." Catherine and Angela clapped their hands and said with a smile, "It's Professor McGonagall." "That's the church's thousand-year protection," Alyssa said seriously. "Carlos, you will decide to go to Hogwarts from now on." Meal seriously decided on Carlos' choice. "It's really magical transformation magic. My magic can only be used to destroy and move." Carlos deliberately smashed a wine glass, scattering crystal shards all over the sky, deliberately hiding his hypnotic suggestion ability when revealing that he can use magic to disappear. After all, magic with powerful destructive power is basically impossible to use for refined hypnotic suggestion effects, unless forced and crude memory deletion magic is used, which can be regarded as if the spirit god controls. In the magical world, people who can cast magic are collectively called wizards. McGonagall released the animal form of the animagus and looked at Carlos in surprise. She has never seen a young child with such powerful magic power. It is very difficult for ordinary wizards to hold and control magic power at a young age, and it is difficult for ordinary wizards to do it without the help of a wand. Wu Zhang casts magic. Even if the child in front of him is a direct descendant of Lucifer, Satan, the enemy of God in the Bible Church, even if the Carlos in front of him is of true divine blood. However, under the protection and supervision of the church for thousands of years, intermarriage with Muggle women has been carried out, which has basically been completely abolished. Otherwise, why would the church give up monitoring and protecting the future 36th Lucifer Patriarch and allow him to join the wizarding world? What is magic? Professor McGonagall, Carlos asked curiously, hoping to learn from Professor McGonagall the true meaning of magic in this low-level magical world. Recover as before. Professor McGonagall took out his wand and pointed at the glass on the ground. All the glass fragments were recovering quickly, and the broken glass actually returned to its original shape. She said to Bert, "Magic is an art, it is not used for destruction. The tutors at Hogwarts can teach you how to control and use this magic. Your current way of casting spells is too rough and can easily cause accidents. This is a great magic, and this spell should be a must-have basic magic for every wizard." Carlos understood in the scientific world in his previous life that destruction is countless times easier to use than creation. This restoration to the original spell is the greatest magic even in the top worlds where gods appear. It can even serve as the cornerstone for the evolution and upgrading of civilizations in countless worlds. This spell is the most precious basic resource in the Harry Potter world, the resource for his future rise. Carlos looked at Professor McGonagall with eyes that were becoming more and more fiery. It was a yearning for countless magics in the entire world and a devotion to that magical knowledge. McGonagall said softly, "Carlos, you have an extremely devout fanaticism for knowledge. Phileas Flivy will welcome you to join the Ravenclaw." Ravenclaw. Hogwarts has 4 houses. Professor McGonagall paused and introduced. Gryffindor House symbolizes the spirit, bravery, and vitality. House logo, lion. By the way, it is worth mentioning that I am the dean. Hufflepuff College, symbol, integrity, loyalty, honesty, not afraid of hardships. College logo, badger, the dean is Professor Sprout. Slytherin House, the end justifies the means. House symbol, snake, the headmaster is Professor Snape. Ravenclaw College, symbol, quick mind, wit, and erudition. College logo, eagle, the dean is Professor Flitwick. Carlos said to Professor McGonagall, "I will choose Ravenclaw, the strength of the wizard for wisdom." Professor McGonagall never thought that the other party would say such a thing, and said with a smile, "You are the real Ravenclaw. Phileas Flivy will be very happy if he knows it. It's getting late now, we should move heading to Diagon Alley." "Carlos must come back soon," Angela said, staring at Carlos with pity. "Angela and I will obviously miss you. You must not find a mistress who will bully us, Carlos," Catherine said seriously to Carlos. "Don't worry, I'll buy you 2 gifts when I come back," Carlos chuckled and said. "As for bullying you, you both lost to me, and you're afraid that I won't be able to deal with your future mistress." "Master," Angela pouted and said reluctantly. "Don't mention this again, Carlos, we are waiting for you," Catherine said seriously. "Let's go." "Does your family trust you to go alone?" Professor McGonagall frowned. "Wait, Carlos, I know you want to change the future of the family." Melly put a check into Bert's hand. "In terms of industry and wealth creation, you can squander it with confidence, and you don't have to have a wizard industry. Carlos, you should find more girlfriends in school. Our Lucifer name is very attractive to girls. It's best to leave more heirs," Alyssa warned seriously. "I will." Carlos put the check into his pocket and gave his mother Alyssa a hug. "See you later, I will come back with a gift. Remember to find some. Catherine and Angela helped you celebrate your 10th birthday last night. Today is their birthday, so don't be late." When Professor McGonagall walked out of Oid Manor, he asked, "Aren't your family worried at all? I am a descendant of Lucifer, and my family has many properties. As for my abilities, they have always trusted me, and with my family's name on my side, basically no one has ever dared to cause trouble for me. Oh yes. In the name of Lucifer, no one is worried about one day going to hell and going through countless years of suffering. For those of us who are true wizards, even if you die for offending God, you still have to maintain enough respect for your family," Professor McGonagall said seriously. Seeing that the topic was getting more and more sideways, Carlos quickly changed the topic and asked with a curious expression, "How should we go to Diagon Alley and use magic?" "Just use apparition, hold on tight." "Apparition may be uncomfortable at first," Professor McGonagall said to Carlos. "By the way, Carlos Lucifer, on behalf of all the teachers and students of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, I send a belated birthday wish. I believe this trip to Diagon Alley will be your best gift." Carlos found that the vision in front of him became blurred. The world turned upside down, and he seemed to be sucked in by an invisible hole. His breathing accelerated, and he felt as if he had just been squeezed out of a very narrow rubber tube. When he opened his eyes, he found that Worth Manor had disappeared. They had appeared in a small alley in front of a small, dirty bar. If Professor McGonagall hadn't stopped here, Carlos probably wouldn't have noticed it. Looking at the passers-by, no one seems to have noticed this bar. "Professor McGonagall, can't they see this bar?" Carlos asked doubtfully. "There is a Muggle expulsion spell cast on it, which prevents Muggles from discovering the leaky cauldron. Even if they find this place accidentally, they will leave because they suddenly remember something important. It's interesting, isn't it?" After saying that, without waiting for Carlos to answer, Professor McGonagall pushed open the door of the bar and walked in. Carlos nodded and followed Professor McGonagall into the bar. Walking into the bar, the originally bright world in front of him quickly turned dark. Carlos calmed down, and because of his excellent physical fitness, the scene in front of him quickly returned to normal. Looking at the interior of this bar, which is said to be very famous in the entire wizarding world. As a famous place, this place is just like the underground bounty trading market in the previous life, because it is too dirty and dilapidated. The small bar was crowded with several old witches who looked like those described in fairy tales. Some seemed to be knitting something, some were smoking long cigarette pipes, and some were using dirty old cigarettes. "What is being drank from the wine glass?" As soon as they entered, the chirping stopped. Before Carlos could speak, Professor McGonagall had already walked in front of the counter. Everyone knew Professor McGonagall, and they smiled and waved to her. The bartender picked up a cup and said, "Professor McGonagall, new student." Professor McGonagall said to Tom, "I need to borrow your yard. I have to pick up the last 2 freshmen today." "Is little Harry okay? Will he go to Hogwarts this year?" Tom seemed to be telling a pleasant story, and everyone else nearby listened attentively. "1 more year. Harry won't enter Hogwarts until next year," Professor McGonagall explained. "It's time to go, Mr. Carlos Lucifer. I'll be responsible for sending you to Gringotts. I'll buy the rest by myself, no problem." All the bodies in the bar felt like they had pressed the pause button when they heard the name Carlos Lucifer. They all thought of Carlos Lucifer and paid attention. After a while, under the leadership of Minerva McGonagall and bar owner Tom, Carlos Lucifer performed an ancient and noble etiquette. Carlos knew this ritual, the most important ritual in the church for the Holy One. That is to say, the Pope's etiquette towards holy angels is not an ordinary angel. It is a sacred etiquette that corresponds to Michael in the Bible, the commander of the first legion of angels under Gabriel, and is half a level higher than the upper angels. Carlos knew that this was a noble courtesy for a divine heir like Lucifer. Before the end of this sacred ceremony, he could only wait silently for the ceremony to be completed. After the sacred ceremony, the usual calm returned to the bar, or so it seemed. Carlos, if you have any other requests, you can ask me, Professor McGonagall said with a smile. No need, I can handle the rest by myself. Carlos and Professor McGonagall walked into the courtyard of the Leaky Cauldron. The only thing in the courtyard was the wall made of bricks. The entrance to Diagon Alley is here. You have to remember the way to enter Diagon Alley. Professor McGonagall used his staff to lightly tap across the stone bricks on the wall at a special location and tapped lightly. 3 times, he reminded. Okay, stand back, Mr. Carlos. The brick they struck with the wand shook and began to move. A small hole appeared in the middle, and the hole became bigger and bigger. Soon, an arch wide enough for 2 people to pass side by side appeared in front of them. The road leads to a winding cobbled street with no end in sight. Professor McGonagall said to Bert, "Welcome to Diagon Alley." "Thank you, this is a very interesting place." Carlo's expression did not change at all. He did not want to step into Diagon Alley. He liked to look up and look around, wishing that everything here could be seen in his eyes. "See you at the academy in 2 months." Professor McGonagall disapparated and disappeared. Carlos soon came to a building that was higher than other shops. The tall building was made of marble and was completely different from the architectural style of other shops in Diagon Alley. It was as if I had returned to modern times from the Middle Ages. The sudden sense of incongruity made people feel very uncomfortable. Coming to the building at the intersection of this street, it turned out to be Gringotts. There is a group of short creatures here, a bit like dwarfs. They are full of magic and are even more powerful than ordinary wizards. These magical creatures are called by wizards, goblin. Bert passed the guard at the door and reached the second door. The following words were engraved on the silver door. "Please come in, stranger, but you must be careful about the consequences of being greedy. If you blindly ask for something without working, you will be punished the most severely." He paused for a moment in front of the silver door, and a goblin waiter led Bert into the marble hall. The goblins in the hall are all short, about half the height of a normal adult and even a head shorter than the current Carlos. They have pointed ears and wrinkled skin like an old man. There were about 100 goblins sitting on high stools behind a row of long counters. Some used copper scales to weigh coins, some used eyepieces to examine gems, and made hasty entries in the large ledger. "I need to change some pounds into galleons," said the goblin at Bert's counter. He handed the check to the old goblin. The check was filled with 100,000 pounds, which was the tuition fee given to Bert by his father Wessex. "The exchange rate between galleons and pounds is 1 to 5. Are you sure you want to exchange it?" "Sure, help me exchange everything, including 80% of the pounds on this bank card, into galleons." 1 gold galleons equals 17 silver sickles. 1 silver sickles equals 29 copper nuts. The old goblin found out that the customer was a wealthy muggle wizard and sold Gringotts' vault to Bert. "You need your own private vault. The cheapest vault in Gringotts only costs 500 gold galleons, and no one can open it without your permission." "Okay, get me 10 gold cards worth 1,000 galleons and deposit all the remaining galleons in the vault." A young elf received a heavy bag, a bank card, and the key to the vault. The bank card was the royalties from the works Carlos had written before, and he did not want to be financially restricted by his family. After walking out of Gringotts, Carlos came to Madame Malkin's robe store, a robe store that appears frequently in the Harry Potter world. Ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling, the bell on the door rang loudly. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Malkin. I am a first-year student at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry," Carlos said softly. "Oh, hello, young sir. I'm very happy that you chose here. Is this the best wizard robe store in the country?" Mrs. Malkin said with a smile. "I need a set of new first-grade books uniforms and some decent wizard robes," Carlos said with a smile. "My name is Carlos Lucifer," Carlos said cautiously. "You are the legendary Saint Lucifer Carlos who came to study at Hogwarts. I will prepare a well-fitting wizard-specific robe for you." Carlos nodded lightly, and then followed Mrs. Malkin into the store to measure the appropriate clothing size. "My dear, do you want a looser fit or a fitted one?" Madame Malkin asked while measuring. "Well, I want it to be a little looser and a little longer. What do you think?" Carlos said with a chuckle. "Of course, dear, pick up your robe in 3 hours," Mrs. Malkin said after the measurement. "Okay, thank you, Madame Malkin. Please excuse me. It is our honor to serve you. You and Saint Lucifer will eventually become holy." Okay, Carlos replied softly, turned around and walked out of Madame Malkin's robe shop. Carlos first paid attention to Madame Malkin's robe store, which was said to be the best. After making short and fat Madame Malkin, she helped measure the body shape and suggested that he buy other supplies first. He decided to buy a wand first. Ollivander's was the store with the best reputation in Diagon Alley, but the wand shop was small and shabby. The gold sign on the door had peeled off and it read, Ollivander's, since 300 BC, a well-made wand made in 82 years. In the dusty window, a solitary wand sat on a faded purple cushion. Well, this is an old-looking store, Carlos said in his mind. After Carlos entered the store, there was a jingling bell on the door. Good morning, a soft voice said in vain behind Carlos. Carlos said softly, Good morning, Mr. Ollivander, I need a wand. Well, said Mr. Ollivander, giving him a sharp look. Okay, Mr. Carlos Lucifer, come on, let me take a look. Ollivander took out a long tape measure with silver scales from his pocket. Which arm do you use your wand with? I'm right-handed, Carlos said. Put your arms up, okay. He measured Carlos, starting from his shoulders to his fingertips. Ollivander measured it and said, Every Ollivander wand contains super powerful magical substances, which is its essence, Mr. Carlos. We use unicorn hair and phoenix tail feathers. Carlos wanted to interrupt the old man's soliloquy, but finally gave up. Ollivander must have said the same thing to everyone who entered the store. After a while, Ollivander finished measuring the data, then walked to the shelves and began to pick up the long boxes on the shelves one by one. Okay, let's try this one. It's made of peach wood and dragon. It's 9 inches long. It's nice and tough. He handed the wand to Carlos' hand. What are you waiting for? Just wave and see. Looking at Carlos, who was in a daze, Ollivander prompted. Immediately, Carlos waved his magic wand, and with a bang sound, the vase facing Carlos exploded, scattering fragments all over the floor. No, this one definitely won't work. As he said that, Ollivander took the wand from Carlos' hand. Here, try again, try this one, Sakuragi, the god script of the Oris demon snake, 9.5 inches, very suitable for silent casting. Carlos caught the wand in his hand, and as soon as he waved it, Ollivander took the wand out of his hand. No, this one will definitely not work, he said and went back to the shelf to pick out the wand. Carlos felt that he was confused. He watched Ollivander stuff wands into his hands one after another and then took them away again, saying over and over again, this one won't work and this one won't work either. Time passed quickly, 2 hours passed quickly. Julian tried one wand after another and the wands he tried were piled on the counter, forming a hill. And Carlos raised his right hand, ready to try a new wand handed to him by Ollivander. It was said to be the horn of a unicorn. The phoenix was reborn from the ashes and left ashes. The heart of the red dragon was black, made of unknown crystal 10 inches long. As soon as he took it, Julian felt a hint of warmth and coolness, and it was comfortable. It was the kind of comfortable warmth and coolness, just like holding a stick made of warm jade in his hand. The wand in his hand emits a burst of black and white light, and the black and white light gradually forms a pure golden mist, just like the original and most authentic divine light. As if he knew what to do, Carlos waved the wand in and raised it above his head. Suddenly bursts of joy and happiness welled up in his heart, and the happy memories of his past and present lives seemed to appear in his mind all at once. Carlos seemed to understand something. The golden wand was in the sacred light. It gradually changed its shape and finally formed a long sword that fit Carlos perfectly. A moment later, Carlos appeared, an angel sword with a golden halo and golden wings forming a gauntlet. Carlos felt carefully the golden angel sword in his hand and suddenly remembered that the school seemed to use magic wands. After a burst of dazzling golden sacred light, a 9-inch long pure white staff appeared in Carlos' hand. The pure white staff exudes the atmosphere of holiness, healing, purification, and beautiful hope. Carlos quickly checked the information about his exclusive staff. Carlos' exclusive weapon, the sacred weapon. Level infinitely grows with the host's strength. Category: Artifact Holy. The ancient wand passed down from ancient times resonated with the host's bloodline ability and transformed into Carlos' exclusive weapon. First form: Bright and Holy Weapon Sword Staff Suit. Light Staff Level 10/100. All magic power and effects are increased by 5 times, and spells above level 2 can be cast without loss. Bright and Kind magic is increased by 10 times. Unlocked. Sword of Light Unknown. The host's strength is increased tenfold in all aspects, with purification, protection, and holy healing properties. Can resurrect life. Unlock condition: collect pure beauty rays. Girl progress 2/100. Bright Suit Unknown. The pure girl who believes in you can be transformed into your exclusive bright angel. The kind and pure soul state can only be transformed into a child angel. can be resurrected on a large scale, unlocking conditions. Second form, Weapons of Darkness and Corruption Sword Staff Suit, Dark Staff Unknown. The power and effect of all magic are increased by 5 times, spells above level 2 can be cast without loss, and dark magic is increased by 10 times. Unlocking conditions. Sword of Darkness Unknown. The host's strength is increased tenfold in all directions, with the characteristics of devouring, dark corruption, and erosion transformation. It can swallow living souls to enhance the host's strength, corrode other living souls, and transform them into your fanatical followers. Unlocking conditions. Dark Suit Unknown. Your pure maiden believer can be transformed into your exclusive fallen angel Dark Angel. Dark pure believers in the soul state can only be transformed into infant angels. You can turn a region into your kingdom of death. Unlocking conditions. Third form, Sacred Weapon Sword Staff Suit. Holy Staff Unknown. The power and effect of all types of magic are increased by 10 times, and spells above level 3 can be cast without loss. The power and effect of your exclusive magic spells are increased by 25 times. Unlocking conditions. Sacred Sword Unknown. The host's strength is increased 20 times in all aspects, with the characteristics of holiness, resurrection, transformation, and protection. You can use the sacred domain, unlimited resurrection, transformation, and protect the kind and pure girl to become your saint. Unlocking conditions. Sacred Suit Unknown. The host's strength is increased by 100 times, and the power and effects of all types of magic are increased by 100 times. Your exclusive magic spells are increased by 300 times. You can transform the pure girl who believes in you into your own angel of light or darkness. You can transform your own light or dark angel into a holy angel. You can create your own divine kingdom. Unlocking conditions. The fourth form, the Tool of Creation. God created the world in 7 days corresponding to 7 forms. Fifth form, World-Destroying Weapon Unknown. Sixth form, Unknowns. Seventh form, Unknown. Eighth form, Unknowns. Ninth form, Unknowns. 10th form, Unknowns. Final form, Unknowns. Carlos looked at his exclusive weapon and knew that it was a weapon that was at least several levels beyond the Pangu axe that created the world in Huxia myths and legends. The problem is that there is still a chance to meet the conditions for unlocking the Sword of Light. As for the following requirements, they are all. Carlos feels that it will be difficult for him to achieve his final form in this life. All this is the will of the Lord, Saint Lucifer. Carlos, you will eventually become holy, Ollivander said excitedly. Bert put away the wand with satisfaction and asked softly, I'm very satisfied. What are the requirements for this wand? His Excellency Carlos Lucifer, you are a true descendant of God. It is really surprising. This wand belongs to you from birth. I only hope that you can make good use of this wand in the future, Ollivander said to Carlos. A sacred ritual. Then he watched Carlos gradually leave and kept murmuring, this world is really great. Even the legendary descendants of gods have joined this big stage. From now on, Dumbledore and the mysterious man are just this holy, high-lifting god. The stepping stone of the country. The church, I didn't expect that the divine heir who had been monitored and protected for thousands of years would be released. If Carlos knew all this, he would definitely laugh or cry, leaving such an impression on him. The main reason is that the system allows him to truly possess Lucifer's sacred bloodline. Even his own sacred weapon was a super artifact formed because it resonated with his bloodline and absorbed the faith accumulated by the entire world over countless years. After Carlos got his own future exclusive artifact, all he had left was the spell book, these 2 things. Even if Carlos doesn't go to Hogwarts, he still learns the magic by himself by constantly casting spells to gain proficiency. The system is so capricious, even artifacts are obtained through the system. Carlos next went to a bookstore called Flourish Blossoms to buy textbooks for school. The bookshelves in the bookstore are filled with books, reaching to the ceiling. There are leather-bound books as big as paving stones. There are also silk books the size of postage stamps. Some books are filled with all kinds of strange symbols, and a few are filled with strange symbols. It is a wordless book that dazzles anyone who reads it. Bert found the manager of Flourish and Blott's bookstore and bought all the first-year Hogwarts textbooks. Naturally, he would not give up this opportunity and also bought many amateur books such as Hogwarts, a school history, junior high school and high school books on standard spells and transfiguration guides. The manager of Flourish and Blott's bookstore was dumbfounded when he saw Bert looking for good books and the counter almost buried in books. He had never seen such a new student. Intermediate and advanced spell books and transformation guides are too complicated for freshmen. For freshmen, I only recommend buying elementary ones. the manager reminded Bert kindly. Oh, are you worried that I can't pay the money and come here to cause trouble? After being interrupted, Carlos understood the other person's meaning at a glance, nodded and said, You pack the books you just selected first, and I will pay you this part of the money first. No, that's not what I am, the manager was about to say but was blocked by Carlos. How much? 47 galleons, 7 kilos, and 13 gnats. The manager reluctantly took the galleons from Carlos and said kindly, 47 galleons in total, round up. After Carlos paid for the book, he continued scanning the book. The manager of Flourish and Blott's bookstore also knew that the other party was a major financial backer and enthusiastically recommended some books to Carlos. As a result, Carlos randomly found an excuse to send him away. What he needs is the common sense of various wizards and the knowledge of various strange creatures in the wizarding world, rather than being a wizard who can only release magic. One is a powerful wizard who can find the fastest solution to any situation, and the other is a pure magician. This is the difference between the strong and the weak. The managers probably introduced themselves to magazines that had no content at all. If I were you, I wouldn't read the wild biology book that we have a hard time using in school. Bert just grabbed a copy of Magical Creatures of the 9th category when he heard a sweet voice next to him. Standing up, he raised his head and saw a young witch with brown hair and a black robe looking at him. Thank you, this is the book I need. Carlos flipped through it a few times. The content inside was the Encyclopedia of Ancient Creatures that are about to be extinct. This is a book about ancient creatures. Carlos had just put the book in the shopping cart and picked up Wandering with Ghouls from the bookshelf when he heard the witch say, All Gilderoy Lockhart's books are garbage except for passing the time. It has no use outside of time. Well, thank you, you are right. My name is Carlos Lucifer, a first-year freshman. Nice to meet you. Having met the divine son, Penelo Crevat, the students of Ravenclaw would like to pay tribute to you, the witch said with a smile while walking towards Carlos while performing the sacred etiquette. By the way, what is this? Carlos nodded, staring at a book bound by a small chain. Don't touch those monster books, that book will bite, Penelo reminded, but he had already eaten. Carlos untied the chains, broke free from the monster book and opened his mouth, showing his good teeth, biting Carlos' hand, but he actually missed it. Carlos closed his hands and pushed him to the ground. What the hell is this? The monster books of monsters. You can make them quiet as long as you run your fingers across the spine of the book, Penelo reminded kindly. Carlos did as he was told, and sure enough, the book quickly quieted down. He flipped through a few pages and decided to buy this thing back. Does the church protect you and other divine sons? No, I came to study because I received the admission notice to Hogwarts, so I don't need to be so formal. This is a sacred etiquette for wizards like us. It will not happen again in the future. It must be like this the first time, Penelo Crevat said seriously. Senior Penelo, do you have any good books to introduce to me? Actually, you don't have to spend too much money to buy these books here. Ravenclaw has the largest books in the wizarding world. Penelo Crevat kindly reminded, even if you are not assigned to Ravenclaw, Hogwarts, there are a lot of books accumulated in the library. Is it the largest library? Ravenclaw is a great place, Carlos agreed. Basically, he picked up a few more books as in the original book before giving up completely and continuing to collect books here. When checking out, Penelo Crevat was also shocked by the number of books Carlos bought. For this, he paid a full 195 galleons. Carlos took out the magic wand of light and tapped it lightly on the books. All the books lit up beautifully. He stared at the pile of books floating in the air and frowned. Then he put the book down again and said softly to the bookstore manager, Is there any magic that can shrink these things? Shrinking spell. The spell is to shrink quickly. The manager took out his wand and lightly touched the box. The book shrank by a full circle, and he stopped the spell only when they were about the size of a fist. When you are recovering, the recovery magic changes rapidly, the manager said to Bert. Bert raised his wand, pointed at the pile of books on the ground, and whispered, Change quickly big, but it had no effect. The spell was correct. The only problem was that the gesture was wrong. Your closing gesture is wrong, Penelo corrected. She raised her wand, pointed at a pile of books, and said, Quickly change bigger. When the spell started working, the stack of books became bigger, almost as big as a football. Quickly change big. Carlos tried it again according to Penelo's movements, and the book returned to its original state. Ding, the host successfully learned the magic spell Quickly change big spell level 0, 1/10. You can use magic to turn objects into big. Shrink quickly. Ding, the host successfully learned the magic spell Quick Shrinking spell level 0, 1/10. You can use magic to shrink objects. He reduced the pile of books to a smaller size, stuffed it into his pocket, and then said to Penelo, "I'll treat you to something to express my gratitude for your help just now." Penelo held back, looked at Bert curiously, and finally nodded in agreement. When they left Flourish and Blott's bookstore together, Bert asked, "This is my first time in Diagon Alley. Do you have any good suggestions?" Penelo suggested, "Fuck's Ice Cream Shop where the stuff is cheap and delicious." "Thank you, Mr. Carlos," Penelo said elegantly while eating ice cream. "No need to be polite. If it were me who was invited, I would also have a good meal," Carlos said while taking a bite of the ice cream. By the way, he ordered another cake for both of them and said to Penelo with a smile, "Wizard's ice cream is better than Muggles. I plan to bring some gifts back to my family. Do you have any good suggestions?" Carlos was not good at choosing gifts for girls, so he asked Penelo for help. As a beautiful girl, Penelo must have special makeup tips. Catherine and Catherine are exactly Penelo's age. The hobbies must be the same, and he also prepared gifts for the beautiful girl in front of him. Carlos admitted that he was attracted to Penelo. If he chooses the gifts himself, although both Catherine and Angela will like the gifts he buys, he will lose time with Penelo. Seeing that Penelo's mood suddenly dropped a little, Carlos knew that he was worried about the girl. Then he explained to Penelo with worried eyes, hoping that he could convey his feelings so that Carlos would admit that he was doing it to gain favor. Penelo felt a little disappointed and didn't know whether to tell his family affairs to the divine son he had just met in front of him. She usually hid it very well, but looking at Carlos' worried eyes and the legendary Lucifer divine blood in him, Penelo admitted that she was moved. After taking a deep breath for a while, Penelo sorted out the chaotic thoughts in her mind and spoke of her girlish thoughts in a gentle tone. "Carlos, you are so enviable and even admirable. My family doesn't really approve of me becoming a wizard. Because of the sacred name of the Lucifer family, I am the first member of the Lucifer family to enter the magical world in thousands of years." Carlos paused and said softly, "You don't need to be sad, at least you are the envy of Lucifer and our family for generations. Your sacred name of Lucifer must be respected by us lambs." Penelo made a pious courtesy to Carlos. Suddenly he smiled and said, "I'm sorry, I feel a lot more relaxed suddenly. The situation at home is not very good. Do you mind being my confidant? If this will put you in the right mood, I'd be happy to oblige." The situation at Penelo's family is indeed not very good. There are 3 children at home, and his father can support them with his salary. After receiving the letter from the owl, they did not approve of Penelo going to the Magic Academy because they had no money. Penelo received a scholarship from the college and worked part-time every time she went home during the summer vacation. It can also be said that she paid for her schooling by herself. This is a very miserable witch. Carlos finally came to the conclusion, "Don't worry, the matter will be resolved perfectly. I hereby invite you to come to my house to be my maid." Carlos sent out the invitation thinking of Penelo Crevet. Gorgeous and beautiful words can't change the current situation of the witch, and Penelo doesn't need these things. Rather than just comforting the other person verbally, Carlos prefers to help Penelo through practical actions. After all, the beautiful girl in front of her wanted her in the movies before she traveled through time. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. When the beautiful girl wizard in front of him improves in strength, Carlos will completely lose the easiest way to get her. Why? Several thoughts suddenly flashed through Penelo's head. Does he sympathize with himself or does he like himself? Why? Carlos looked at Penelo with some confusion and repeated, "Why?" "Needless to say, because I need it, and you meet my aesthetic standards very well." "Can you please let me think about it carefully, Carlos?" Penelo said seriously. "The maid next to me welcomes you at any time, Penelo Crivet," Carlos said with a soft smile. "Also, I like you very much, Penelo." Hearing this, Penelo's pretty face turned red, and even her fair jade neck was stained with red. "Carlos, I want to be your lover, not your maid. That would make me lose any chance." The girl's shy voice mixed with requests rang in Carlos' ears. "Penelo, as long as you like it, go home like me tonight," Carlos said with a smile. At the same time, he took out a gold card worth 1,000 galleons and handed it to Penelo, casually touching it on the pretty girl's pretty face. Penelo shyly let Carlos' big hand caress her pretty face, put away the gold card and nodded lightly. "Penelo, do you need me to buy you a house like this so that you don't have to go home and be bullied?" Carlos asked Penelo kindly. "No, never. I will live in your house, Carlos, and I won't be hidden in your golden house." Penelo shook his head and stared into Carlos's eyes. How could she, Penelo Crevet, the genius girl of Ravenclaw, not know that you and Carlos bought a house here once? She and Carlos were completely lovers, and he wanted to be Carlos's little wife in the future, even if it was the wife of 1,000 rooms. As for Carlos, Lucifer's official wife, after Carlos entered this magical world, you can only choose a saint from the Bible Church or a possible female pope. This is still the result of no real angel existing, but Carlos's wife can only be a high-ranking angel or even a holy angel. Carlos had no idea that after he entered the wizarding world, all the beautiful witches like Penelo wanted to be his little wives. "Okay, Penelo, you can be with me from now on," Carlos said with a smile. Then he said to Penelo, "Just order whatever you want to eat, we still need to buy gifts." "Carlos, leave the gift to me. Father and mother plus your two dear little maids plus the cat toy for Helena," Penelo said seriously. "Let's go, let's eat some sweets to save more energy for the evening," Carlos said with a smile. After eating a lot of sweets, Penelo was no longer shy about Carlos' words and everything got better for her. She happily took Carlos shopping everywhere. By the time they went to Madame Malkin's robe store, several sets of custom-made robes had been completed. However, Carlos also ordered several pure white ones. "Robe?" Penelo curiously asked the reason, but what he got was that since there are dark robes corresponding to the fallen angel period, there must also be light robes for the dawn angel period. In addition, the potion materials in the book list need to be replenished, and potions need to be used. Penelo worriedly revealed to Carlos that Snape from Potions was a difficult tutor to deal with. The look at that time was like a newlywed wife worrying about her husband, which filled Carlos's heart with warmth. Carlos took Penelo into the pharmacy and made a large purchase. In addition to replenishing medicines, he also bought a bunch of things. The manager of the pharmacy was smiling from ear to ear. In the end, the crazy purchasing operation was stopped by Penelo, who worriedly said to Carlos, "Potion science is a bit dangerous. Carlos, you'd better not experiment randomly without the guidance of a mentor. I don't want you to get hurt because of this. After all, you have to consider your safety." "Carlos, don't make me worry, okay?" Penelo looked at Carlos with big watery eyes. Carlos is still very comfortable, which means that Penelo really cares about him. After thinking about it carefully, Carlos finally said softly to Penelo that when he casts spells, refines potions, or even enchants and refines magic weapons, etc., he will be inspired by the world. As long as you experiment enough times, everything will be successful, and the level of refining potions can even reach the level of gods. After telling Penelo not to tell anyone, Carlos knew it was done when he saw how seriously Penelo was about to take the oath. The same was true for Catherine and Angela last night. With Carlos and the two of them practicing together, their strength became stronger. He also got the Carlos skilled telekinesis. Even more so, Carlos gained Master Chef and Master Sword skills from Catherine and Angela. Carlos purchased a lot of various materials, and Penelo said that he would give Carlos his 2 years of study books in the next few days. The information recorded in Penelo's book review is enough to bring great benefits to Carlos and save him from taking some detours. She is Ravenclaw's genius witch. She will be in 3rd grade this year and will bring notes to Carlos. In this world, there seems to be no common sense among men and women to keep information confidential. In the real world of the previous life, most family members, except those within 3 generations, settled accounts openly among themselves. Of course, Carlos didn't know that Penelo was basically her future husband, otherwise he wouldn't be able to grant all the demands. Knowledge in this world is basically power. Borrowing knowledge from textbooks is the same as borrowing money from previous lives. "Penelo, those books of yours hope to teach Catherine and Angela," Carlos said with a smile. Can Catherine and Angela understand? Several thoughts suddenly flashed through Penelo's head. Are they all geniuses or do they have some special method? Penelo and the others have become my women, and naturally they have inherited part of my ability to learn and inspire, Carlos said with a smile. What Carlos didn't say was that, as Catherine learned to improve her abilities after becoming his woman, he would also learn to improve her proficiency at the same time. All the women he met were like this, and he didn't plan to tell anyone about it, including his own woman. "Carlos, I want to have one too. Catherine and the others still need to learn the basics," Penelo said, looking at Carlos with expectant eyes. Carlos ate a piece of chocolate and said with a smile, "After you officially become my woman, you will also inherit my ability to learn and inspire. As a student of Ravenclaw, don't you realize the importance of knowledge? I only think that besides the wizards of Ravenclaw, they should be the most successful wizards. Looking at your expression, I never thought that my ability could be so good. Use it." "Carlos, you have the ability to become a god, and you are also a qualified Ravenclaw." Penelo was a little depressed and thought for a long time before saying this. She found that she had never thought that she could gain some of Carlos' abilities. This ability is still the most suitable for someone like Raven, but Carlos never told her whether his reflexes were too slow, which made Penelo feel a little depressed. In the end, Penelo declared war on Carlos without hesitation, saying that she would conquer him at night, otherwise she would have no face to see anyone. Because her conscience couldn't let her miss such an incredible opportunity, and she had already been Carlos's lover. She was going to sleep with Carlos tonight. Penelo thought about it and quickly told Carlos that in fact, Flourish Blossom's bookstore sold a lot of second-hand books, and the prices were much cheaper. After Carlos took Penelo back to the bookstore to pick out second-hand books, Penelo agreed to help Catherine and Angel study during the summer vacation. If Carlos and Catherine encounter problems in the books, they can provide guidance and help on the bed. As time went by, Carlos and Penelo chatted because Penelo didn't have an owl yet. He quickly took Penelo to the Ila Owl store and bought a pure white snowy owl. Penelo named it a nice name, Alice. Penelo said that this name is like the encounter between himself and Carlos, as dreamy and beautiful as Alice in Wonderland. Carlos is the prince in his heart, the sanctity in his heart. Carlos was worried that he might not have time to take care of Helena, so he quickly made an agreement with Penelo. Alice and Helena were taken care of by Catherine and Angela during the holidays. When they arrived at school, the two cute little animals were taken care of and raised by Penelo. Penelo will become Ravenclaw's prefect this semester and have an independent room. Although Carlos would also sleep in Penelo's separate dormitory, sometimes he still had to go back to the boys' dormitory. It would be better to leave Alice and Helena to be summoned by Penelo at school. It's better than following a boy like him. Carlos doesn't want his woman to suffer, even if it's just a pet. Helena also plans to turn into a monster to defeat him. Carlos knows that advanced transformation spells can turn people into animals. Of course, Helena can be turned into a beautiful girl, since she is a female cat anyway. Carlos thought irresponsibly, completely forgetting all the education needed to turn Helena into a beautiful girl, which is as difficult as educating a baby into adulthood. If you really want to ask, Carlos might say that Penelo and the others are not there, and there will be more mistresses to help in the future. After Penelo heard Carlos' request, he happily agreed. This was the first thing he promised Carlos, and it couldn't be simpler. He quickly and happily pulled Carlos to buy him a bunch of the most expensive special owl food in the store. Of course, there is Helena's food, the most expensive food, a specially cured dried fish. But Penelo was not sure whether Helena liked to eat. Carlos told him that Helena ate similar food to humans. Because she and Carlos only bought a few, Carlos immediately took a price list from the store and checked out. After leaving the store, Carlos planned to take Penelo to buy a cauldron for refining potions. This was required by the school, and Carlos himself planned to buy some of the most expensive ones as gifts for Penelo, Catherine, and Angela. Of course, Carlos himself had to buy the best one, otherwise Lucifer's holy name would be on the front page of the Daily Prophet the same day when he used an ordinary pot to refine the potion, and it would still be the type of massacre. In the Crucible store, Carlos chose several sets of large pots, made of pewter, standard size number 2, choosing the ones with the best quality. In addition, a set of glass or crystal vials, a telescope, and a scale were all chosen to be the best, allowing Penelo to witness the financial resources of her future husband. The moment Carlos said, "My name is Carlos Lucifer," the Crucible shop apparated back to the shop, leading everyone to perform sacred rituals towards Carlos. Carlos got a complete set of the Crucible store's treasures. As a witness to all this, Penelo was reminded of Carlos's completely non-standard sacred etiquette. After Carlos paid the bill, he dragged him out of the store because the non-standard use of sacred etiquette was really embarrassing for the wizard. Just like proving that you are a muggle in person, only muggles' sacred etiquette will not be standard. If Penelope used something substandard in the church, she would feel like she was being roasted on the stake. No matter how much money Carlos has, it will gradually decrease with such squandering. The 1,000 galleons gold card that Carlos has been using now has about 600 gold galleons left. Nearly 400 galleons of supplies have been purchased. The shrinking spell was used on all of Carlos's things. With the blessing of the Staff of Light, all the items turned into small thumb-sized figures. With Penelo's help, these items were gradually separated and stored in different boxes. Carlos put the box into his bag, looking as if he had only bought one thing today. Carlos had to admit that magic was indeed very convenient. He decided that when he learns space magic in the future, he must study the production of things like storage bags or space rings or na rings in Cultivation novels. Carlos took Penelo around and started wandering around. Penelo's laughter was as clear as pearls and had never been heard before. Countless passers-by who came and went along the way couldn't help but stop and watch this pair of talented and beautiful lovers. From time to time, some people looked at Carlos or Penelo with envious eyes. I was secretly sad that I didn't have such luck, and I never even had the chance to get close to them. Along the way, Carlos bought a lot of delicious snacks or foreign specialty foods almost every time he encountered them. Most of it went into Penelo's mouth, which made this beautiful girl feel really good. Then she took Carlos to a magic weapons store to buy gifts for several people in the family as their own greeting gifts. After all, when a daughter-in-law meets her parents-in-law, she can gain a lot of impression points by bringing carefully selected gifts, and Penelo will not let this opportunity pass by. Carlos chose the most exquisite and beautiful dust-proof badge for Penelo. The elegant art looked indeed extraordinary, but the price was not cheap. At 50 galleons, the price was enough to make people shy away from it. Moreover, just when Carlos was about to buy the badge, there was a small disturbance. A noble-looking witch seemed to have taken a liking to the ornament. Unfortunately, Carlos had already paid the price, and it turned out that the clerk seemed to know the other person and wanted to go back on his word. "My name is Carlos Lucifer. You want to regret it," Carlos said his name softly. Everyone shopping in this store fell into deathly silence. None of them thought that this magic weapons store actually wanted to get a divine son like Carlos Lucifer. You must know that he is a divine descendant like Lucifer. It is clearly written in the Bible that Lucifer, formerly known as Lucifer, was once the most beautiful and powerful archangel in heaven and the star of the morning. But because he refused to surrender to Christ, the Son of God, he chose to abandon his title as Archangel Phil, and left behind the heroic words of "I would rather go to hell to be a king than to be a slave in heaven to lead heaven." One-third of the angels in the church launched the revolution without hesitation, although it ended in failure. Legend has it that Lucifer was the original angel who stood before the God of the ninth heaven. He leads the central angelic army, while Gabriel sits on the left side of God and leads the left-wing angelic army. Michael stands on the right side of God, leading the right wing of the angelic army. Lucifer possessed 6/7 of the power of God. He fell in chaos for 9 mornings and dusk before falling to hell and became the king of hell, the head of the 7 demon kings. All the other angels who followed him transformed into the form of fallen angels. It is said that only Lucifer still retains the glorious 12-winged image of an angel. After that, God created a new world and mankind. In order to take revenge and seize the new world, Lucifer turned into a snake and sneaked into the Garden of Eden, luring Eve to eat the fruit of the forbidden tree of knowledge. Using her to seduce, Adam also committed the sin of disobeying God's command. So Lucifer fulfilled his wish and caused God's new creations to fall together and opened the door to the new world for the demons. Since then, sin, disease, and death have finally spread all over the earth. Squeak. An old wizard pushed open the door of the shop as if a spark had been lit. Boom, boom. Boom. The clerk and the noble witch knelt on the ground and kowtowed heavily. As a person in the wizarding world, there is no one who is not afraid of Lucifer. That was when he was the first angel of heaven. He said to God, "I want to ascend to the high clouds, and I want to be equal to the Supreme One." The 12th winged seraph archangel of heaven, he fell to hell and became Satan, the king of hell who is truly equal to the realm of God. Da-da-da. Which witch's tears fell to the ground and kept making sounds. Penelo felt a little unbearable and quickly pulled Carlo's arm. Carlos nodded and signaled Penelo not to worry. He still liked this noble witch with a superior figure and appearance. "From now on, you will be my slave, my servant, my maid, and my sacred descendant," Carlos said with a soft smile as he looked at the witch kneeling on the ground. "I have met the master, and I will be your little maid Anna from now on." The beautiful and noble witch stood up and gave Carlos the special maid etiquette. Then she stood behind Carlos and became a maid with peace of mind. "No, my youth, my lifespan." The figure and appearance of the clerk kneeling on the ground changed by 20 or 30 in an instant. Now he looks like an old man in his 50s or 60s. Penelo looked at everything that happened. He was still trying to accept Anna for Carlos, and his jealousy disappeared instantly. The hidden smile he got from the wizarding world only shortened his lifespan by 2 or 3. Unexpectedly, the clerk who offended Lucifer's name would lose 30 years of his life. What happened in front of them scared everyone, and basically everyone trembled at Carlos. Anna was really devoted to Carlos this time, remembering that she had never made a friend before and her first kiss was perfect. Anna became more loyal to Carlos. All his firsts were stepping stones to become Carlos' woman, weren't they? When the whole place fell silent, I heard a cold tone. "Not everyone can be offended by you, and if you don't give enough compensation, I will never come to your store again." Almost everyone in the store was frightened by Carlos's words. From now on, everyone knew that this store had offended Lucifer and would be closed and dilapidated if he didn't know how to do it. There is no one in the wizarding world who doesn't know the sacred etiquette towards Lucifer, who would dare to do this. The owner of the store came out with a dark face, stared at the culprit clerk, and after understanding the situation, he did something unexpected. He took it as announcing that he would permanently fire that clerk, and the wizarding world would not accept him. And he gave Carlos 500,000 galleons in public, which was considered as spending money to eliminate the disaster. Will Carlos need it? Naturally needed. However, Carlos didn't give the manager a good look. As he said before, he would basically never visit their store again in the future. Is it really okay for you to offend them like this? Penelo asked worriedly. Problem? What's the problem? What they should worry about is what happens when they die and go to hell, Bert said with a contemptuous smile. Some people are asking for trouble and don't give them any punishment. They really think that our family is very good. Getting along. Penelo smiled and nodded, and even the little maid Anna on the side nodded in agreement. Carlos is naturally not angry or angry. After he awakens Lucifer's bloodline, he can be said to be the son of God. As long as there is a world with endless legends about Lucifer, it is basically difficult for anyone to dare to deal with him. For him, Carlos knew that his own strength had just begun, and once he reached those worlds where the legend of Lucifer was not used. Apart from having the bloodline of a god, he basically has nothing special about him, because he still has to work hard to improve his strength. Moreover, what happened in the store is not satisfactory. He hired a beautiful and noble maid, used a clerk to establish his authority, and received another 500,000 gold galleons. It can be said that he made a complete profit. Flipped. He was just pretending to be like that to warn others that his tolerance was also limited, and he would never allow others to step on and shit on him. However, when Penelo thought about what was going to happen tonight, she was a little worried that she wouldn't be able to bear it, so she was a little distracted from the rest of her shopping. Carlos took Penelo and Anna with him, and then successfully completed the important task of buying gifts. He first bought wizard badges for the little maids Angela and Catherine. As for the magic wand and wizard robes, Carlos carefully prepared a bunch of snacks and a wand made of unicorn hair and phoenix feathers, as well as a dragon made of dragon, the magic wand. This Carlos obtained the most suitable wand for them through the system's information on the two of them. Only his father, Melly, had a book called Wizards and Muggles, and his mother had a bottle of magic skin care products, which Anna carefully recommended. Carlos didn't even miss a gift from his pet Helena, a pile of cat cakes. After buying all the things, it was already afternoon. Carlos said to Penelo, "Penelo, I have a gift for you. This dust badge is my gift. I bought it for you from the beginning." Penelo looked at Carlos happily and said, "Thank you, Anna, and I will wait for you in the evening." Anna looked at Penelo with envious eyes. She was just a little maid now, so there was no need to be too envious. "Anna, this is another dust badge. I saw you staring at it several times," Carlos said to Anna with a smile. "Carlos, I'm so happy," Anna said happily as she threw herself into Carlos's arms. Carlos felt that he was surrounded by a huge crowd, and he quickly began to enjoy it with peace of mind. Until Anna calmed down, Carlos looked at Anna's appearance carefully. She has a small and exquisite cherry mouth, a delicate nose, aqua blue eyes, delicate and generous eyebrows, and waist-length platinum blonde hair. What best appeared in front of Carlos was a pretty face with beauty and nobility in youth. Carlos slowly went, and with Anna's cooperation, he devoted himself even more selflessly. Ding, the host gets Anna's first mouth and is rewarded with 1,000 points of universal proficiency. The sound of the legendary system in his ears made Carlos even more enthusiastic and fanatical. Anna was extremely happy when Carlos kissed her, and not only did she respond to Carlos more actively. When the two met, they did not forget to put Carlos' big hands on the two defensive areas that they had guarded for more than 10 years and had never been touched by anyone. Carlos's big hands moving around Anna's body. Both of Anna's defensive areas were attacked by him. Of course, Carlos wouldn't go too far, he just enjoyed the warmth carefully through the defensive clothes. He has no interest in being molested since this is the street. About 10 minutes passed before Carlos let go of Anna's body. Penelo looked at the selfless interaction between the two with envy and kept looking at Carlos with expectant eyes. At this moment, how much she wished to replace Anna with herself, she kept looking at Carlos with expectant eyes. The moment they separated, she hugged Carlos tightly, not even caring about the thread around his mouth. Just like a powerful warrior who silenced Carlos, he even forgot the shyness of giving the girl his first kiss. Carlos responded enthusiastically as soon as Penelo contacted him. "There is no need to say anything, I just need to respond passionately to Penelo." He knew that Penelo was scared when he saw what had just happened, afraid of losing his favor. Then respond to her with fire-hot actions, and run her big hands carefully on the body of a girl like a Lolita. Penelo will not be a third-year Ravenclaw student until this summer vacation, which means that this young girl with a Lolita body is only in her teens. Carlos doesn't have to do anything, just enjoy responding to Penelo's initiative and the benefits. Ding, the host gets the first mouth of the ordinary plot character Penelo Crevet and is rewarded with 1 skill point and 10,000 universal proficiency points. Carlos paused visibly after hearing the system prompts: ordinary plot characters, difficulty level and important plot characters. Is the plot the same as the 7-part Harry Potter series in the previous life? The plots in those are the main line of the world or something. Penelo would not leave Carlos in a daze, and at the moment of pause, he would increase his attack on Carlos. Being intimate with the legendary divine son, the bloodline of Lucifer, is a great achievement for any witch. As Carlos's lover, Penelo now has the opportunity to take the initiative, so he can't help but put in a lot of effort. Even if Carlos comes back with revenge tonight, even if he can't get out of bed for a few days. She, Penelo Crevet, thought that she had missed this opportunity, and she didn't know how long it would take to take the initiative next time. Carlos enjoyed Penelo's passionate kiss even more. He will never understand in his life that all the women in the future will become female knights like Penelo if they have the chance. Who started it? Even if he knew Carlos would only enjoy their different postures, wouldn't it be nice to have a little wife who takes the initiative? Time passed slowly, and Carlos and Anna and Penelo talked to each other several times. But after buying all the items, he still hadn't forgotten the serious matter of taking the two of them home to help the two girls grow up. After Carlos brought Penelona back from Diagon Alley, everyone in Alice Manor had already prepared a warm welcome ceremony. At a very warm dinner, Penelo and Anna took out various gifts they had prepared. Mila and Alyssa were very happy to announce that Catherine, Angela, Penelope and Anna had come of age after Carlos. She will become his little wife and officially enter the family tree. She said that the only thing she did wrong in her life was not to give her lovers names. Carlos took it as an agreement and announced to everyone in the family at any time that he would officially practice double cultivation with women from now on. As long as she is a pure girl, he can take her as his mistress after all, after he becomes a wizard. Because the proficiency system he now has can basically achieve immortality. Now is the opportunity for the 4 women now and all the women in the future. After Carlos announced the result, Catherine, Angela, Penelo and Anna took Carlos's hand and spoke loudly of their love vows. Carlos, Lucifer and I, Catherine, Angela, Penelope Crevet, Anna love what he loves, hurt what he hurts, like what he likes, hate what he hates, ignore and never give up. Life and death follow Catherine, Angela, Penelo Crevet, Anna, you are my little wives, Carlos said with a smile. The 4 Catherine girls smiled excitedly and agreed. Carlos took their hands and said seriously, from now on, when I am the king, you will be the princess. When I become the god, you will be my concubine serving in the harem. My dear, it's time for us to take the last step. Catherine held Carlos' big hand and walked towards the bedroom with great momentum. Carlos smiled and nodded, motioning for Angela and the 3 girls to follow. Penelo and Anna pulled Angela to follow Carlos. They couldn't miss this important opportunity. In Carlos's bedroom, under the colorful glazed lights, he gradually removed the equipment from Penelo and others one by one. Ding, the host gets the first blood of Penelo Crevet, which rewards 10 skill points and 100,000 universal proficiency points. Ding, the host and Penelo Crevet practiced double cultivation once, and gained 10 points of universal proficiency, and dual cultivation skill proficiency +1. Ding, the host and Penelo Crevet practiced double cultivation once, and gained 10 points of universal proficiency, and dual cultivation skill proficiency +1. Ding, the host gets Anna's first blood, and is rewarded with 10,000 points of universal proficiency. Ding, the host and Anna will practice double cultivation once, and gain 10 points of universal proficiency, and double cultivation skill proficiency +1. Ding, the host and Anna will practice double cultivation once, and gain 10 points of universal proficiency, and double cultivation skill proficiency +1. Ding, the host and Catherine will practice double cultivation once, and gain 10 points of universal proficiency, and double cultivation skill proficiency +1. Ding, the host and Angela practiced double cultivation once, and gained 10 points of universal proficiency, and dual cultivation skill proficiency +1. Ding, the host and Penelo Crevet practiced double cultivation once, and gained 10 points of universal proficiency, and dual cultivation skill proficiency +1. Time gradually passed as Carlos happily improved his proficiency in dual cultivation skills. The next day, a huge luxury villa was built in Alice's manor. This was specially prepared by the Lucifer family for wizards who might appear in their family in the future. Count Meal Lucifer spent a lot of effort to build it using various precious materials. Carlos accepted this place unceremoniously and even moved his bedroom here. In addition to Penelo and several female cultivators, he studies and tries various magics with them every day. The entire villa is located in a remote and very strong place. It won't affect the family at all, and any curse that destroys a restoration as before will be solved. After the four Penelos and Carlos moved to this villa, they became more and more bold, not letting Carlos go even during the day. Carlos unexpectedly discovered that the magic rules of this world are very interesting. Standard spoken language and movement of signs. As long as you have magic power, you can trigger the effect of the spell through the wand. Of course, there is also the so-called wandless magic. Carlos' telekinesis, which means moving coins and destroying objects out of thin air, falls into the scope of wandless silent magic, which is a relatively high-end one, but the way he used to use it was rough. In just a few days, Carlos, with the help of Penelo and Anna, was like a sponge, absorbing the spell crazily, reciting the password of the spell, and finally successfully cast it. The four girls Carlos and Penelo, with the help of the Proficiency System, began to frantically try various magics and cast various spells in succession. I am afraid that among the senior wizards, any student of the entire age group with single-round destructive power will not be Carlos's opponent. Even during the past few days of practice, Angela and Catherine were able to overwhelm lower-level wizards simply by relying on the telekinesis they inherited from Carlos. Of course, even if they were practicing carefully, they were just helping Carlos practice his skill proficiency. According to Penelo, her current strength is not limited to Carlos's drastic change, and she can already become Ravenclaw's senior prefect. Carlos still remembers the resentful look in Penelo's eyes at that time, and for this he severely taught Penelo that he could not get off the ground for several days. Under the crazy experiments of Carlos and others, 1 or 2 explosions can always be heard in the courtyard of the villa every day. It seems a little late today. Boom, the pure white marble on the ground was exploded into pieces of rubble. Amidst the rain of falling rocks, a plume of green smoke rose into the sky. Just now, a pot of boiling potion exploded due to an attempt to replace it with something else. The place used to cook the potion was destroyed by the strong sulfuric acid-like potion. Clean it up, Carlos raised his wand and swiped it lightly. He looked up at the blue sky and sighed. Now the thick smell of medicine is gradually evaporating. Because Carlos randomly tried various potions, some cleanup workers dug out piles of mass graves for rats in the suburbs outside the city. Carlos walked over to the table to examine the cause of the error and systematically video recorded the experiment, just like a dedicated researcher. But the +1 to his medicine proficiency he just gained betrayed this serious expression. In just 2 months, the original large amount of potion materials had been squandered, and school was about to start on September 1st. Carlos and Penelo packed their luggage, used a shrinking spell to shrink the luggage, put it in their coat pockets, lifted up Helena and Alyssa's cage, and put it in their father's car. When they arrived at platform 9 3/4 of London Station, it was already 9:30. There were not many people coming and going at the train station at this time. Carlos and Penelo said goodbye to their families. Together we carried the suitcases and walked to a wall between the 9th and 10th platforms of the train station. He carefully observed the passing crowd to ensure that no one was paying attention, and was surprised to find a group of guys wearing strange clothes disappearing through the wall. They've been discovered, because when Carlos saw a muggle, he actually tried to experience walking through the wall for no reason and ended up bumping into the wall. The consequences were predictable. The feat of hitting the wall attracted the attention of many pedestrians. At this time, 2 people jumped out of the void and cast magic on the crowd around them. Both of them held magic wands in their hands. After controlling the crowd around them, they cast magic on the unlucky guy who hit the wall and eliminated it. The memory of walking through the wall. This slight movement was quickly stopped, and Penelo pulled Carlos through the wall easily and reached the express train boarding point for Hogwarts. A scarlet steam locomotive is parked here quietly at this time. From time to time, 1 or 2 people get on and off the train, and there are only a few people gathered around the train. Occasionally, there are a few cats running around. Go, Carlos secretly breathed a sigh of relief. There have been too many people coming up to say hello for no reason recently, and everyone has to be hypocritically polite for a long time. Who knew his family's sacred name was so famous? How could Harry cover his scars with a head curtain? But there is nothing that can be done about the sacred name of the Lucifer family. It's not that he has never thought of hiding his identity. But later he discovered that after his hidden identity was discovered, a large group of wizards performed sacred rituals on him. which would make him more visible in the wizarding world. Taking advantage of the lack of people, Carlos talked to Penelo and quickly slipped onto the Hogwarts Express alone. Luggage and other things have long been put into a small bag by him using the shrinking technique, ever since he got his own exclusive artifact. After these 2 months of practice, level 3 spells are no longer a problem for him. He can even cast most level 6 spells without damage. Finding a private room farthest from the car door, Carlos took out the Walkman from his store and put it on his ears. Then he took out a Witchcraft hat and covered his head, leaning against the window. Just close your eyes and rest. On the Hogwarts Express, Qiu Zhang had been walking back and forth in the aisles of the car. Today she arrived at the station early. After putting her luggage on the car, she searched back and forth in various compartments. For some reason, she really wanted to see Carlos Lucifer, who showed off his power in the magic weapon shop on Diagon Street 2 months ago before school started. An adult with sacred blood, I heard that he was the student this time, and I liked him a little bit at that time. That kind of divine son is almost every girl's dream lover, but I don't know if he has seen me or how he feels about me. In the girl's arms, she searched harder and harder. As the number of unexplored compartments decreased one by one, Qiu Zhang's expression became more and more disappointed. Carlos looked behind him and looked at the back of a cute girl with black hair and black eyes. The girl was standing at the door, clutching the black robe on her body tightly with both hands, as if she was looking for something. Looking carefully at the beautiful girl in front of him and her Huxia appearance, a name appeared in Carlos's mind, and then he smiled. "Are you also a freshman at Hogwarts?" Mowen asked with a smile. "Yes, yes." The familiar face of Carlos came into view, with the black wizard robe and the ancient aristocratic temperament on his body. The girl who had just entered the magical world remembered the appearance of the boy's sacred name 2 months ago. She was a little excited, a little nervous, and her face unexpectedly turned red. "My name is Carlos Lucifer, and I am also a freshman. I am very happy to meet a beautiful girl like you. We will be classmates from now on. My name is Qiu Zhang. I'm glad to meet you." Qiu Zhang was afraid to look directly into Carlos's black eyes. In her shyness, the girl even forgot the sacred etiquette she should have shown to Carlos Lucifer. "Zhang Qiu, it's a very nice name." Carlos spoke in Huxia, then waved his hand and a bouquet of flowers appeared in his hand. "This is given to you as a meeting gift." "Oh, thank you." Qiu Zhang took it subconsciously and then looked at Carlos in surprise. "Can you speak Huxia?" Carlos was just happy. He nodded and said, "Don't look at me like this. I have studied Huxia culture for a while." Although it is not the Huxia culture learned in this world, Carlos added in his mind, "Carlos, you are really knowledgeable." Qiu Zhang said to Carlos with a big smile. "Zhang Qiu, you are also very heartwarming with the qualities of a virtuous lady from the ancient East." Carlos spoke softly to Zhang Qiu in a praising tone. "Really? Mine makes your heart beat." Zhang Qiu blinked and said playfully to Carlos. Zhang Qiu's playful gesture not only attracted Carlos's attention, but even a boy outside the door was attracted by Zhang Qiu's figure. Card interaction. When Lowe's reacted, he met Zhang Qiu's proud eyes. Strolling to Zhang Qiu's side with a smirk on her lips, she whispered in her ear, "You succeeded in attracting my attention. We still have a long journey ahead." Zhang Qiu knew that he had succeeded. He looked at Carlos's handsome face under his long black hair. With a hint of heartbeat hugging Carlos's waist, enjoying the sense of security brought by Carlos's arms. Carlos just held Zhang Qiu tightly, enjoying the warm atmosphere brought by Zhang Qiu. At this moment, the boy next to him clenched his fists like a clown and looked at this scene unwillingly. The oriental beauty in front of her, the gesture in that moment made her become her own woman. He actually threw himself into the arms of the man in front of him. But evil, why not wait for yourself to pursue her? Cedric Diggory's handsome face was almost distorted by the burning jealousy in his heart, although Carlos felt the hostility coming from the boy next to him, but he didn't care at all. Carlos had already planned to let the wizard family members destroy the clown in front of him. There is actually a clown in this world who doesn't know whether to live or die, so I feel like I should show hostility to him. No matter what the reason is, Lucifer's sacred name is enough for countless people to help solve this problem. Carlos was not the kind of weakling who would let the enemy hit him in front of the goal before deciding to fight back. He is used to solving troubles in advance. From now on, he, Carlos Lucifer, will be the king and the tyrant. If you want to hold the throne high and achieve the sacred position in this low-level magical world, you can only be a tyrant, an emperor, or even a demon king. Carlos doesn't think Lucifer has that quote on top of the Bible. "I will ascend into the heavens. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mountain of assembly in the uttermost part of the north. I will ascend above the high clouds, and I will be equal with the Most High." Carlos wanted nothing more than to be the one and only supreme, the only supreme being. There is only one supreme throne in heaven, and there can only be one. In the Bible, God is the winner, Lucifer is the loser, and Carlos wants to become the strongest and supreme one. Carlos is originally the name of the god of chaos. All things in the world originate from chaos. Only when Carlos became the supreme did he live up to the name of the two saints he possessed. Time gradually passed, and Carlos was now holding Zhang Qiu and watching the farce in front of him. He had already been completely isolated before he took action against the clown who showed hostility towards him. Neither he nor Zhang Qiu expected Lucifer's sacred name to have such a strong deterrent effect. Cedric Diggory was being kneeled down in front of Carlos by some of his school friends. As he continued to struggle, his friend told him the reason why he was heartbroken. Cedric Diggory, you actually feel that the divine son is malicious. Kneel down. Yes, you uneducated beast, you actually want to harm all of us. As he said this, a big-eared melon seed hit Diggory hard on the face. Boom, ah, boom. Woohoo tilde. Cedric Diggory was knocked to the ground and his friends began punching and kicking him. Bump. Woohoo tilde. Zhang Qiu looked at the scene in front of him curiously and asked Carlos curiously, how long will it take for the teacher from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to arrive? Carlos proudly hung Zhang Qiu's little nose, so he would not tell Zhang Qiu. The school teacher had arrived long ago because what happened to that clerk 2 months ago was too horrifying. The teachers were all frightened. They would not test their own lifespans for S and B in front of them. You must know that the reason why Diggory was beaten to death was because his friends knew about it for 2 months. Completely frightened, they beat Cedric Diggory so badly, except for fear and estrangement. Also, the school teacher typed it for him, Carlos, to read. It should not be said that Satan, the king of hell, read it. Carlos thought Dumbledore wanted to prove it to people like the school. The people in their school can protect the students in the school, and their lifespan will not be consumed just because they accidentally offend him. Of course, Carlos would not explain everything that happened in 2 months like others. It's basically the automatic counterattack of his title skill Lucifer Bloodborne. It is not as tall as the legendary Lucifer at all. The supreme, great, and powerful divine aura left behind at that time. It's his own skill, and it's completely a counterattack ability that has a certain level of power. Although the aura is real, people who don't know it will be completely frightened by the name of Lucifer on Carlos. Carlos, would not give up his future privileges, and even if he said it, no one would believe him, right? There are those people who dare to risk their own lifespan, and some people will commit suicide, but this definitely does not include the divine punishment of aging dozens of years instantly. No one in this world is a fool, and no one does not cherish their own life. Cedric Diggory, from now on, you are expelled from our ranks of friends once and for all. Remember, I will hit you once when I meet you again. Were these the last words Cedric Gallic heard before he passed out? Carlos looked at the beating, who didn't give up even when he was unconscious, and left the carriage with Zhang Qiu in boredom. Who is this girl, Carlos? Penelo held Carlos' arm and said softly. Looking at the beautiful eyes so close, Qiu Zhang could almost see her own reflection in them, and her face suddenly turned red. I have to say that children in Daxia mature precociously even if she is a girl. Qiu Zhang dodged unnaturally and whispered in a panic, how do I know? However, his expression was much more natural. Carlos smiled and said, this is my new friend, her name is Qiu Zhang. He put his right hand on Zhang Qiu's long black hair and stroked it carefully, looking at the shy look of this oriental girl. Penelo on the side twitched at the corner of her eyes when she saw this. This little girl named Zhang Qiu was also very easy to handle. Thinking back to his own youth, it was possible that Carlos was too powerful, but his methods were completely like those of a novice, not the kind of veteran among the flowers. Originally, Penelo was still questioning her, so that no matter how Zhang Qiu explained, he would leave the impression of Carlos as a new wife who had just moved into the house. But Carlos started to caress her like this, and he started to like her. Looking at Qiu Zhang, she still remembered that she was her eldest sister in the future. Looking at Carlos's eyes, the expression became more and more resentful, and a pair of beautiful big eyes seemed to be asking him curiously, why do you succeed so quickly with the girls you meet? This world is not your harem. Of course, Carlos would not tell her that everything he met with the woman was because he knew his identity. Everyone wants to cheat on him and become his wife. When the woman cheats on him, the progress of picking up girls is so slow. You must know that, Penelo, you and Anna were obtained by you in one day. You dare to say that you are not cheating. Shaking his head, Carlos planned to check his ability panel. Open system interface. Host Carlos. Occupation wizard. Race human god. Bloodlines. Wizard bloodline, thin Vela bloodline, thin angel bloodline, thin fallen angel bloodline, thin demon king bloodline, thin dragon tribe bloodline, thin ancient snake bloodline, thin. Attributes: strength 36, durability 56, agility 42, energy 38, intelligence 205, resistance level 3 103 luck 65, charm 396, skills abilities, mind power level 4 316/5000, the influence of the brain spirit soul consciousness on living objects and the surrounding environment. Effect: hypnotic suggestion. Essence: a creature with around 80 divine power points for 4 minutes can lift an object weighing 1,780 kg in the air for 80 minutes. Essence: the lower the divine power and the weight of the object, the better the effect and duration, anyway. Swordsmanship level 4 4213/5000. You have master level swordsmanship, and you are the pinnacle of swordsmanship in the world. Feng, inherited from Catherine. Effect: your swordsmanship attack power, attack speed, and damage caused are increased by 4 times. Charm spells. Shrinking spell level 3 623/1000. You can use the magic spell without a wand, quick shrinking. You can use magic to make objects smaller. Transform great spell level 3 165/1000. You can use magic spells without a wand, quick transform. Big, you can use magic to make objects larger. Invoke Guardian level 2, 26/500. You can summon 2 guardian spirits, inherited from Penelo Crevat. Effect: the Patroness is a thing that protects against Dementors. It is a guard that acts as a shield between the caster and the Dementors. It is a positive force, and what it advocates east, west is the Dementor's food, hope, happiness, the desire to live. Apparition level 2, 256/500. You can use magic to move objects or humans creatures through space, inherited from Anna. Effect: current level 2, the safest maximum number of people to carry is 3 to 5 people. Professional ability. Intermediate beast language level 4 4316/5000. You can understand the speech of most animals. Especially when you encounter hyperactive objects, they will automatically learn the language. Refining potion level 2 412/500. Your ability exceeds that of most ordinary pharmacists, and you are only a little short of becoming a potion expert. Enchantment level 3 12/1000. You use expert level enchantment skills, and you are an enchantment expert. Cooking level 4 653/5000. You have master level cooking skills, and you are a master of enchantment. Inherited from Angela. Life skills, learning level 4 11/5000. You have a unique and efficient way of learning. Effect: intelligence improvement, understanding ability improvement, learning and understanding effect plus 45%. Well-read level 4 4123/5000. Reading a lot of books will greatly promote your intelligence. Effect: permanent, intelligence improvement, memory enhancement, reading comprehension efficiency plus 40%. Aristocratic style level 3 236/1000. Long-term aristocratic education makes you more gentle and elegant, making it easier for you to win the favor of others. Effect: permanent, increased charm, improved luck. Ding host activation ability, dual cultivation level 3 95/100. When you and the female proficiency. Master and servant level 1 4/10. You are your own maid and the master of many beauties after practicing double cultivation with you. Effect: permanent, increased charm, increased luck. The initial favorability of the beauties towards you with a small increase. You can gain 1 skill from each of your own maids and women, and your maids and women can also gain 1 skill from you, and the skills will be acquired immediately. Title influence. Legendary title. Genius child level 5 3165/10000. Your clever brain makes you particularly eye-catching and charming, as well as more intelligent. Effect: permanent, intelligence improvement, charm improvement, learning and understanding efficiency plus 40%. Ancient noble level 68963/10000. The oldest nobility that has been passed down from the ancient times thousands of years ago. Effects: increased mysterious affinity, enhanced charm, increased rarity, and greatly improved spell effects. Blood descendant of Lucifer level 3 789/1000. Human beings in the world from ancient times to the present have said that you are the direct blood descendants of Lucifer. Effect: you have obtained angel bloodline, thin fallen angel bloodline, thin demon king bloodline, thin dragon tribe bloodline, thin ancient snake bloodline, thin beauty female collector level 1 4/5. You are the prince and collector in the hearts of many beautiful women. Effect permanent, increased charm, increased luck. Beautiful women have a great initial impression of you increase in magnitude. Divinity Priesthood Divinity. Opening progress 1.65 million 10 million. Light Divinity Unknown. Automatically awakens after being officially turned on. Dark Divinity Unknowns. Automatically awakens after being officially opened. The Divinity of Dragon Unknown. Automatically awakens after being officially opened. Weaponry Carlos exclusive weapon, the Sacred Weapon. Level, infinitely grows with the host's strength. Category Artifact Holy. The ancient wand passed down from ancient times resonated with the host's bloodline ability and transformed into Carlos' exclusive weapon. First form. Bright and Holy Weapon Sword Staff Suit. Light Staff Level 3, 465/1000. All magic power and effects are increased by 15 times and spells above level 2 can be cast without loss. Bright and Kind magic is increased by 30 times. Introduction, the light form of the sacred vessel. The proficiency of all forms of the bright holy weapon will automatically increase as the host double cultivates. Sword of Light Unknown. The host's strength is increased tenfold in all aspects, with purification, protection, and holy healing properties. Can resurrect life. Unlock condition, collect pure beauty rays girl progress 4/100. Light Suit Unknown. Good and pure believers who believe in you can be transformed into your exclusive light angels. Good and pure souls can only be transformed into juvenile angels. Can be resurrected on a large scale, unlocking conditions. Second form, Weapons of Darkness and Corruption Sword Staff Suit. Dark Staff. All magic power and effects are increased by 5 times, spells above level 2 can be cast without loss, and dark magic is increased by 10 times. Unlocking conditions. Sword of Darkness. The host's strength is increased tenfold in all directions, with the characteristics of devouring, dark corruption, and erosion transformation. It can swallow living souls to enhance the host's strength, corrode other living souls, and transform them into your dark fanatic followers. Unlocking conditions. Dark Suit Believer. Your dark and pure believer can be transformed into your exclusive fallen angel Dark Angel. The dark and pure believer in the soul state can only be transformed into a juvenile angel. You can turn a region into your kingdom of death. Unlocking conditions. Third form, Sacred Weapon Sword Staff Suit. Holy Staff. The power and effect of all types of magic are increased by 10 times, and spells above level 3 can be cast without loss. The power and effect of your exclusive magic spells are increased by 25 times. Unlocking conditions. Sacred Sword. The host's strength is increased 20 times in all aspects, with the characteristics of holiness, resurrection, transformation, and protection. You can use the sacred domain, unlimited resurrection, transformation, and protect the kind and pure girl to become your saint. Unlocking conditions. Sacred Suit. The host's strength is increased by 100 times, and the power and effects of all types of magic are increased by 100 times. Your exclusive magic spells are increased by 300 times. You can transform the pure girls who believe in you, whether good or dark, into your own angels of light or darkness. You can transform your own light or dark angel into a holy angel. You can create your own divine kingdom. Unlocking conditions. The fourth form, the Tool of Creation. God created the world in 7 days corresponding to 7 forms. Fifth form, World-Destroying Weapon Unknown. Sixth form, Unknowns. Seventh form, Unknown. Eighth form, Unknowns. Ninth form, Unknowns. 10th form, Unknowns. Final form, Unknowns. Form unknown. After several hours, the train slowed and finally stopped. Passengers pushed and shoved and rushed to the door. Carlos also took Qiu Zhang's little hand and jumped to a small, dark platform. Pinello separated from the two before getting out of the car and is now supposed to be with the Ravenclaw sophomore. Carlos was still very relieved, and he gave Penelope the task of finding some beautiful girls for him. There must be a lot of beautiful girls in the school, but Carlos doesn't believe that the whole school only has the beautiful girls that appear on the Harry Potter TV series. This is simply impossible. By the way, Anna was arranged by him to go to the wizarding world to recruit beautiful witches early this morning. This kind of thing only Carlos Lucifer, who should be a saint and live in a holy name, has the confidence to do so. Anyone else who dared to do this would have been attacked by the wizarding world when everyone was afraid of Lucifer's name. Carlos feels that the whole world is about to become his back garden. He is now the only son of God in the world, and he is so willful. Time passed quickly as Carlos enjoyed Zhang Qiu's soft, boneless hands. Soon, an extraordinarily tall figure appeared in the surrounding crowd, holding a lamp and swinging it above the heads of the students. First-year students. First-year students, come over here. It looked like it should be the half-blood giant Hagrid. The freshmen followed this figure, slipping and stumbling, as if going downhill along a steep and narrow path. Carlos held Qiu Zhang's little hand tightly along the way. When you turn this corner, you will soon see Hogwarts for the first time. The tall figure turned around and shouted. Then a black lake suddenly opened up at the end of the path. On the high hillside on the other side of the lake stood a towering castle. There were many spears on the castle and windows twinkled under the stars. Each boat cannot exceed 4 people, Hagrid said loudly, pointing to a group of small boats moored on the shore. Carlos pulled Qiu Zhang and jumped into the boat, and another boy and a girl followed. Are you all on board? Hagrid shouted, taking a boat each by himself. That's good, to move on. A group of small boats immediately sailed forward across the mirror-flat lake. My name is Eddie Gami, hello. That boy was very generous, and he introduced himself shortly after boarding the boat. Marietta Akmo. The girl with freckles on her face also introduced her. Mo Wen began to recall the original work, where there were 2 dragons with only names. But Marietta seemed to be the one who tipped off the professor, which ultimately led to the breakup of Qiu Zhang and Harry's relationship. But Carlos didn't care. His methods were much higher than Harry in the original book. Moreover, Qiu Zhang could come after him even though he knew that he had opened a large harem. Therefore, Carlos was not afraid that Qiu Zhang would escape his grasp. On the contrary, the more women he collected, the more Qiu Zhang felt at ease with him. You must know that you are the divine son, the descendant of Lucifer. If one day he, Carlos, stops having a harem and collecting women, then no one in the world can stay by his side. He would also include her, because Qiu Zhang now wants Carlos to die and open a harem. Looking at Marietta Akmo in front of him, he kept signaling to Carlos that you could get her at any time. Carlos looked at Qiu Zhang, constantly urging him to marry the girl in front of him, and he looked like he wished he could snatch the angry Qiu Zhang right now. Carlos really doubted that this was a woman's sixth sense, finding a way to take revenge even for things that would never happen. Qiu Zhang kept making little moves towards Carlos. Seeing that the 2 of them were still waiting for her reply, she quickly said embarrassedly, "Sorry, my name is Qiu Zhang." "My name is Carlos Lucifer." Carlos said his name with contempt, but everyone in the wizarding world still did this. Marietta's eyes lit up when she heard Carlos' name. Who in this Europe has never heard of the divine name of Lucifer, and in front of them is the divine son? Just when she was about to perform the sacred rites towards Carlos with Eddie Gami, she opened her mouth to say something. But they heard Hagrid shout, "Lower your head." They were already approaching the cliff of the castle. Everyone lowered their heads as the boat carried them through the ivy curtain covering the face of the cliff to the hidden open entrance. They seemed to have followed a dark tunnel underground to the castle, and finally arrived at a place similar to an underground dock. Then they climbed onto a ground of gravel and pebbles and arrived in front of a huge oak door. At this time, a tall black-haired witch wearing an emerald green robe was standing in front of the door. She kept looking for her in the crowd and saw Carlos. He breathed a sigh of relief, as long as nothing went wrong with the Holy Sun, and then he said to Hagrid easily, "Hagrid, leave the new student to me to pick him up." "Okay, Professor." Hagrid obviously didn't know the point, so he just agreed lightly. "This is Professor McGonagall, our vice headmistress. She wrote our admission letter. She is also the head of Gryffindor House and teaches transfiguration." Carlos introduced Qiu Zhang in a low voice, and the latter nodded and listened carefully. After arriving at Hogwarts, Qiu Zhang became obviously nervous and listened carefully to Carlos' introduction. But what Carlos regretted was that once he came to a place with lights, Qiu Zhang became shy and did not dare to hold his hand. Above, Professor McGonagall was introducing the details of the branching. After hearing this, Qiu Zhang suddenly asked in a low voice, "Carlos, which house do you think we will be assigned to?" Carlos just smiled and said firmly, "You and I will be assigned to Ravenclaw Academy." "Why?" Qiu Zhang asked in confusion. "Because it's destined." Qiu Zhang pinched Carlos angrily, a trick that girls can do regardless of age. "I'm serious, please stop making trouble." Carlos suddenly straightened his face, looked at Qiu Zhang seriously and said, "I'm serious. A smart and beautiful girl like you will definitely be assigned to Ravenclaw, and I plan to be with you." The door to the hall was open at this time, and the blazing torch reflected Carlos's black pupils, making him look particularly charming at this time. Looking at this scene infatuatedly, Qiu Zhang was stunned for a moment. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from behind Carlos. "His Royal Highness Carlos Lucifer, the sorting ceremony is about to take place now. I personally think your confession should be left to next time." However, Professor McGonagall appeared behind the 2 of them at some unknown time. After listening to her words, the people around burst into laughter. Qiu Zhang blushed and lowered her head in a hurry, but Carlos was unmoved. Professor McGonagall looked angry because of what happened on the train. Carlos said with a smile, "Okay, Professor, I will remember it." The crowd instantly fell silent when they heard the words His Highness Carlos Lucifer. Whether it's someone who understands the sacred name of Lucifer or a new muggle who doesn't understand anything. Together, led by Minerva McGonagall and other wizards, they performed a sacred ritual towards Carlos. Those who knew nothing were completely curious about Carlos's identity and kept asking people around him. Professor McGonagall saw that the scene had become a mess and quickly clapped his hands forcefully. Say loudly, "Please be quiet and follow the queue into the hall like me." Under Professor McGonagall's greeting, the freshmen lined up and walked into the hall. The Hall of Hogwarts is large and full of the atmosphere of the times, but it does not look very shabby but has a quaint feeling. The ceiling of the hall faithfully displays the weather outside. Looking up at the stars on the ceiling, it feels like you are outside. Students from other classes in the college were seated around 4 long tables, above which thousands of candles were floating in the air, lighting up the dining room. 4 tables were set with gleaming gold plates and goblets. There is another long table on the table at the top of the restaurant, which is where the teachers sit. When Carlos entered the hall, he first saw the row of seats at the front of the hall. Carlos saw Dumbledore in the middle and Dumbledore looked at him. Carlos nodded to Dumbledore and Dumbledore nodded back to him with a smile. Professor McGonagall took the first years there and asked them to line up in a row facing the entire upper class. Professor McGonagall gently placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first-year students and placed a pointed wizard's hat on it. The hat was patched, worn, and dirty. The hat twisted in vain, and a wide crack opened in the brim. Like a mouth, the hat began to sing. "You may not think I'm pretty, but don't judge a book by its appearance. If I find a hat prettier than mine, I can eat myself. No thought hidden in your mind can escape the magic hat's golden eyes. Try it on, and I will tell you which college you should be assigned to. Come wear me. Don't be afraid, don't panic. You are absolutely safe in my hands because I am a thinking magic hat." Carlos didn't even listen to what song the hat was singing. Instead, he looked at the hat carefully. Psychic spells. Detect magic. In Carlos's eyes, the aura contained in this old hat was astonishing. Even more powerful than Penello's wand that had been modified and enchanted by himself. Should it be said that it was worthy of being a Gryffindor's hat? It had been circulated for so long. Sure enough, Dong Zai has some skills, but now he is more concerned about whether this hat will detect his secret. After all, it is a hat that can detect thoughts. Mo Wen thought about it and thought it wouldn't be the case. If they could detect everything, those pureblood nobles would not allow the school to use this kind of East-West branch. It is estimated that this hat is similar to the level 2 detection of thoughts. It may be more powerful and can detect a person's personality, but the things hidden in the heart of a person should not be discovered. After the magic hat finished singing, the audience burst into applause. "Whoever's name I call now will put on his hat, sit on the stool, and wait for the branch." Professor McGonagall said to all the freshmen. She started calling names. Marca Belby, Ravenclaw. The first boy whose name was read out was assigned to Ravenclaw, and the table with the most girls suddenly burst into warm applause. Michael Cornet. Gryffindor. Miles Bleacher. Slytherin. Zedigami. Ravenclaw. Every time a person's name was called, the applause in the hall never stopped. Qiu Zhang. Qiu Zhang, who was behind Carlos, suddenly became nervous. He immediately turned around and whispered, "Don't worry, I will go to Ravenclaw to find you." Seeing Carlos's serious expression, Qiu Zhang laughed out loud and relaxed. Then he smiled and said, "Okay, I'll wait for you at Ravenclaw." Then there was a loud voice, "Ravenclaw." Qiu Zhang ran briskly to the long table of Ravenclaw and chatted with Penello and a senior sister. Seeing Carlos looking over, he even moved to give him a playful wink. Carlos smiled proudly at this, and then saw Diggory's fearful and resentful eyes on the Hufflepuff table, and Carlos smiled even happier. It's hard for his enemies, so of course he will feel the pain, knowing that Carlos will never become a virgin in this life. Even if you help others, it will only be for a fee. It can be a beautiful woman, money, or faith. But is it possible for him to help others for free or even spare his enemies? Carlos has a lot of people to protect. He is not that mentally retarded at all, and the Diggory in front of him has been disabled for the rest of his life and is isolated by everyone. He just needs to watch silently as Diggory in front of him gradually falls into despair. No one will dare to help him at all. Carlos got the thought, and then withdrew his gaze, a clown who had already determined a tragic ending. Carlos Lucifer didn't take it to heart at all, and then withdrew his gaze. Not caring at all under his gaze, Cedric Diggory was so frightened that he cried. The number of people decreased one by one, and finally it was Carlos Lucifer. The surrounding discussion was like pressing the pause button, and everyone stood up from the tables and stools. Apparently everyone has heard of Carlos Lucifer. I saw that Carlos was not nervous at all under the gaze of everyone and walked up with brisk steps. The pair of eyes that were as dark as the deepest night sky were particularly charming, and combined with the temperament of an ancient nobleman, they were particularly eye-catching. An appraisal spell was thrown on the sorting hat, and a message appeared in Carlos's mind. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Sorting Hat, a sublegendary item in the low-level magical world. Effect can easily distinguish personal personality and obtain shallow thoughts. Heaving a sigh of relief, Mowen had an accident just as he approached the sorting hat. 4 illusory figures appeared around the sorting hat, and together they performed a perfect sacred ceremony towards him. The current principal, Dumbledore, said excitedly, "These are the 4 creations of the school." The situation did not make Dumbledore happy at all. Someone had already taken his place. Everyone followed and said loudly, Vice Principal Minerva, to meet Carlos with the sacred etiquette. Only then did all the teachers and students react, and together they performed the sacred etiquette of meeting Carlos Lucifer. The 4 illusory figures nodded with satisfaction and looked at Carlos, who silently accepted the gift. Kaifeng uttered a sacred chant, an oath that only a truly holy son could accept. "You are the son of the divine, a saint walking on earth. You are the son of the devil, and you are the most powerful. Those of us who are born with humble lives cannot offend, and we dare not offend. You will eventually become holy, and the filthy things on our earth will eventually become holy because of you, become gods because of you, and achieve endless legends because of you. On behalf of all the teachers and students of Hogwarts, we pay tribute to you and offer our devotion to you. May you eventually become that divine person. On behalf of Hogwarts, we welcome you, Holy Son. May your glory last as long as the stars." In the end, the 4 illusory figures turned towards the sorting hat again and disappeared under the gaze of everyone. Carlos was quite proud of this scene, under the watchful eyes of all the Ravenclaw's lounge is at the top of Ravenclaw Tower. It is an old bare wooden board with an eagle-shaped bronze door knocker that asks questions. You can enter after you answer the correct answer. The common room is a large circular room with elegant arched windows on the wall and hung with blue and bronze silks. Ravenclaw students can see the beautiful scenery outside from the windows. The ceiling is a dome with stars on it, as well as stars on the dark blue carpet below. There are tables, chairs, bookshelves in the room, and a white marble bust of Rowena Ravenclaw in the alcove opposite the door. A door next to the statue leads to the dormitories above. Mowen is still very satisfied with these arrangements, but he is a little regretful about the second one, but Carlos agrees with this as a way to protect his own woman. As for the first one, it is a huge bonus for Carlos. The school's dormitory rules. The first one is that all the students except the prefects share a dormitory. Carlos can sleep wherever Penelo is, and it is very convenient to invite little girls to have various pleasant interactions. The second one is that the girls' common room has been enchanted, and boys cannot enter. Carlos is now making serious plans of his own. One is to become a prefect around the 3rd grade and have his own room. Otherwise, when Penelo graduates, she will not have a separate dormitory. After all, I have matured a long time ago. These 2 people and the 4 Penelo girls are doing what they love everyday love. The other is trying to crack the protective magic in the girls' dormitory, although the secondary spell invalidation barrier and occurrence avoidance detection of the spells he can invent may be of some use. But Carlos's spells are not yet proficient, and they have not entered the system ability column at all, which means they have not been fully invented yet. Secondly, he didn't dare to try it easily. If his sacred name was discovered, it would be completely ruined. Carlos was carefully pulling Qiu Zhang towards Penelo's dormitory. Never in his previous life or in this life did he drag a woman to another girl's dormitory and have S*X together. Qiu Zhang followed Carlos closely and looked at Carlos's stunningly handsome face. With the same long black hair and black pupils, Qiu Zhang's head that was so tense that it was about to smoke was raised slightly. Qiu Zhang couldn't explain how she felt about Carlos now. She put her right hand on her heart and felt carefully the heartbeat of joy. Qiu Zhang knew that she liked Carlos's temperament, his handsome appearance, and the glory of his divine son. What really makes him like is the domineering attitude that dominates the world. Those who offend him dare not speak out in front of him. Without his hand, those who offended him were taught a lesson by his holy name. The clerk in the magic weapon shop was like this. The beautiful and noble witch novel who was forced to sell herself as his maid was like this. And the unlucky Cedric Diggory I met today was like this. The most important thing is that the four principles from hundreds of years ago who appeared tonight sang his praises. You are the son of the divine, a saint walking on earth. You are the son of the devil, and you are the most powerful. Those of us who are born with humble lives cannot offend, and we dare not offend. Those chants are still echoing in Qiu Zhang's heart. You will eventually become holy, and the filthy things on our earth will eventually become holy because of you, become gods because of you, and achieve endless legends because of you. On behalf of all the teachers and students of Hogwarts, we pay tribute to you and offer our devotion to you. May you eventually become that divine person. On behalf of Hogwarts, we welcome you, Holy Son. May your glory last as long as the stars. Carlos knew that most of the women around him were attracted by his aura. But what does it matter to him? His identity and aura are already part of him. Carlos only wanted the glory and status brought by his divine son and the enjoyment of beautiful women. Carlos will become stronger, and his current goal is to become Harry Potter, the only god in the world. He will give his woman status, glory, and wealth, give her a divine halo, and achieve immortality with her. Just like the promise he made to Penelo and the others, it was a vow to all his women in the future. Carlos said the oath to Qiu Zhang lightly, "You are willing to tie this body to my hand. From now on, when I am the king, you will be the princess. And when I become the sacred, he will be my divine attendant, serving in the harem." Qiu Zhangji nodded and said loudly, "I am willing to hand over this time to Carlos. From now on, I will love what he loves, hurt what he hurts, like what he likes and hate what he hates. Ignore and never give up, life and death will follow." Carlos nodded with satisfaction. This was the ancient love vow passed down by their Lucifer family. For Qiu Zhang, he just liked his beauty, liked his various actions in the plot, and even remembered the smile that moved his heart. Moreover, Qiu Zhang is completely different from the one in the Harry Potter TV and movies. She is completely a beautiful oriental black girl with straight long beauty. If she had the ordinary looks like those on Harry Potter TV, Carlos wouldn't be attracted to her at all. Even Penelo, Anna and their looks are almost comparable to the two-dimensional beautiful girls in their previous lives. As usual, Snape squinted his eyes and said, "You are here to learn the precise science and rigorous craftsmanship of potion preparation. Since there's no silly wand waving here." The words were almost identical to the original, and Carlos secretly wondered if Snape used these words to scare students every year. However, I have to admit that this method is quite effective. At least some students have begun to tremble under Snape's gaze. Looking at Carlos' figure, Snape remembered that this was his first time entering the wizarding world. "I want to teach Carlos carefully about potions so that I can have a good relationship with Carlos." Snape's lips couldn't help but tilt up when he thought of this, and he said to Lucifer with a smile, "Gillies, you have to listen carefully and learn how to make medicine carefully. This is a rare assistant position of a wizard." Carlos nodded seriously, looked at Snape and asked with a smile, "Teacher Snape, what will I get if I add Narcissus root powder to mugwort infusion?" "Carlos, you will get the water of life and death," Snape replied calmly. "So teacher, where are you going to find the bezoar?" Carlos asked with a smile. "In the cow's stomach," Snape laughed too. "So teacher, the difference between Aconitum scapularis and Aconitum wolfsbane?" "Only the name makes a difference." Carlos asked questions that could only be answered by the person who actually spoke to the person refining the potion. And Snape's eyes became more and more fanatical, and he was completely convinced by Carlos. This is a great pharmaceutical genius, and others can only praise him. This is a genius who has made countless people despair. Under the protection of the sacred name, Carlos is destined to be filled with endless glory in the future. Such a monster-level potion talent may be his most basic ability. Carlos kept a faint smile on his lips as he looked at Snape's increasingly intense gaze. He knew what Snape meant, but he didn't have enough time to practice magic or pick up girls. As for asking him to learn to refine potions every day, it was simply impossible. If so, what would he do if he collected so many women? With his own woman helping him practice, Carlos just needs to lie back and enjoy it. Everyone watched as Carlos asked sharp questions one after another. Snape did not move and answered even more angrily. The robbery was really confusing. If it was Snape who made things difficult for Carlos, they would have been mentally prepared. But now it's the other way around, and Snape, who is being made things difficult for, is even happier. Could it be that Snape liked people to ask him difficult questions, or Carlos's reputation had been so bad that Snape thought he was asking questions as a teacher? However, Carlos's efforts to make things difficult for Snape were not entirely without merit. Most of the students had begun to look at Carlos with admiration, and some students had begun to admire Snape. Under the eyes of Qiu Zhang and others, Snape could no longer hold back his dignity. Turning to face the crowd, he said fiercely, If you have the ability, you can come and ask questions. If you fail, you can be my test subject for the magic potion. Boom, everyone was frightened by Snape's words and all took a step back. Some students who had ideas started to act like ostriches one by one. It seems that he is very dissatisfied with the effect he has caused, or he knows that these students will not be able to solve his problems in the future. Snape waved his hand one last time and said with a chuckle, "Ravenclaw adds 20 points. As for all of you who want extra points in the future, you can come. No points will be deducted if you fail, but the question asked is false or not about potions. Key. Just drink a bottle of my potion, otherwise 50 points will be deducted. You have this little cleverness, okay? Why don't you write down all of this?" Then came the actual operation. In order to save his own face, Snape almost put his long face into Carlo's crucible and kept telling Carlos about the dark history of various students. In order to distract Carlos and successfully interfere with his operation, he used all kinds of tricks. Carlos completely ignored Snape's interference, despite being attacked by Snape's various dark histories of past students. Everyone in the classroom stopped, except Carlos, who was still insisting. Carlos followed his own step by step. To be honest, Carlos's potion configuration was nothing outstanding. But whether it is the medicine refining experience that the proficiency system continuously provides, or the various magic medicine experiments that these two constantly do to improve the medicine level, his accuracy is frightening. Although it is not the most outstanding configuration, it's the most accurate, just like the textbook. Snape looked at Carlos appreciatively, but as if to confirm Carlos' potion level. This was also to test Carlos' mentality when refining the potion, and Snape completely let himself go. Even the dark history of other teachers was revealed by him, and the other students in the classroom could only hold back their laughter. After Carlos learned about this incident, he and Qiu Zhang were fine except that it belonged to his woman. Other teachers will talk to these students, although the method is very rough to cleanse their memories. Well, maybe Snape himself would take the lid. He got into trouble this time and could only violently attack many students. The next day was a clear, breezy day. On the spacious lawn, Ravenclaw students were already there, and 20 broomsticks were neatly arranged on the ground. The flying teacher, Mrs. Hooch, has short gray hair, yellow eyes, and is quite neat. "Okay, what are you all waiting for?" she snapped. "Everyone stand next to a broomstick. Quick, hurry up." Carlos glanced down at his broomstick. It was old and worn, with branches poking it all over the place. "Come out, maybe you should customize a flying broomstick. It will be easier for you to use the system to include it in the weapon list." He didn't shout stupidly like others. "Stand up." Instead, he wrapped the entire broom with telekinesis that had reached level 4, and he had the broom in his hand at once. It must be said that he had already used his telekinesis as he pleased. Qiu Zhang on the side looked dumbfounded. After she shouted, the broom immediately jumped into her hand. She was a little happy, but she didn't expect that Carlos jumped into it automatically without doing anything. Is the gap really that big? Qiu Zhang looked around and breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that most people were not as good as her. Eddie was even hit on the nose by a broom. "What a perverted guy, what else can't he do?" she muttered in a low voice. Then Mrs. Hooch showed them how to get on a broom without sliding off their heads. She walked around the team, correcting their hand grips, and then at her whistle everyone flew into the air. Hovering in the air, Carlos narrowed his eyes slightly. I have to say that the digital body is still good, although on the surface he also looks like flesh and blood. But his attributes are far beyond those of ordinary adults, and even have a somewhat inhuman flavor. His superb agility makes his balance unprecedentedly perfect, and his amazing strength allows him to control a broom as well as playing. Although I don't know how talented he is at playing Quidditch, he should be pretty good. The only remaining question is how to join the Quidditch team. In the original book, Harry received Neville's memory ball and was selected for the team by Professor McGonagall. I'm afraid he can't do this. Firstly, Professor Flitwick may not be watching here, and secondly, he doesn't have one either. A chance to shine. But looking at his classmates flying crookedly in the air, Carlos felt that he was not without a chance. Eddie, who was struggling to control his broom in the air, felt himself dizzy for a moment, and he couldn't help but let go of the broom. It happened that a strong gust of wind blew over at this time, and Eddie accidentally slipped off the broom and fell straight down. Ah, several girls screamed when they saw this situation, but Carlos, who was near Eddie, suddenly rushed over, dived quickly, and pierced the ground like a sharp arrow, and then stretched out his arms to pick Eddie up when he was less than 1 foot away from the ground. Then the adjusting broom slid against the grass for a short distance and stopped. Wow. This time another girl shouted, but this time they looked at Carlos with starry eyes. Carlos sat quietly on the broom, his pure black hair fluttering in the wind. He held Eddie in one hand and controlled the broom with the other. His expression was serious and serious. He was so handsome. Putting Eddie down, the latter was holding his chest and mouth in shock. "Are you okay?" Carlos asked calmly. "It's okay, Carlos, thank you." Eddie took a few deep breaths before saying gratefully. To be honest, it has always been difficult for people to get close to Carlos because of his aristocratic temperament. Even boys from Ravenclaw such as Eddie and Marka Belby thought so. But after being rescued this time, Eddie inevitably felt that Mo Wen was very kind. Maybe he and Marka didn't know him well enough before. Carlos would only say that you are simply overthinking, and that the many ladies who sleep with me every day are just decorations. Carlos knew that Penelo and Qiu Zhang had established his harem. He also collected various beauties from the school for him, but the most important point was written clearly. They were established for Carlos's harem, and they must not let Carlos's hobby become twisted, which is to fall in love with boys. Otherwise, Penelo and Qiu Zhang would personally take action and execute the boy who approached Carlos. Because Carlos only likes women, but they are the ultimate treasure for the rise of women. Every beautiful woman who joins Carlos's harem must be exposed in front of the entire harem club. The garbage that distorts Carlos' hobbies must not be allowed to survive for a second. Carlos was bored, thinking about Penelo and Qiu Zhanggao's rules, and was speechless. He has only liked women in his life. Who would like to be gay? It is basically smearing his character. Mrs. Hooch also flew over at this time, carefully checked Eddie's body, and after confirming that there was nothing serious about him, she said to Carlos, "Well done, Mr. Carlos." Ravenclaw added 10 points. During dinner, word spread throughout the school that Ravenclaw's Gurus had dived 50 feet to save a classmate from less than a foot off the ground. During lunch the next day, Professor Flitwick and a tall boy found Carlos. "Carlos, this is Wee's demand from 6th grade, captain of the Quidditch team," Professor Flitwick introduced. Ravenclaw students are generally academically focused, so there are very few 7th graders serving as team captains. "My name is Carlos Lucifer Modi Gullies." Carlos smiled and stretched out a hand. After Wees paid the sacred courtesy to Carlos, he indeed dared to shake hands with Carlos no matter what. Carlos knew that there was no son of God with the same status who could shake hands with him. In other words, except for his woman, he doesn't need to shake hands with anyone else at all. Because he is the son of God, his status is higher than anything else, except Dumbledore, who doesn't have to be too reserved because he is the headmaster. But the old legend in the wizarding world tried his best not to provoke him. Carlos doesn't expect to find Dumbledore, he just wants to enjoy this world. That is to say, just relax and pick up girls and leave even the training to your own woman. His skills can be upgraded and replaced. Master and Servant Level 2, 13/100. You are your own maid and the master of many beautiful women after practicing double cultivation with you. Effect permanent, increased charm, improved luck. Beautiful, the initial favorability of a woman towards you is generally increased, and you can obtain 2 skills for each of your own maids and women. Your maids and women can also obtain 2 skills from you, and the skills are acquired immediately. Beauty Female Collector Level 2, 13/50. You are the prince and collector in the hearts of many beautiful women. Effect permanent, increased charm, increased luck. Beautiful women have a great initial impression of you, the amplitude is increased. And your woman has an additional 1/1 chance of perfect and undamaged resurrection. Refreshed once every 24 hours. Carlos was still distracted, but Weiss was already curious about what happened yesterday and listened carefully. "I heard that you dived 50 feet to catch Eddie yesterday. Your skills are really good. Do you want to join the team? I think you will definitely be the best chaser. Of course, you may also be a seeker, but that position is already occupied, so it may be a bit troublesome." Carlos is just happy. If he doesn't want to join the team, why did he bother to use dizziness and wind-making techniques to get Eddie off yesterday? In fact, Carlos originally wanted to get a pretty girl off. Let's find another hero to save the beauty, but considering that this beauty will join his harem in the future. This will have the effect that he likes heroes to save beauties, so he gives up, not because he pities the pretty girl. But since he completed the hero's rescue of the beauty this time, he won't want to play anymore. There are countless beauty-saving plots waiting for him every day, and the girl from this school will do this for him. Moreover, Qiu Zhang also inherited his telepathy. If he deliberately found a hero to save the beauty, he suspected that Qiu Zhang and Penelo would take the lead in making various tricks. By then his life will have a lot of fun, including all kinds of big lotteries. Carlos likes this kind of peaceful life, so he chose Eddie. Now that Flitwick and the captain of the Quidditch team came to visit, how could he refuse? However, he still looked at Professor Flitwick awkwardly and then said, I really want to join the team and contribute to the Quidditch Cup, but I want to join the team through special privileges. And once it seems that seniors are not allowed to join the team, will this cause trouble for you, the professor? Professor Flitwick smiled and said, "It's okay, I'll go tell Professor Dumbledore and he will agree. Slytherin has been dominating the Quidditch Cup since Charlie left. He would be very happy if there was a replacement, and Harry Potter will enter school next year. If he had inherited his father's talent, he might have joined the team as a freshman. Dumbledore should take this into consideration, so it's not a big problem, but little Modi, you have to work hard too. Should I say that he is worthy of being the Dean of Ravenclaw, who is famous for his wisdom? He sees things thoroughly. And he said this in front of me. Is he trying to express his closeness without leaving any trace?" Thinking of this, Carlos smiled and said, "Don't worry, this year's Quidditch Cup will definitely be ours." Seeing the confident Carlos, Professor Flitwick was also happy. "Then I'll wait for your good news." And Weiss also said to Carlos, "Come to the stadium on Wednesday and I will introduce the players to you." Then the two left together. Carlos walked back to the dining table alone. Qiu Zhang, who was eating next to him, asked, "What does Professor Flitwick want from you?" "Well, I'm going to join the Quidditch team, probably as a chaser." "What?" Qiu Zhang looked at Mo Wen with bright eyes. "Aren't you kidding? Didn't you say that the Quidditch team doesn't recruit first-year students?" "No, you're such a good flyer. It's right for Professor Flitwick to be interested. It will be no problem with him." "Oh, I really envy you. I really want to join the Quidditch team." But it's not like there's nothing worth noting about him. Roger Davis captained a few years later in the original novel. In the original work, Fleur's dance partner seemed to have a hint of respect and hostility towards him in his eyes. Carlos estimated that he shared his name of Lucifer, and his hostility was because he was afraid that his appearance would affect his future status. There is also the Seeker, who is already in his 6th year. If nothing else goes wrong, he should quit next semester. After all, few Ravenclaw players can still play before facing the final exam. Okay, that's it for the introduction. Carlos, now let everyone see your strength. You first do a few turns and accelerations, and then I ask Riley and the others to cooperate and see. Don't let us down, look forward to. Wisdeman looked at Carlos and said with a smile. Carlos didn't care. He took out the silver broom in his hand and stepped up. It shot into the sky like a sharp arrow, quickly shuttled between the goalposts and flew up and down over the court. Almost everyone present, just a silvery white light and shadow can be seen, and the speed is too fast. Wonderful. Weiss cheered loudly and then winked at Riley and Genbo. The two immediately understood, picked up the quaffle and flew up. "Go on," Riley yelled at Carlos and threw the quaffle in his hand. Mo Wen immediately dived and picked up the quaffle. 3 figures immediately coordinated the pass in the air. Pilling. Weiss looked at the figures flying in the air and narrowed his eyes, although the cooperation between Carlos and the team members was still a little unfamiliar. However, he has an excellent grasp of the ball's placement, the position of his teammates, and his own balance. He can pass the ball at any time and can handle all kinds of passes. His performance is better than Riley and Kyanbo. Coupled with the frightening speed, West immediately clenched his fists in excitement. Several players around him were also smiling. Even Roger, who was slightly hostile to Carlos, was smiling. After all, no one wanted to win. "It's very exciting," Weiss's eyes flashed as he looked at Carlos, who fell down again. "I think no one can stop us this year. The Quidditch Cup is ours." Several other people came closer to Carlos and looked at Carlos' broom. Obviously, this broom is much stronger than the Comet series in their hands, and its speed is simply terrifying. "Carlos, what brand is this broom of yours? It's so fast." Riley asked with an envious look on his face. During the cooperation just now, he and Kyan Bo were sprinting almost the whole way. If Carlos hadn't obviously slowed down his speed, they would hardly be able to keep up. "This," Carlos raised the broom in his hand and said with a smile. "This is a specially customized driving device that I found from Nimbus Company, and then asked people from Silver Arrow Company to modify it. Silver Arrow Broomstick. Level, Elite Quality Level 1, can use Universal Proficiency to evolve. Category, the fastest flying broomstick in the world. The result of a collaboration between the anti-human noble phantasm Nimbus Company and the defunct Silver Arrow Company. The broom in Carlos's hand can be said to be the prototype of the Firebolt 4 years later. It is far faster than the Firebolt, but because of this amazing speed, it has big problems with balance and control. Ordinary people could barely turn with this broom, so Nimbus had to reinvent it again and again, but could never solve the problem. Carlos obtained the broom through his connections and then found employees of the defunct Silver Arrow Company to modify it. But even if the situation is slightly reversed, no one can control this broom. At least in a venue as large as the arena, no one can turn freely. In response to this, Nimbus Company almost immediately announced that it would abandon this type of broom. On this basis, it carried out deceleration processing and developed a series of fire crossbow products, and this one, the prototype broomstick, was left to Carlos. Carlos was overjoyed to get this broom. A broom that was uncontrollable for most people was not a problem for him. With far superior strength and agility than ordinary people, coupled with the corresponding controllability after digitization, he can control this broom with almost fingertips, at least not inferior to those of Quidditch masters controlling ordinary brooms. Listening to Carlo's introduction, several people suddenly looked envious that they could get custom-made brooms from Nimbus Company. The Carlos family is indeed a family of divine blood that is famous throughout the world. As long as Ming is wealthy, everyone must respect the gods and ancestors of his family, thinking that although they are also from a wizard family, in the end they are just a family of mortals. The Lucifer family has been passed down for thousands of years and can almost be called a witness to history. Not to mention the sacred bloodline, the connections accumulated over thousands of years. They suspected that if the Holy See had not been monitoring the Carlos family, all of Europe would have become the territory of the Lucifer family. Thinking of this, Weiss and the others quickly adjusted their mood and began to discuss future tactics. After all, if they didn't know how to use such a fast speed, they would not be Ravenclaw, who is famous for their wisdom. Fast forward to November and the Quidditch season begins. After several weeks of training, Saturday was Carlos's first match, a match between Ravenclaw and Slytherin. If the Ravenclaw team wins, their ranking in the College Cup will be promoted to first place, so the whole college is looking forward to this game. The news that Carlos was a chaser as a first-year freshman also spread throughout the school. After all, for a celebrity like him, running to the training ground every day was too conspicuous. However, the Ravenclaw team did not intend to hide it from the beginning. This is not a bunch of brainless guys like Gryffindor, who can a team from an academy hide as long as they train together. Of course, there are mixed reviews from outsiders about Carlos, the school's youngest chaser in a century. Some think he will perform well, help Ravenclaw win the championship in one fell swoop. All the girls and some boys hold this view. The other part of the boys who were jealous of Carlos thought he was going to get a good lesson from the Slytherins. What Carlos did was really a pity. Except for most of the drama beauties, the beauties in the entire school were among the 4 major colleges. Basically, they all became Carlos's little wives, especially Slytherin, who fell the fastest. This makes all the boys in the school unable to find a girlfriend, and they can only insist on this conclusion. Otherwise, they are afraid of the consequences of getting Carlos. After all, if they offend him, they will either be beaten to death by others or have their lifespan shortened by decades by the legendary Lucifer. Cedric Diggory, who offended Carlos last time, is now isolated from everyone in the school. All the girls in the school despised him, and the boys either bullied him or stayed away from him. Even the captain of his Quidditch team was overthrown by everyone that day. That day, the new captain also called the players together and brought Cedric Diggory's smelly shit in front of him. Carlos didn't want to worry about these things anymore, otherwise he would go through a semester of exchanges. The students in the entire school, especially the girls, are no longer afraid of Carlos. After all, Carlos basically had that kind of relationship with the beauties in school, and he couldn't be tough at all. And Carlos really didn't care about the Quidditch team. At this time, he was busy dealing with another matter. On a huge tapestry in front of him, an ugly monster was beating a villain with a big stick. The scene looked a little cruel, but also a little funny. Carlos calmly walked back and forth to the opposite wall 3 times, thinking quietly in his mind, I want to go back to a place I am familiar with, I want to go back to a home I am familiar with, and I want to go to a place where I can relax and rest. After going back and forth 3 times, a very familiar door appeared in front of Carlos. It was different from the medieval European decoration of the castle and had a somewhat modern style. Behind the door was a place that was incompatible with magic, a place that left Elaine stunned and in disbelief. Lots of seats, pink and purple bar, pure white piano in the center, simple modern decoration style, walls painted in light blue. This is Elaine. No, this is the place where Carlos used to work. He spent his savings to run a music restaurant with his friends. You can't find it in the original world, because this place was destroyed by a fire long ago, and that fire burned away partners, property, and dreams. It seems that I want to be alone here, Carlos said sadly. After gently arranging the clothes on his body, he was ready. Carlos stepped lightly and walked back and forth here. There was no one else in the entire restaurant, but everything was placed where she remembered it, and the piano also had a familiar feel. All supplies are available, and there are even technological products such as cash registers, mobile phones, and juice machines. Although they are not usable, they are just fake. Carlos walked into the employee lounge. There were ridiculous graffiti with emojis on the bulletin board, which was left by a working girl. Carlos opened the door to his boss's office and dug out a large stack of music scores, an income and expenditure book, a few RMB and copper coins, and cigarettes. There is a photo on the wall, taken on opening day with Carlos and his partners putting their arms around each other. Carlos looked at the male and female portraits of the two attributes on the photo, and tears fell down involuntarily. She fell to her knees and choked silently. It took a while before she regained her composure. The wine bottles and refrigerator were empty, but that didn't matter. Carlos drank a lot of wine from his body and lost everything he had in his previous life. Carlos just wants to get drunk, forget all this, and relax. Then work hard to improve your own strength until you become the master of this world. Then go back to the past time, change everything, and rule the familiar world. Carlos's ambition is burning brightly, and his faith and goals have never been clearer. He would have to go back to Penelo's dormitory later since he didn't have many appointments. After thinking about it, he put down his drink and walked out of the place. Ding, the host gets the first mouth from XXX Senior Sister and is rewarded with 1,000 points of universal proficiency. Ding, the host has obtained the first blood of Senior Sister XXX and will be rewarded with 10,000 points of universal proficiency. Ding, the host gets XXX Schoolgirl's first mouth and is rewarded with 1,000 points of universal proficiency. Ding, the host has obtained the first blood of XXX Schoolgirl and will be rewarded with 10,000 points of universal proficiency. At 11 o'clock the next day, it seemed that all the teachers and students of the school came to the stands around the Quidditch pitch. Most of the girls came with small flags with Carlos' name on them, and voices calling Carlos could be heard from time to time in the crowd. Meanwhile, in the locker room, Carlos and the rest of the team were gathering in their blue and bronze uniforms. Wisdom looked at everyone and said, "Okay, everyone, our time is up. As long as we follow the tactics during practice, victory will be ours. I don't think everyone has forgotten the tactics we formulated before, right?" "Of course we are not those idiots from Gryffindor," Roger said easily. Everyone was happy about this. Although Ravenclaw and Gryffindor had a good relationship, the other party's mindless behavior was obviously not in line with Ravenclaw's taste. Weiss also smiled, then turned to look at Mo Wen. "How are you, Carlos? Are you nervous?" Carlos smiled faintly. "A bit. I haven't thought about what to say when I get the Quidditch Cup. I don't know how to make him look more handsome." Everyone was stunned when they heard Carlos' answer. Then Riley reacted first and patted Carlos. "You are handsome enough now. All the girls in the school are fascinated by you and want more. Be handsome." That's it. Why don't you let us who have been left without a girlfriend alive?" Kyan Bo also shouted. "Okay, you two." Weiss smiled and said, "Don't worry, Carlos, there's still a long time for you to think about your lines. Now let's win the first game." Carlos followed Weiss out of the locker room and toward the cheering stadium as they emerged. Huge cheers rang out from the Ravenclaw stands, and the voices shouting Carlos's name became louder and louder. Carlos was very happy to see Penelo, Qiu Zhang, and other beauties who had had relationships with him holding a small flag in their hands and jumping to cheer him up. Mrs. Hooch was the referee. She stood in the middle of the court holding her broomstick in her hand, waiting for the players from both sides. "Look, I want everyone to play fair and honestly," she said once the team members gathered around her. Marcus Flint, the captain of the Slytherin team and a fifth-year student, shook his head with disdain. Carlos felt that this student, who seemed to have a bit of troll blood, seemed a little unimpressed. Slytherin always used any means to win. As if he felt Carlos was watching him, Marcus opened his mouth and showed a ferocious smile to Carlos. It must be said that Carlos's handsome appearance and divine reputation made him win over most of the beautiful girls among his students. On the contrary, he is very popular among girls. This kind of thing that makes everyone become single makes many people unhappy with him, and Marcus seems to be one of them. "Please everyone ride on your broomstick." Carlos stepped onto his silver arrow. Mrs. Hooch blew her silver whistle as hard as she could. 15 broomsticks rose from the ground and rose high into the sky. The game begins. The quaffle was thrown high, and the next moment a silver lightning flashed across. Carlos grabbed the quaffle and then floated elegantly past a Slytherin player. Then there was an acceleration towards the opponent's goal, a zigzag lightning-shaped trajectory across the court, and Carlos arrived in front of the opponent's goal almost in the blink of an eye. Most of the Slytherin players barely reacted. Carlos raised the quaffle with one hand and threw the ball like a cannonball. Almost as soon as the goalkeeper reacted, the ball went through the goal. All of a sudden, the whole place became quiet. Everyone had never seen a goal scored so fast before, and they didn't react for a while. Beautiful, the ball is scored. Ravenclaw leads 10-0. Lee Jordan, who was the commentator, suddenly realized and shouted, "I have never seen such a fast goal. Carlos's speed is so terrifying. This goal is beautiful. I thought he was a complete academic wizard, but I didn't expect him to be a big shot among the practical wizards." Lee Jordan's compliments seemed to ignite an oil drum. The audience suddenly erupted, and an astonishing cheer suddenly erupted from the Ravenclaw stands. All Ravenclaw students jumped to their feet, and most students from other houses also clapped. Of course, the Slytherin girls clapped excitedly, while the boys' faces were ashen. All the female students raised their fists at Lee Jordan, obviously dissatisfied with the other party's comment that Carlos was an academic wizard. The game restarted soon, but it was clear that the Slytherin team was in a bad state due to Carlos's ball just now. The ball was intercepted by Riley after only a moment of effort, and then passed to Carlos's hands. There was another burst of shouting at the scene. Carlos took a deep breath, then dived and rushed towards the ground. The player on the opposite side who was about to intercept Carlos lost Carlos in the blink of an eye. Carlos rushed towards the ground like a cannonball, and then suddenly lifted up only a few feet from the ground. A large right angle appeared in the eyes of the audience. With just this simple action, after Carlos returned to his original height, there was only one defender and goalkeeper left in front of him. Shaking his left and right shoulders, Carlos just made a fake move and passed the defender. His speed was too fast. He just made the player pause with one movement and then rushed over. Facing the goalkeeper who rushed towards him, Carlos easily changed direction and threw the ball into the goal. The audience cheered again, and Carlos flew half a circle around the court with all the girls screaming at him. Marcus gritted his teeth and yelled, "Attack!" Under his command, the Slytherin players rushed towards Ravenclaw's goal. Unfortunately, just after a long pass, Carlos caught up from behind at a speed that was nearly twice as fast as the receiving player, grabbed the ball in advance, and then rushed toward the opponent's goal. The poor Slytherin players couldn't keep up with Mowen's speed, and Carlos easily beat the goalkeeper and scored another goal. In the blink of an eye, the Ravenclaw team scored more than a dozen goals, and the score became 130-0. The Slytherin team was almost blinded by Mowen's speed, and everyone looked at their captain at a loss. After all, Marcus was not a real troll, but he still had some brains. Under his command, the batters and seekers all rushed towards Carlos with all their might. After the batter hit a bludger hard towards Carlos, Carlos' speed finally stopped, and then he was surrounded by Slytherins. Marcus led two other chasers and the goalkeeper to surround Carlos, blocking all his directions, and looked at Marcus, who was rushing towards him with a ferocious smile. Carlos also smiled, and then the quaffle in his hand drew a wonderful arc, passed through the gap between the two defenders and reached Riley's hands. The latter easily scored the ball against the empty goal, and the score was 140. Carlos has only been practicing one skill in Ravenclaw training, and that is passing. After all, he interacts with beautiful girls every day and doesn't have much time to train. In such a short training time, it would be great if Carlos can practice one thing well. And Weiss' position for him is also very simple. That is, use speed to rush towards the opponent's goal and pass the ball if there are multiple people intercepting it. It can be said that Carlos only knows this trick, but because he is too fast, Slytherin cannot stop him at all, so this tactic is almost unsolvable. Watching the opponent score another goal, Marcus almost gritted his teeth and winked at his men. The rest of the game was chaotic, with Slytherin fouling desperately and two batters swinging their bats, regardless of whether they were hitting people or balls. The chaser didn't care about the quaffle and almost rushed towards the Ravenclaw players, almost knocking the Ravenclaw players off their brooms. Affected by this, Slytherin finally saved some of the situation, and the score became 180-20. However, they still did not stop Carlos. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that victory would still be Ravenclaw's, unless Slytherin's seeker was now possessed by Merlin and directly captured the golden snitch. At this moment, the ball was passed to Carlos' hands again, and the whole audience burst into cheers. He turned to throw away the player who was intercepting him and rushed towards the goal diagonally. There were only two people there, Marcus and the goalkeeper. Marcus also rushed out with a ferocious look. Due to the angle he faced Mowen head-on this time, Mowen shook slightly and pulled away slightly. Judging from the speed and direction of the two people, Marcus would pass him by. However, Marcus was determined. Carlos would not become Lucifer in this kind of competition. Otherwise, Carlos will have to play Quidditch in the future. For a boss like Lucifer, there should be no punishment for such serious matters on the field. Thinking of this, Marcus knew that this was the only thing he could do against Carlos. Suddenly, Marcus touched the broom and slammed into Carlos. The two of them collided head-on like two meteors, and with a bang, a loud noise suddenly sounded in the air. "Hey, are you Harry Potter?" Just as Harry looked around in confusion for help, someone greeted him. Turning around, I found a black-haired boy who I thought was extremely handsome, holding a beautiful girl with black hair. Harry Potter was a little confused. He was so famous, so it couldn't be that he was talking about himself. As if he was unsure, he turned around to search again. Giggle, Carlos the Savior seemed to know nothing. Qiu Zhang held Carlos's hand and said with a smile, "Yes." "It seems that no one who knows the Savior has found him yet," Carlos said helplessly. "Don't move, let's do this again at night." Qiu Zhang patted Carlos's hands away. Carlos smiled and nodded. He was just playing a prank, but he didn't really intend to tease his woman in front of other boys. "Harry Potter, are you the Savior? Geez." Qiu Zhang had no choice but to speak first under Carlos's constant tickling. "That I am Harry Potter, the Savior. What does it mean to take off the team eyes from my nose?" Harry Potter rubbed his eyes vigorously and asked uncertainly. Carlos waved his hand in response to Harry Potter's question. For him to know this savior who would defeat Voldemort in the future, it was a bit out of character after what he had seen. After all, his strength now far exceeds the imagination of official wizards, and he is completely capable of crushing Dumbledore. So is Harry Potter, who can only be for Voldemort, still important to him, but it's nothing unlike others such as Hagrid who don't think so. "Huh, it's Carlos." Hagrid on the side also started to speak. "Harry, Carlos is one of the best students at Hogwarts. Last year he ranked first in his age group, and he also ranked first in Quidditch. He also played great, you have to get closer to him. I just work hard and... Compared with what Harry has done before, my achievements are nothing," Carlos said hypocritically. "Of course, after all, not everyone can conquer the Dark Lord. I believe Harry will become a great wizard in the future." Hagrid patted Harry on the shoulder and said proudly, "Although Carlos is a good person in the eyes of others, he is a Ravenclaw after all, and he is also a divine son. Hagrid always has a distant consciousness in his heart. This kind of existence should live in the sky, not on earth like them. Children fighting for pasture." Now that Carlos had grown up and said, Harry Potter had the opportunity to praise Harry, and in his heart, Harry was destined to become a Gryffindor like him. However, what he said made Harry embarrassed for a while, and Qiu Zhang was also very unhappy. Although she was curious about Harry as the savior, there was no doubt that she and Carlos were husband and wife. At this time, he naturally stood on Carlos's side, hugged Carlos's arm and said, "Who said that? Carlos is the descendant of Lucifer, and we wait for Ravenclaw's sacred temple. He is destined to become a great man in the future. Wizards are destined to be more powerful than the Dark Lord and Professor Dumbledore." Qiu Zhang's words made Harry even more embarrassed. At this time, he also noticed the cute girl behind Carlos. When Qiu Zhang saw Harry looking at him, he pouted, and her beautiful appearance made Harry feel happy. He jumped and hurriedly lowered his head, but he didn't know why. Carlos smiled at this. He didn't care about Harry Potter in the first place, but now he just came to say hello. He quickly changed the subject and said, "Harry, are you here to buy things for study?" "Oh yes," Harry replied hastily, not wanting to bring up the subject again. "Do you need my help? I'm very familiar with Diagon Alley and my family has property here." Harry was about to agree, but Hagrid grabbed him and said to Carlos, "Carlos, let's wait until next time. I have to take Harry to his parents' vault to get some things." After that, Harry was taken away, pulled away. "What, Carlos, we are kind enough to help them, why is he like this? That Hagrid is really awesome." Looking at Harry and the others walking away, Qiu Zhang muttered unhappily. At this time, Carlos sighed and said, "It seems that Harry is going to enter Gryffindor Academy. Now there are some changes in our chances of winning the Academy Cup next year." "What, how did you know that Harry was going to Gryffindor Academy, Carlos?" Qiu Zhang looked at Carlos in surprise and asked. Carlos smiled and explained, "Hagrid is from Gryffindor Academy. Although he has not graduated, Harry grew up in the Muggle world. Naturally, he will be closer to the first person he comes into contact with in the wizarding world and will be more easily influenced. In addition, his parents both graduated from Gryffindor, so the one who went to Gryffindor may have a big surname. Isn't this necessarily true? Besides, even if Harry goes to Gryffindor, he won't be our opponent," Qiu Zhang said indifferently. Carlos said playfully, "The savior is destined to be different. Our principal will definitely help Harry. Although I dare not go too far because of it, Dumbledore can still do all kinds of big points and bonus points." "What? No, Professor Dumbledore probably wouldn't do this," Qiu Zhang said uncertainly. Although she was smart, she was still a child and did not think so much. Carlos, who had read the original novel, knew that in order to increase Harry's reputation, Dumbledore rewarded Gryffindor with hundreds of points. It was very difficult for Ravenclaw to win the Academy Cup, especially in the first 2 years of Harry's enrollment. But Carlos didn't care about the so-called Academy Cup. He only said this to leave some seeds in Qiu Zhang's heart. Through this sentence, he made Harry Potter a negative example. He wanted to know if Harry Potter's reputation was completely how can he be the savior if he stinks. It was up to Voldemort to do anything. Carlos never thought that Voldemort would come to him only after he found out about the interference of his so-called ancestor Lucifer, or when the backlash of his Lucifer bloodline ceased to exist. But this year's Quidditch Cup must still belong to us. Qiu Zhang was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "Yes, our Holy Lord will never lose in Quidditch, but don't forget you are going to introduce me to the team this year." "Of course, I can't forget it." In a dark alley in London, damn it, Quirrell cursed in a low voice and then dodged to avoid an oncoming curse. Originally, today he was going to Gringotts to steal the Philosopher's Stone for his great master. But I didn't expect that there was nothing in that damn vault. After I tried my best to escape, another guy came to the door. The tall, brown-haired guy not far away didn't know where he came from. He was terrifyingly powerful and used various weird magics in an endless stream. He was unable to fight back and could only flee everywhere. Shattered to pieces, another red beam of light hit Quirrell, directly shattering the wall near him. The gravel hit Quirrell's face, which was painful. B******** D go to the bone. The furious Quirrell gritted his teeth and shot a green beam of light towards the guy in front of him, but the other party easily dodged and let go of the curse. Fire is raging. A ball of flame shot out from the brown-haired man's wand and shot towards Quirrell. Clear spring-like water. A water column shot out from Quirrell's wand, collided with the flames, and evaporated into a white mist. Before Quirrell could take a breath, another rocket shot out of the thick mist. Hiding on the ground in embarrassment, Quirrell cursed secretly in his mind. The B******* D opposite him was really insidious. He was very proficient in silent spellcasting. He almost always cast a spell unexpectedly like this. If he hadn't been alert, he would have fallen into his trap. Quirrell, who had escaped the disaster, hurriedly got up from the ground and looked towards the figure flashing in the mist. It was a green curse. It seemed to be the effect of his sight. The man did not avoid it like before, but was directly hit by the curse. Successful? Quirrell's expression changed just after he shouted in surprise. The figures he hit scattered like glass, and then a voice sounded insidiously behind him, faint. Quirrell felt himself being knocked away by a huge force. His eyes went black and he fell to the ground. Mo Wen looked at Quirrell, who was lying on the ground, frowned, and with a wave of his hand, Quirrell's scarf quietly spread out, as if an invisible big hand was untying his scarf, and soon a smooth back of his head appeared, just exposed in front of Mo Wen. "Aren't you possessed yet?" Mo Wen Nunna said to herself. "That's right. In the original book, Quirrell also said that it was after the failure of this operation that he was monitored more closely by Voldemort. No wonder he is so weak. It seems that this operation to test the strength in advance has failed. Although Quirrell is good, he is only a little stronger than the average wizard. I'll just continue to wait." After saying that, he turned around and left, never seeing him fall to the ground unconscious again. A glance at Quirrell. Good days go by in a blink of an eye, and more than half of the holiday time has passed in a blink of an eye. After enjoying a sumptuous dinner that day, Carlos smiled and asked Qiu Zhang, "Qiu, we are going to study tomorrow. Do you want to go with me?" Qiu Zhang put down the spoon in his hand and suddenly felt a little depressed. He shook his head and said, "No, I have been here for a long time. My parents have already written a letter asking me to go to school quickly." "Is that so?" Carlos shook his head, thought for a moment and said, "Then why don't you go to school with me tomorrow? It will be easier to reply to your family there." Platform 9, Platform 10, your platform should be somewhere in the middle, but it seems they haven't had time to build it yet, don't you think? "Have a good semester, kid." Harry watched his uncle's family leaving with laughter, and his joyful heart sank to the bottom. The Hogwarts Express would leave in half an hour, but where was the platform? Should he pick out his magic wand and tap a few times on the ticket gate between platforms 9 and 10? Bang! Well, just when Carlos, Penelo, and Qiu Zhang were about to enter platform 9 and a quarter in order, there was a loud bang in front of them, accompanied by the man's muffled groan of pain. Carlos turned around curiously and saw that at the junction of platforms 9 and 10, the man just now stood up slowly from the ground while covering his red and swollen forehead, stretched out his hand, and groped back and forth on the solid wall tiles. His eyes were full of anxiety and confusion. At the train station, many tourists passing by stopped curiously, looking at the man who was behaving strangely and pointing in a low voice. Not far away, two men dressed as guards obviously noticed the commotion here for the first time. They took off their batons from their waists, held them in their hands in a very strange way, and started walking over the crowd. Carlos, what do we do now? Qiu Zhang stopped and hugged Carlos and said. Obviously, under the gaze of so many muggles, it was impossible for them to cross the platform one by one and reach platform 9 as originally planned. She herself turned out to be a young wizard from a muggle family. In response to Qiu Zhang's request and reaction to help this gentleman, Carlos reacted instantly. If Qiu Zhang thought of his muggle status because of this incident, Carlos born. Carlos and Qiu Zhang helped this gentleman together, not for any other reason than because they had many muggle girlfriends around them. Their Lucifer family can be said to be descendants of gods or muggles. Xiaoqiu, you can wait where you are for me to come back. I will go and help that gentleman get out of trouble first. Be obedient, Carlos said softly. Yes, I will be obedient, Carlos, hurry up. This gentleman is also worried about the child. Qiu Zhang nodded seriously and said in a coquettish tone. Carlos nodded quickly to Qiu Zhang, then turned to look at the two Ministry of Magic staff members wearing muggle uniforms. Carlos frowned and walked forward quickly. Carlos, who is a magician at Hogwarts School, knows very well what the Ministry of Magic's emergency response procedures are, the Oblivion Curse plus the Muggle Expelling Curse, which is very simple and effective. However, unless you are a master of the forgetting spell. Generally speaking, except for high-level wizards, most ordinary wizards in the world cannot accurately control the scope of the memory they erase. In other words, if I don't hurry up, the gentleman in front of me is very likely to lose that precious memory of my past forever. I borrowed it, thank you. I'm sorry, just leave it to me. Carlos squeezed into the crowd before the two Ministry of Magic staff members, took out a small wooden stick from his arms and waved it in front of the two guards, while pushing the man away from the brick wall of the platform. Pull forward, this little wizard, may I ask? My name is Carlos Lucifer. After Carlos's words fell, the scene quickly fell silent, as if the mute button had been clicked. The two guards looked at each other, nodded, put away the batons in their hands, and hung them back on their waists. Then the two of them and the tourists around them performed a sacred ritual toward Carlos that he often encountered, and it took a while before everything ended. The surrounding crowd quickly fell into deathly silence. If they made a noise in front of the Holy Sun, their family would be humiliated, and their wizarding career would be almost stained. Sir, we will take care of this, but let others disturb you. After saying that, the two turned around and, like the National Army, began to quickly disperse the crowd of onlookers, letting the stagnant flow of people disperse so that they would not disturb Carlos. The two of them stood 100 meters away by the way, like soldiers preventing the crowd around them from killing Carlos Lucifer. After all, the divine punishment discovered last year caused a clerk in his 20s and 30s to instantly age 3 times. 10 years old. Then, with the intervention of the Holy Bible Church, the clerk and all the people related to him were dealt with humanely, burned to death on a cross. I'm sorry, my lord, but I must pay tribute to you. I didn't expect, oh my God. The man followed Carlos to the side, and before he could speak, he sincerely expressed his apology. I should have thought of it earlier. Such a crowded place without such a design would definitely be a mess. I'm just a little worried about little Elena. Benitez kept shaking his head, a hint of bitterness slipping from the corner of his mouth. Carlos was not in the mood to listen now. System prompts kept ringing in his ears as this man spoke. Ding, the host discovered the Hogwarts heroine Alina Caslana on the tip of her tongue. Ding, the host discovered the Hogwarts heroine Alina Caslana on the tip of her tongue. Ding, the host discovered the Hogwarts heroine Alina Caslana on the tip of her tongue. Ding, the proficiency system is automatically processing it. The first processing result is to completely erase it. The second processing result is to completely enslave the soul and body. The third processing result is to erase the soul and make the body into an exclusive RPQ. Ding, the proficiency system is automatically processing it. The first processing result is to completely erase it. The second processing result is to completely enslave the soul and body. The third processing result is to erase the soul and make the body into an exclusive RPQ. Ding, the proficiency system is automatically processing. The first processing result is to completely erase it. The second processing result is to completely enslave the soul and body. The third processing result is to erase the soul and make the body into an exclusive RPQ. Ding, the host has chosen to process result 2, please confirm your choice. Ding, the host has chosen to process result 2, please confirm your choice. Ding, the host has chosen to process result 2, please confirm your choice. Ding, it's confirmed. When the host meets Alina Caslana, it will automatically enslave her soul and body. The slave effect is a complete slave. Ding, it's confirmed. When the host meets Alina Kaslana, it will automatically enslave her soul and body. The slave effect is a complete slave. Ding, it's confirmed. When the host meets Alina Kaslana, it will automatically enslave her soul and body. The slave effect is a complete slave. Carlos had just started to hear the system prompts. He really wanted to completely obliterate this time traveler. There was absolutely no one who wanted to take the beautiful woman as a slave just because he saw the stunning appearance of the time traveler through the system. Carlos swore that he really had no intention of interacting with this silver-haired hybrid Vila on the bed every day. He definitely had no intention of giving this heroine billions of descendants every day. He really didn't. Don't worry, your daughter should be a very sensible child. This is her first time attending Hogwarts and she is also a freshman, right? At this time, Carlos's gentle voice sounded in Benitez's ears. Although he wanted to completely enslave Alina Kaslana, he still had to give enough to the church priest who raised him. Face. Carlos is not the kind of second-generation ancestor who won't give face to this Benitez. Although Alina Kaslana will not even think about resisting him in the future, it does not prevent that chick from working hard. He doesn't want to accept a slave who is lazy in everything except what he has told him. Although beautiful women have special privileges, he cannot be forced to become a lazy slave. As a son of the blood of the gods, Carlos does not think that his current power can solve everything in this world. Even if he can in the future, it will be who knows how many years later. Before he traveled through time, he had read Hogwarts on the tip of his tongue, but he knew that Alina Kaslana had perfect leadership potential, as well as all kinds of incredible feats. What he needs to pay attention to now is whether Dumbledore and the first-generation Dark Lord have come into contact with her. If they have come into contact with the feast that caused the collapse of the Soviet Union, Dumbledore should have participated. However, Carlos learned through the church's special information channel that Hogwarts should not have been mortgaged yet, which meant that everything was still in a hurry. Alina is a very obedient child. I just made a scene just to attract you to help her. He brought 2 huge salutes. Alina can't move them at all, please. Bennett, asked and saluted Carlos. Carlos nodded and said with a smile, "We promise you, but I think if possible you should go to the station to see her off. After all, she is such a young girl." "And I can let you enter the station to see her off." Carlos paused and continued. "Thank you, my lord, but I still can't. It might be ugly and—" Benitez thought about it carefully, shook his head and his eyes darkened slightly. "I am not a wizard. I can't teach her whether it's magic or other knowledge. She should belong to the wider world." Although Benitez could not fully understand the situation in the entire magical world in 1 month, it was enough for him to roughly understand what kind of huge event Alina had planned. Whether it is the miraculous magic displayed by Dumbledore or the Vila bloodline of Alina Kaslana, either one is enough for Benitez to overturn all his decades of real-world scientific experience and the existence of knowledge. For the first time in his life, Benitez felt a sense of powerlessness and frustration. He could clearly feel that the strong body and orphanage that he was once proud of to protect the girl from wind and rain had now become shackles that blocked Alina's access to the wider world. Carlos spots the man. The most important reason is actually because she doesn't want to delay Alina Kaslana's wizarding career. After all, Vila's bloodline is destined to belong to the wizarding world, but Benitez in front of him is afraid that he will become Eva because of his life experience since childhood. The Witcher of Lena Kaslana. The most important information Carlos got was that the plot of Alina Kaslana mortgaging the title of Hogwarts to engage in a worldwide financial game did not happen at all, probably because her Luciferian bloodline attracted all of Dumbledore's attention. On the contrary, Alina Kaslana was not taken seriously by Dumbledore. It should be said that except for Dumbledore letting her join Hogwarts, all other plots did not happen at all. Carlos changed the entire plot of a novel. Thinking of this, Carlos gently patted Benitez on the shoulder. Children will eventually grow up, leave us, and go their own way. However, this does not mean that the meaning of family will disappear. Children can choose to escape, but as a parent, you have to try your best to stay with us until the last moment. After a pause, Carlos added softly, "Besides, I saw Alina Kaslana crying at the end. Do you really don't need to catch up and comfort her?" "Alina, you actually cried." Benitez's expression changed. He raised his head and looked forward, only to realize that the girl had disappeared. Of course, this is the way a senior who is about to become the second-year Hogwarts looks at a junior girl. Carlos nodded seriously. "Thank you, sir. Can you please help me? I don't want to trouble Alina, please." Benitez nodded and wanted to salute Carlos with a respectful expression. "I will tell Alina, sir. I will meet up with my classmates who are still waiting for me. See you later." Carlos nodded, said to Benitez with a smile, and then walked towards Qiu Zhang. It can only be said that Benitez was too worried about Alina and even completely forgot how difficult this beautiful time traveler was. Carlos can guarantee that even if he completely accepts the beautiful time traveler Alina Caslana as his slave, Qiu Zhang and Penilo will be deceived into becoming good sisters by her. Benitez waved his hand to Benitez, who kept saluting and thanking him from behind, walked to Qiu Zhang's side and pulled her hand away, messing up Qiu Zhang's hair in an instant. Amidst Qiu Zhang's coquettish complaints, Carlos pulled Qiu Zhang into a wall and disappeared. Harry Potter had been watching all of this curiously, because he could not find the platform 9 and a 10th at all, and when he saw everyone around him saluting the black-haired young man he had met a month ago, he felt that his illusions about the dark-haired beauty whose name he did not know were completely shattered. But when Carlos pulled Qiu Zhang against the wall, Harry Potter almost thought that he was committing suicide. It wasn't until the two of them disappeared in front of the wall that Harry Potter regained his composure. As if desperate, he closed his eyes and ran towards the wall in fear. Then, the expected impact did not happen. When he opened his eyes again, he was already on platform 9 3/4. The scarlet train stopped next to the platform, and the steam and smoke exhaled by the locomotive spread and hovered above the crowd. Harry looked around curiously and saw many little wizards like him who were carrying owls and large suitcases, and some were also carrying cats. However, these children are surrounded by adults. There were also some older students, probably senior students. They greeted each other happily and laughed together. Everyone had his own friends, unlike he was alone. I didn't expect to see a steam train in London. This may be the last one in service in the country, right? Although the driving method is probably modified by magic. After passing through the ticket gate leading to 9, Alina held the trolley and raised her head to look at the scene in front of her, tut-tutting. On the platform, the thick smoke of the steam locomotive lingered over the chattering crowd, and cats of various colors walked back and forth under people's feet. Amid the hum of the crowd and the noise of hauling heavy luggage, owls hooted in response. A crimson steam locomotive was parked next to a platform packed with passengers. A sign in the middle of the front of the car clearly read, Hogwarts Express, departing at 11 o'clock. Theoretically, if you don't count the illegal flying car in Arthur Weasley's home, this should be one of the few successful implementation cases of large-scale magical machinery in the wizarding world. And at the same time, it may also be the only one currently. However, as the origin of the first industrial revolution, Daxia had already entered the era of internal combustion engines as early as 1952. If you just look at the bright red shell, it's hard to imagine that this is an old model that has been running for 50 years. Even this Hogwarts Express took 2 terms as Minister of Magic, including 167 memory spells, and the largest record of casting hidden spells in the history of the country, before it appeared smoothly. On the track between King's Cross and Hogsmeade. According to the records in History of Magic, Alina can clearly feel that since 1945, with the rapid development of the entire non-magical world, all technological innovations in the magical world have stagnated. It seems that if you want to make any big move, you must first find a way to find out what happened that year. Alina twirled her fingers thoughtfully around the long silver hair hanging down her shoulders. If it were just because of the International Federation of Magicians secrecy law, promulgated in 1692, the speed of scientific and technological innovation in the magical world should not have suffered such a serious stagnation. There must be more far-reaching reasons behind this. Alina has no intention of initiating an industrial revolution in the magical world until she understands the undercurrents and entanglements hidden behind it. After all, the last person who did so is still imprisoned in the Tower of Nurmengard. I think you might need a little help, classmate Alina. Just when the silver-haired little lowly tried again to no avail and was about to seek help from the conductor, a gentle boy's voice came from beside her. Alina turned her head and saw Carlos, the only one in the entire train wearing a platinum wizard robe, holding Qiu Zhang's hand and standing behind him. But when Alina saw Carlos for the first time, her whole body and even her soul were constantly sounding the alarm, just when she wanted to stay away from Carlos. When the silver-haired girl in front of Carlos turned her head, the system upgrade sounded. Ding, I found out that Alina Katerina has decided to completely enslave the place. Do you want to launch the enslavement? Ding, I found out that Alina Katerina has decided to completely enslave the place. Do you want to launch the enslavement? Ding, I found out that Alina Katerina has decided to completely enslave the place. Do you want to launch the enslavement? 3 consecutive sounds of promotion resounded through Carlos's mind. The moment Carlos made his choice, everything in front of him turned into black, white, and gray. Time seemed to be frozen, space seemed to be imprisoned, and his body still standing together with Qiu Zhang. What floated up was actually his own soul. Colorful light emitted from the center of his eyebrows, and the surrounding scene quickly reversed. Everything seemed to be watching a retrograde image. In the blink of an eye, he returned to hundreds of millions of years ago, to the wild world before the birth of human civilization. The huge dinosaurs roamed the wasteland, surrounded by exotic flowers and plants. The colorful light radiated again, and Carlos saw only the reincarnation of the sun and the moon, the prosperity of all things, and returned to the original point in a few breaths. The reminder of success like Alina Katerina rang in his ears. Ding, the host has successfully enslaved Alina Katerina. She has completely become your slave. She cannot betray, cannot die, cannot arouse any hatred, and can only have goodwill. Ding, the host has successfully enslaved Alina Katerina. She has completely become your slave. She cannot betray, cannot die, cannot arouse any hatred, and can only have goodwill. Ding, the host has successfully enslaved Alina Katerina. She has completely become your slave. She cannot betray, cannot die, cannot arouse any hatred, and can only have goodwill. Carlos didn't pay much attention to the 3 prompts of the system. A brand new ability appeared in front of him: Witchcraft Magic Spell Level 112/1000. Your proficiency in spells when you release magic effect can give up magic spell gestures and cast level 1 low-level witchcraft without a wand. Carlos had a rough idea about the brand new ability that appeared in front of him and the power that just radiated from his eyebrows. Maybe your own proficiency system is your own superpower. Otherwise, the time displayed by the proficiency system can go back in the blink of an eye, instantly taking you back to the power of hundreds of millions of years. Carlos never thought that such a powerful force would serve an ordinary person. After all, this kind of power could create the world in the blink of an eye and naturally destroy the world in the blink of an eye. If the protagonist of this kind of power was not himself, Carlos would never think that he would have the opportunity to come into contact with such invincible power. After all, even gods are not worthy of the service of such invincible power. Qiu Zhang pulled Carlos' hand to tell him to stop being in a daze, because the pretty and cute face of the silver-haired girl in front of her was already pouting, and she looked at Carlos like she was looking at a heartless man. If Alina Katerina knew Qiu Zhang's thoughts, she would probably collapse. No, it should be said that she would have collapsed a long time ago. For her, today should be the day to go to Hogwarts, the magic school that only existed in novels in her previous life. This is the day when I learned to become a magician. But on this happy day, I was still dreaming about the future. Even the 2 large gift boxes that I couldn't lift had a kind person coming to help me. I should give this kind person a good person card. Alina Katerina had already prepared her words of thanks and even prepared the good guy card afterwards, but when she turned around and saw the extremely handsome black-haired boy in front of her, she felt tragic. I met a time traveler with a system. What was even more tragic was that my soul and body were completely enslaved by the soulless time traveler in front of me, according to the novel of my previous life. Alina knows that even if she commits suicide, she cannot escape the control of this black-haired boy, Keek Tilda. Everything in the system is fake, resurrection and so on are also fake. Even the inability to betray, die, or arouse any hatred, and can only have good intentions is absolutely fake. I should not have traveled through time yet. I should still be enjoying a leisurely life in my previous life. And Alina Katerina has completely shut herself off. He kept hinting that everything in front of him was fake, but when he saw that the enslaved Hunden in front of him was still in a daze, Keek Tilda, since you despise me, why did you enslave yourself and kill me? Is normal operation. Alina Katerina kept roaring in her heart, angrily scolding Carlos in front of her, and looked at Qiu Zhang, who was made uncomfortable by her eyes, and pulled Carlos. Alina's eyes looked at Carlos with more and more resentment, like a resentful woman who had been abandoned by her new husband. She would definitely make the chaotic harem unstable for this man who dared to enslave her. Carlos quickly came to his senses under Qiu Zhang's pull, but looking at Alina Katerina's increasingly resentful eyes, he felt that he had really just enslaved this hybrid villa. But what the hell is this look like that of an abandoned and resentful woman? Come on, even Qiu Zhang, who is with him every day, thinks that he has done something sorry for this silver-haired girl. Carlos couldn't stand the attack from Alina's eyes anymore. He slowly placed his right hand on the silver-haired hair of the mixed-race villa and slid it down slightly along the silver hair. He looked at Alina's frightened eyes and gently he spoke softly. Alina Katerina, I have read your novel before. I wonder if you have read mine. Carlos leaned into Alina's ear and said playfully, while constantly messing with Alina. Linna's straight silver-white hair was of no use at all. Me, the protagonist of the novel, you. After Alina heard Carlos's words, she was like a kitten with explosive hair and subconsciously wanted to refute, but she raised her head and looked directly into Carlos's eyes. In those eyes that were like black abyss, there was not a trace of deception or teasing, some were just serious. Alina swallowed the national curse that she was about to open her mouth subconsciously and couldn't look back. How could such a thing be possible? Alina almost suspected that the black-haired boy in front of her was trying to capture her, so she was actually the heroine of a Hogwarts time travel fan novel. Then my result has been determined, there is no danger to my life, but what awaits me is the secret room, the triangle horse, the pregnant patient, etc. Alina let out a sigh of relief. She was a woman in her previous life. Although she was an old maid, most of the time travelers in her previous life novels were protagonists of the long Yashin type. Since the time traveler in front of her communicated with her in Huxia, she was her fellow Huxia. Alina was completely reassured, because most of her fellow Huxia in the previous life novel were straight men. Alina has determined that as long as she obeys with peace of mind and helps this fellow villager to rise, she will not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of her life. As for having a child, Alina hopes that she and Carlos will have one soon. Once they have a child, everything will be settled. Carlos looked at Alina's relieved look and nodded to him with a gesture of approval, knowing that the matter was done and the mixtrace Vila had accepted being her slave. To be honest, Carlos really breathed a sigh of relief. After all, he knew from the novel he read in time travel that the Alina Katerina in front of him in the Hogwarts on the tip of the tongue was a living demon king, the Dark Lord. You see, in this novel by this master, it starts like the owl that delivers the letter to him in Hogwarts is made into a fat Scottish round-faced chicken, and eats at least a quarter of the owl. Then Dumbledore regarded him as the third-generation Dark Lord and signed various contracts. The next big thing he did was to mortgage the title deed of Hogwarts to Gringotts. Small things like preventing most of the Ravenclaw students from returning to their dormitories, packing up all the meat in the cafeteria, and then provoking a scuffle between Hufflepuff in the Badger Court and Slytherin in the Snake Court. The scale of the melee was the only one since the establishment of Hogwarts. The total number of people fighting on both sides exceeded 1,000, and the silver-haired heroine was still fine. She was a living female version of the long Yashin-type protagonist. Carlos was really relieved when Alina Katerina agreed. Otherwise, Carlos would be fine in the future, but his harem would be disturbed by this female version of long Yashin. He was not ready to make a small fuss every 3 days and a big fuss every week in his harem. The most important thing was that Alina Katerina in front of him was a genius in finance. The Soviet Union will disintegrate in the next 2 years. Although Carlos is well prepared, he only uses 300 to 400 million galleons to make a small fuss because he does not have top-level personnel in this area. He is in need of someone. Isn't the silver-haired girl in front of him a top talent? Well, but the kind of warm quilt that is available all year round is of all-weather nature. At least he wanted to summon this silver-haired beauty to warm his quilt. Thinking of this, Carlos looked at Alina with more and more fiery eyes. After all, super talents like the female version of Long Yashin are rare. If he doesn't have a proficiency system, Carlos even doubted that he would fall into the shadow of Alina. After all, this demon king in that fan novel seemed to cause all kinds of big things in Hogwarts. Without the incredible gold finger, Carlos would really have to find a way to go to other countries to learn magic. After all, an ordinary person cannot afford to offend this kind of female version of Long Yashin. Carlos became more and more satisfied with this silver-haired girl, but Carlos seemed to have forgotten that he had not introduced his name to Alina Katerina, and even Qiu Zhang had forgotten it. Alina has been waiting for the big boss in front of her to tell her name. After all, she and this big boss are standing here, and everyone passing by will subconsciously salute him. Although she didn't recognize this person's etiquette at all, she knew from the serious and cautious look of those who saluted that he was definitely not joking. Neither Carlos nor Qiu Zhang nodded when the people around him paid him the sacred rites. After all, he was used to the compliments received from everyone around him. The reputation Lucifer brought, coupled with the deterrent effect caused by the clerk who killed chickens in that weapons store a year ago, the benefits brought to Carlos can be said to have already completely eaten. After all, even the beautiful senior girls in the school have been eaten by him. Apart from the drama, Carlos has also developed a relationship with those drama beauties and has developed a relationship with them. He only has to eat them in his mouth. Inside. Turning to look at Alina, who was thinking about the etiquette of the people around her, Carlos stretched out his hand and rubbed his delicate face and spoke softly under Alina's resentful eyes. Alina, my name is Carlos Lucifer. As for the etiquette others show me, ignore them. This person who acts like the legendary god Lucifer is not for us. Qiu Zhang also nodded, looked at Alina's thoughtful eyes and said fondly, Alina, don't worry, if you really like this kind of etiquette, you can enjoy it as much as I do by Carlos' side. Alina nodded. After all, the system that Carlos enslaved himself to was real, so the legendary Lucifer might also be real. After all, if it was fake, the congratulatory people around him saluting like their master Carlos were too much. Leave it alone. Alina suddenly reacted. She didn't complain that Carlos had just told her his name. Instead, she accepted everything around her as a matter of course. Could this be the fault of the legendary Lucifer? Forget it, just marry Carlos from now on. After all, Alina thought helplessly, after all, she couldn't resist. What she needed to fight for was to give birth to an heir for Carlos and then compete for the position of crown prince. Tilda, Alina patted her head, what about a prince? If this be *******D Carlos really has the blood of Lucifer, then his future children will be demigods and they will fight for a woolly prince. After all, I have read so many novels in my previous life. In some novels, demigods can live forever as long as they are not killed. Even in those novels about the system of gods, demigods have a lifespan of at least 30,000 years. If I had been able to live such a long life because of becoming Carlos's woman, then I would have really made a lot of money. There is no way that Carlos's system could take me to other worlds. Alina will never forget the various treasures in the novels she has read before. It can be said that even if her husband Carlos misses them, she must remember them. The most important thing is the various pseudo-girls and Hideyoshi objects in the past life. Alina will definitely make a plan with Carlos's woman Kayan in the future. That was to ask Carlos to go to death to collect beauties, but the transvestite and Hideyoshi killed themselves. After all, fighting for his own women was his business as a girl, but not as a boy. Alina had read many novels in her previous life, and in many of them there were stories about the mistress not allowing the male protagonist to have a harem, and even the male protagonist falling in love with the transvestite and Hideyoshi. Although reading the novel was very enjoyable, I would rather my boy accept a girl to death and don't want to encounter this kind of thing. Carlos kept watching Alina's expression, watching her look like she was thinking seriously, then patted her chest, and then nodded seriously to him as if she had decided something. Carlos always felt that the things he disliked most would never happen again due to Alina's decision, but he didn't understand what it was that would never happen again. If Alina knew that Carlos' thoughts were completely unintentional, you have seen that boy who only likes beautiful women, and you will never like those transvestites again. Do you understand this? Qiu Zhang stared at Alina with constantly changing eyes, as if she was communicating something, and then nodded at the same time, as if Alina had confirmed a certain choice and accepted Alina at once. Looking at Qiu Zhang and Alina's tacit understanding, Carlos couldn't imagine at all that this was eye contact only for girls. The two were confirming whether the other party was from the same camp, and if so, they would be considered best friends. No boy can understand this kind of thing at all. This girl's unique talent is the legendary sixth sense. Alina can go Q, Carlos nodded to Alina and then said to Qiu Zhang. Carlos, my current level of shrinking spell is only level 3. I only need you to be that level. Qiu Zhang shook his head and said to Carlos. Well, okay Q, you have to work harder in the future, it's up to me. Carlos said to Qiu Zhang seriously, and before she came back he took out his staff of light. Quickly shrink. Under the pure white light, Alina's 2 heavy suitcases quickly shrunk in size. As Alina exclaimed, the 2 heavy suitcases turned into the size of 2 small jewelry boxes. Oh my god. Carlos, how many levels does your shrinking spell have? Alina said in surprise. After all, in the various novels she had read before, the shrinking spell could only make a single object smaller. As for how many items are in her suitcase, Alina can know the total number of items such as clothes, books, quilts, snacks, etc., unless Dumbledore personally takes action. Using the shrinking spell to make her 2 heavy suitcases smaller is just a joke. Even in the 7 Harry Potter series, I don't know if it was Ronald or someone else who made the suitcase smaller, and then the whole suitcase was stretched and exploded. Alina still remembers the books and clothes inside flying around, and even the clothes falling on other people's faces. What happened in the movie, but it means that even Dumbledore may not have this level of shrinking spell unless all items are each one gradually becomes smaller. Otherwise, there would be no solution at all in the original work. Carlos was very satisfied with Alina's surprised expression. He opened the list to check the level of his own reduction spell level 6 of the reduction spell 9623 1 million. You can use the magic spell without a wand quickly shrink. You can use magic to make objects smaller. Effect using the shrinking spell without a wand can shrink inanimate objects or creatures within an overall length of 100 meters, a width of 100 meters, and a height of 100 meters. You use ordinary magic without any special effects or abilities. When using a wand, the volume increases with a length of 100 meters within meters. When you use an ordinary wand without any special effects or abilities, the volume will increase. The length is 20 meters. What's wrong with Carlos? Is there something wrong with the shrinking spell? Qiu Zhang looked at Carlos' serious expression and said in a worried tone. Carlos smiled and shook his head. You and Alina followed me to find a car to sit down in. We talked as we walked. Alina pretended to be obedient and nodded, looking at Carlos who was walking in front, and waved to Qiu Zhang next to her, showing goodwill and being easy to get along with. Qiu Zhang also smiled and nodded at Alina's kindness, saying that she had received it. In her opinion, Alina in front of her was definitely a woman from Carlos, but she didn't know if she would still have to meet those in Carlos tonight. The beauty of the plot mentioned will have to wait for a while. Qiu Zhang expressed great expectations. After all, except for the new first-year student, all the other beautiful seniors in the school had an affair with Carlos. Although there were still some Carlos who had not pushed her, Qiu Zhang also knew those ones. Humans helped Carlos release a mysterious burdocks on almost every planet. It's the kind that's full of salty and slightly fishy smell. Qiu Zhang has been pulling Panilo and eating this kind of taste every day for several months. Every day, his sister is filled to the brim by Carlos. Carlos was walking in front, looking back from time to watch the interaction between Alina and Qiu Zhang. She was still very satisfied with the tacit understanding between the two of them like best friends. When Alina looked at her, Carlos nodded, saying that he would satisfy her strong curiosity and watch the crowd around him salute to him. She said softly, Alina, my shrinking spell is already at level 6. As for how this level is divided, the system will automatically tell you after you become my woman, don't worry. Alina nodded seriously, indicating that she understood. She already knew that the level Carlos mentioned might be related to the system. After all, it was in the wizarding knowledge taught by Professor McGonagall who asked her to go to school. There is no clear magic level at all, only ordinary strength divisions, junior wizards, intermediate wizards, senior wizards, top wizards, and great wizards. Dumbledore is the legendary top wizard. In Professor McGonagall's tone, it is regrettable to say that if Dumbledore was born hundreds of years ago, he would have become a great wizard with a lifespan of 500 years, instead of now because of the magic of the entire world. The pair concentration is reduced, and it can only become a top wizard for a lifespan of 15 years. The reason Alina wants to enter this magical world is also because she wants to become a great wizard with a lifespan of 500 years. The knowledge that Professor McGonagall told Alina mentioned that the current great wizard was called a formal wizard in the mythical era, which is a true formal wizard who has entered the Palace of Magic. The official wizard in the mythical era is now the great wizard. They are divided into level 1 to level 9 wizards. Those above level 9 are truth wizards, that is, the legendary wizard and demigod. The current levels of junior wizards, intermediate wizards, senior wizards, top wizards, and great wizards in the mythical era are first-class wizard apprentices, second-class wizard apprentices, third-class wizard apprentices, quasi-witches, and formal wizards. Alina really takes Carlos seriously because Carlos's system allows her to become a legendary wizard, demigod, or even a god in this world. If Carlos knew Alina's thoughts, he would have nodded in agreement, but he did not think that this low-level magical world could become a demigod, according to the Proficiency System. After he completely controls the world, he can only become a level 3 wizard at most. If he cannot control the world and break through to a level 1 official wizard, that will be the limit. He is still at the peak of the primary level 1 wizard. If he breaks through to the intermediate level 1 wizard, he will be sent to reincarnate into another relatively advanced magical world by the rules of the entire world. Carlos even suspected that if his system did not have the power to manipulate time and space, he even thought that the two new abilities given by the system were fake. Time Travel Level 0, 0100000. You can consume universal proficiency to travel to different time periods in the past and future at will, or even travel to other worlds. Time and Space Summoning Level 0, 0100000. You can use your universal proficiency to summon countless beauties from different time periods in the past and future, or even beauties from other worlds. Carlos refused these two time and space abilities. You must know that he worked hard to save millions of universal proficiency points. He did not use even 1 point, and now there are 2 big consumers of universal proficiency points. But Carlos has understood the nature of this proficiency system. This cannot be blamed on the system at all. Just because Carlos has his own superpower, the proficiency system can take him to instantly travel to hundreds of millions of years ago. You will understand when. His ability proficiency point system is through himself and his woman, constantly using various magic or life abilities to absorb the origin of the entire world to enhance the strength of him and his woman. As for the universal proficiency points obtained by those nuns, they are the origin of the world. As for the beauties in the plot, they always have tens of thousands of universal proficiency points, because they are part of the development of the entire world's plot. Before the end of the entire Harry Potter plot, their original qualities will not be reduced. If they practice double cultivation after the end of the plot, their proficiency will be almost the same as that of ordinary beauties. After all, the origins of the plot characters are not always the same. Before the plot begins, they have very few origins. After the plot begins, the origins will quickly converge on these plot characters, and after the plot ends, the origins will be returned to the world. Only in the process of plot development can you gain the most control over the origin. After Carlos absorbed most of the origins of the entire world, everything in this world will never progress. Even those scientists who exhausted their brains can no longer deduce a formula. No species can evolve, and if one is not good, they may even degrade and their previous knowledge will be gradually forgotten. But Carlos didn't care at all. As long as he and his harem were fine, who cared about those who had nothing to do with him? Carlos knew that the most powerful wizard in the world from ancient times to the present was only the peak of the late level 1 wizard. As for the wizard level in the mythical era, Dumbledore had already told him. But with the help of the system, Carlos has long determined that the so-called mythical age is those top-notch magical worlds. If he can't be ruthless and continue to plunder enough of the world's origin, then control the entire world. Carlos felt that the world might be absorbed by him and completely fall into destruction, but even if he had the help of the system, he wanted to control the world. It is also necessary to break through to the pinnacle of the first-level official wizard at least within this 100 years, which is the 0 point of the second-level wizard, in order to completely control the entire world. However, Carlos shook his head helplessly. He had expanded his harem to 489 people in the past year. This was still a dual cultivation. If not, there would be more. With the help of his girls, Carlos' strength has just broken through to the intermediate level wizard. But according to the proficiency system, his strength can already kill most wizards below late level 2 without any damage. As for why there are not all wizards below level 2, it is because some formal wizards practice curse and fate abilities, which are completely incomprehensible to him, no matter how deep his foundation is now. Carlos, can you tell me what level of wizard spell the level 6 shrinking spell is equivalent to? Elena's eyes kept rolling, and she said to Carlos with eyes that were about to have little stars popping out. Even Qiu Zhang looked at Carlos with curious eyes. She only knew that the great wizard who was unmatched in the entire wizarding world had many people in the mythical era. She was also very angry at her current strength. Carlos looked at the curious eyes of the two women and felt a little funny. He nodded under the expectant eyes of the two women and began to talk about the ability division of his own proficiency system in a serious tone. Skills from level 1 to level 3 are among the wizard's spells. That is, from first-level apprentice spells to third-level apprentice spells and then next. In the eyes of formal wizards, level 4 skills are ordinary level 1 formal spells, while level 5 skills are those extremely powerful level 1 spells. Then, level 6 is the level 2 spell released by level 2 wizards. As for the future, my current skills are only level 6 at most, and I won't know until level 7. After Carlos finished speaking, he nodded seriously and told Elena that this was what the information he got from the system said. Elena nodded thoughtfully, but Carlos's words kept echoing in her mind like thunder. She, Elena Katerina, had read countless novels before traveling through time. The system that Carlos had in front of her was also the most awesome one she knew, except for those systems with one-click 999 levels. But those systems that instantly make those protagonists invincible can also instantly make those protagonists lose everything. But Carlos's system can be a proficiency system. That is to say, Carlos' ability was upgraded to level 6 through his continuous use. This system, while improving the strength of her long Yashin-type protagonist, also allowed Carlos to absorb and digest the countless experience and skills that should be possessed by this level. In Elena's opinion, if there is any system that is the most reassuring, the system owned by the protagonist in front of her is the most reassuring system. After all, this system is completely an auxiliary training system. But why is she not so lucky to encounter the legendary system? Well, even if she is given the system, she would not dare to ask for it, unless it is an auxiliary training system like her master. After all, the strength that the host of this system improves is completely his own, not the system or others. What is more reassuring than Goldfinger, which is completely controlled by its own power and assisted in training? Carlos watched Alina and Qiu Zhang fall silent, digesting the information he gave. He was still very satisfied with these two motivated girls. He had no idea that Alina was already doubting life silently in her mind. Looking at Alina, who looked like a good girl in front of him, Carlos thought of the overall view shown in the Hogwarts on the tip of the tongue he had at a certain point. Carlos felt that there was something to be said for the analysis of the magical and non-magical worlds in this world. It is necessary for Rang to show off, otherwise Rang's harem will not even have a top female staff member. Carlos held the hands of Alina and Qiu Zhang and walked quickly through the carriages. Amidst the salutes of many people, he quickly arrived at the last carriage on the train. Yes, there is no one in this carriage, but it looks a bit messy. After all, there are very few people sitting here in this carriage. They are usually in the utility room. Even Carlos would not expect this workshop. How clean and tidy it is. Carlos looked at the messy ground, frowned and nodded to Qiu Zhang, telling her to tidy up the place. After all, he and others were nobles, and even ordinary wizards would not like to sit on the messy ground. After Qiu Zhang received Carlos's signal, she quickly took out her wand from the space backpack where the proficiency system automatically operated, and then used the magic spell on the still somewhat messy carriage. Clean it up. After this voice fell, a light blue light fell, and then the surrounding area seemed to be cleaned by invisible forces. In the blink of an eye, the entire workshop took on a new look, like the most exquisite marble floor. Must be clean and tidy, spotless. Alina has been looking at everything here with curiosity, especially the light blue light emitted when Qiu Zhang used the magic spell, which dazzled her even more, except for Professor McGonagall's transformation into a kitten. Qiu Zhang's spell was the only two kinds of magic she had seen in her 2 lifetimes. Even the technology in her previous life could not instantly make a messy workshop as clean and tidy as if it were a different place. Spotless. This is magic. Alina's eyes are more fiery than ever. This is the legendary magic. Also, she looks at Carlos beside her. Alina silently said in her heart that she had a backing. If she got close to this big boss, she would have a good life in the future. Even if she became a legendary god, she would definitely be able to do it. Anyway, Hogwarts will prepare 3 meals a day for my orphanage. Coupled with the power of my protagonist, everyone in my orphanage doesn't have to worry about it. The only thing I worry about is my protagonist. Whether you are a man enough or not, will you be able to practice double cultivation with yourself? Carlos didn't want to know Alina's little thoughts. He had already asked the 2 girls to go to the seats on the left and sit in the seats on the left, while the 2 girls silently enjoyed the various benefits given by the 2 girls. Looking at Alina, who was a little distracted, Carlos asked seriously, "Alina, can you talk about your cognitive analysis of the current magical and non-magical world? I know that you also have a prophetic view of the overall situation." Before Alina could react, Qiu Zhang was already shocked by Carlos's words. She didn't expect that this little silver-haired girl actually had a foresight of the overall situation, but she couldn't help but not believe Carlos's words. After all, in her eyes, Carlos is a descendant of the gods. He is a kind of sacred in this world. As one of his harem, Carlo has no need to lie to himself, so it is true. Qiu Zhang looked left and right at Alina. Apart from the fact that Alina's silver hair was because she had the blood of the magical creature Vila, she couldn't tell anything else. The unique charm ability of Vila was also considered. If Alina finally reacted, but was made uncomfortable by Qiu Zhang's eyes that looked like a prophet, but she still expressed her views to Carlos. After all, Carlos had read her novels and her thoughts were consistent with hers. Who is he absolutely worthy of? Otherwise she might become his real exclusive slave girl. Since humans first recognized the existence of magic, the group of wizards who control supernatural powers have indeed had advantages that ordinary people are far inferior to ordinary people in terms of accumulation of wealth, power, and fame. After all, before the explosion of technology, ordinary people most efforts are no match for a simple wave of the wizard's wand. Looking back at history, the 28 most famous pureblood families in the magic world are all wealthy families with at least 100 years of inheritance and great reputation and wealth. Such as the Gaunt family, the Longbottom family, the Potter family, etc. All of them are during that period relying on its own magical power. It gathered a lot of wealth, power, and fame. Therefore, the magical world and the Muggle world were artificially distinguished a long time ago. If you look for the reason, It is nothing more than a standard that those arrogant ancient wizards deliberately improved in order to maintain their own sense of mystery, high level of prowess. It's just a threshold. However, with the passage of time, the positions of the two worlds have inadvertently been exchanged. You know magic is not omnipotent. To be more precise, in Alina's view, the position of magic is to provide convenience, break through the inherent limitations of natural laws, and be the icing on the cake. Unless someone like you, Carlos, has the heaven-defying gold finger, magic will always be a niche. When the atomic bomb appeared in the non-magical world, the whole world changed. Except for the huge variables brought about by such a heaven-defying existence as Carlos, the magic world is currently in an absolute disadvantage. It is us wizards who need to be careful in the future. Unfortunately, it is obvious that most wizards are not aware of this. The backward workshop-oriented education system has even made generations of wizards face serious challenges in even the most basic livelihood. For example, Voldemort's mother, who wishes to remain anonymous, is from the Gaunt family. Their ancestors were once evil rich people, but by the 1990s their family fortunes had been almost completely destroyed, except for one. Apart from the dilapidated old houses, there is no decent property left. Alina said in an intellectual tone, and for a moment she looked at Carlos seriously, indicating that this was her own idea and the situation of the entire magical world. Carlos nodded, expressing that he took Alina's thoughts seriously. After all, after Alina revealed the current situation in the entire magic world, she was on the weaker side except for herself. Qiu Zhang did not agree with Alina's statement. After all, her strength had improved rapidly with the help of Carlos over the past year. You must know that he and Penelo had tested the power of the spell during their vacation. Under the supervision of Carlos, Qiu Zhang and Penelo used half of their magic power to release the shattering curse, and turned a mountain of 200 to 300 meters high into powdery sand alive. If this kind of power were used to launch a war, she and Penelo could suppress the entire non-magical world of Wying without the use of atomic bombs. You must know that her and Penelo's strength has just broken through to the middle stage of advanced wizards, and the level of the body-shattering curse has reached level 4. If Carlos uses the Staff of Light to consume half of the magic power to shoot. According to Carlos, he spent more than 6 million in proficiency to upgrade to level 10 of the blazing spell. The level 10 Flame Control 1565 100 million has a destructive range that is even several times more expensive than the atomic bomb that exploded in Japan, with a diameter of 200 kilometers. As for the degree of burning caused by the magic power, it is only about 5,000 degrees, and the center is about 10,000 degrees. He is a moving natural disaster, and he can suppress an entire country by himself, just like the gods who appear in the real world. According to the explanation of the Proficiency System, the power of Carlos's flame control has reached the Level 3 Genius Wizard's late release. Level 3 Official Spell Level. Looking at Qiu Zhang's unbelieving eyes, Carlos could only shake his head and said loudly, "What Alina said is true. As for the other wizards, they don't have the same opportunities as you, and they are not very strong. You and Penelo join forces. The power of the body-shattering and bone-shattering spell is equivalent to the power of a level 2 ordinary spell." "Yes, I understand." After hearing Carlos's words, Qiu Zhang nodded seriously and turned to look at Alina, who had an intellectual look in her eyes with envious eyes. She already liked being an intellectual person. Beauty. Alina was very happy after seeing Qiu Zhang accept her statement. Her eyes moved around slyly as if she had thought of something. Alina had already planned to sell Professor McGonagall to get closer to Qiu Zhang. After all, Qiu Zhang and she would be one of Carlos's harems in the future. Qiu, I didn't originally plan to enter the magical world. I was dragged here to study by Professor McGonagall. Do you want to know? Alina said with a chuckle. Really? Alina, you are the best. Can you tell me about it? Qiu Zhang was instantly attracted and said curiously. Carlos was also attracted by Alina's words. After all, he had traveled to this world for 11 years. He only remembered a rough plot of the novel in which Alina was the protagonist, and wouldn't it be more interesting to tell it in person? Scotland, the largest inland lake in the British Isles, sits an inconspicuous town on the shores of Loch Lomond. There is a simple little church in the south of the town. Just behind the church, it is also connected to a small orphanage. The priest and the director of the orphanage are both Spaniards named Benitez. The orphanage is not big, and most of them are children transferred from other orphanages. Counting Benitez, there are only 7 people in total. There is no doubt that among the many children, I, Alina Katerina, with a pair of starry lake blue eyes and waist-length silver hair, am a particularly special being. Not only because I am the only child with a surname, but more importantly, As early as a few years ago, I was almost entirely responsible for the financial distribution and cooking of the entire orphanage. At this time, a group of children were surrounding the kitchen door, watching eagerly as I prepared breakfast for everyone. However, no one would have thought that I was a little girl under 11 years old, just by looking at my skillful postures of turning pots and shovels. From the sizzling frying pan, the tempting aroma of fried eggs spread out, mixed with the burnt aroma of the slices of bread that had been toasted and placed aside, making the children surrounding the door unconsciously swallowed hard. Next to the frying pan, some kind of poultry seemed to be stewed in a large dark iron pot. The boiling soup had turned milky white, with some gold-colored oil droplets floating on it, and a particularly mellow fragrance floated. Just the scent alone can make people feel warm all over. Put the last piece of fried egg into the iron plate. I picked up the spoon and tasted the boiling soup on the side, smacked my mouth slightly. It seemed that it needed to be simmered for a while longer. I gently bent down, looked at the fire that had become less bright, frowned, picked up a stack of envelopes made of thick parchment on the table, stuffed them into the stove and pounded them with tongs. Let the flame flourish again. After doing all this, I jumped off the small wooden stool that was used to rest my feet. I turned around and looked around at the little gluttons surrounding the door. I put a straight face on my face and clapped my hands. Okay, now everyone go back to the table immediately. Otherwise, you won't be able to drink chicken soup today. I put my hands on my hips and tried to puff up my flat chest, trying to make myself look more imposing, and said in a very threatening tone, "Sister Alina, can't the priest still have breakfast with us today?" The question was asked by Bran, the youngest child in the orphanage. Perhaps because of his young age, he was extremely clingy and could be regarded as Alina's #1 follower in the orphanage. I shook my head and replied angrily while pushing Bran out of the kitchen. I have told you many times that Dean Benitez's typhoid fever has not healed yet, and it is easy to infect you. However, I estimate that drinking chicken soup for a day or two will make a complete recovery. So, Bran stood on tiptoes, looked across the wooden table to the tumbling iron pot, and swallowed. After the Dean is cured, can we still drink soup from the fat Scottish round-faced chicken every day? I turned my head and glanced at the burning fire under the iron pot. Amidst the dancing flames, an envelope made of thick parchment slowly curled up and ignited. A unique shield emblem on the envelope flashed away. Even though it has been almost 6 years since I traveled to this strange world, as a senior fan of the Harry Potter series, I still recognize the coat of arms from the first moment I saw it, consisting of a gold lion on a red background and a copper on a blue background. An eagle, a black badger on a yellow background, and a silver snake on a green background form the main body of the coat of arms. In the center of the coat of arms is a capital letter, H, the school emblem of the famous Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. However, even though I was a fan of the Harry Potter series in my previous life, it does not mean that I am willing to step into the magical world and accompany the trio of saviors on story missions. After finally being reborn, I don't want to waste my precious time on the battle of wits between a group of middle school students, all of Hogwarts, and a rural terrorist, Voldemort, who is at best a country terrorist. The Great War in the Muggle world is about to begin. The internet age is much more exciting than the magical world. Just as I guessed, the letter from Hogwarts has special magic attached to it. Not only will the address change according to my actual living location, but the school should also have magic to judge whether the little wizard actually opened the envelope and read it through its contents. Therefore, I immediately caught the owl and made soup and burned the letter directly. I believe that if this is the case, even if someone from the school comes to investigate, they will angrily cancel my admission qualification right. Squatting down, I rubbed Bran's chestnut hair, plucked off a dark brown owl feather that accidentally got on his hair, and threw it into the fire behind me. The tongue of flames licked the feathers, making a sound. There was a soft crackling sound. Don't worry, before I opened that envelope there would be this kind of fat Scottish round-faced chicken every day. So, what does a fat Scottish chicken with a round face look like? Bran asked curiously. Alina shook her head, did not answer, stood up, ended the discussion about the Scottish round-faced fat chicken, patted Bran on the head and said with a smile, "Okay, you will know when you grow up. Now go sit down in the restaurant. After breakfast, you must do your morning lessons with everyone." When Alina said this, a happy smile leaked from the corner of her mouth. Both Carlos and Qiu Zhang could hear Alina's joy and warmth. It should be said that everyone could see it. Carlos nodded. If Alina didn't have a deep bond in this world and wasn't an emotional Lolita, he would have turned the Alina in front of him into an RPQ. Carlos really thought he was a good person. He has no shortage of beauties at all now, but he lacks a team of super geniuses. Carlos is helpless when he thinks that he can only accept beauties as his followers because of his dual cultivation. As for what to do with those men, according to the information given by the system, unless Carlos committed suicide on the spot, reincarnated as a woman, and then went to have S*X with those boys, he would be able to become his subordinates. But Carlos would not try this kind of thing even if he wanted to. Do you know how much it would make a straight man who only likes beautiful women to vomit blood when he knows this news? Alina smiled at Carlos and continued. After breakfast, I sent the other children to school for early classes. I picked up my breakfast and went to take care of my adoptive father Benitez, who was still lying in bed. Our orphanage is not very big, and our adoptive father Benitez's room is only a few minutes away from the restaurant. The houses in the orphanage are made of wood and stone structures unique to England. Although they are strong, they are undoubtedly quite poor in terms of moisture and moisture resistance. After saying this, Alina paused, turned her head and stared directly at Carlos with stars in her eyes. She just wanted to ask Carlos for money. Carlos nodded helplessly, reached out and quickly took out a pen and wrote a check for £10,000 to Alina. For him, as long as it was settled by money, it was no big deal. He will get back the interest on Alina's Lolita body tonight, huh? Compared to giving hundreds of thousands of descendants to the money-hungry mixed-blood Vila in front of her, which is the kind she gives every day, Alina would happily accept it and give him several beautiful girls in a few years. Carlos looked at Alina with this dangerous look. In Alina's frightened eyes, she kept expressing a similar consciousness, otherwise the little silver-haired girl in front of him would be a demon king. If this demon king is not reassured, Carlos's own harem will not be at ease. After all, only dual cultivation is the best way to communicate feelings. If it doesn't work once, then twice. Alina quickly put away the check, and under Qiu Zhang's admiring eyes, continued to tell her story about what happened 2 months ago. As soon as I opened the door, I felt the unique dampness in lakeside houses. Then I frowned, gently put down the tray in my hand, walked to the window and opened the window. The cool breeze in the morning quickly swept away the dampness in the room and made me feel refreshed. Fortunately, you are here, otherwise the orphanage would be in a mess now. Thank you for your hard work. The voice of my adoptive father, Benitez, came from behind me. It was a thick voice of a middle-aged man. When I turned around, I saw Benitez standing up from the bed and half leaning against the wall. Although it was due to the cold wind and he had a migraine, and his face was still a little pale, but compared to the sluggishness of the past few days, his energy was obviously much better now. If you hide it from me next time and secretly go boxing to make money, I swear I will never care about you next time. I snorted heavily and walked to Benitez's bed aggressively, my lake blue eyes filled with reproach. For me, if there was a selection of good people, Benitez would definitely be among the top. Benitez was born into a poor family, and his parents had no money to send him to school. He used to take drugs and mix in society. When he asked a priest for help, he was kicked out of the church. Fortunately, a Spanish brotherhood took him in and allowed him to receive education and become a priest. Thinking of his helpless childhood experience, Benitez simply built an orphanage next to his small church and took care of the orphans with government subsidies, social donations, and his own income as a priest. Hungary was one of the orphans he picked up from the streets of London at that time. You must know that I had just traveled through time 6 years ago, but I couldn't even speak coherent English. If I hadn't been lucky enough to meet Benitez, I might not even have survived. It's hard going down. However, as the children grew older, the orphanage's funds became increasingly tight. Benitez, who was unwilling to give up the orphans, had to keep doing part-time jobs in neighboring towns in order to raise funds. A few days ago, he even secretly started to go to the city's underground boxing ring to box. If it weren't for the severe migraine attack caused by the wind and cold, which forced Benitez to confess to Alina for help, Alina might still be kept in the dark and enjoy 3 sumptuous meals a day with peace of mind. Carlos was stunned for a moment after hearing this. He really didn't expect Alina to tell her that she was a time traveler. After all time travelers should wish that no other world knew about their identity as an alien. Just like himself, Carlos knew that if his identity as a time traveler was exposed, he would definitely be attacked by the entire magical and non-magical world, and he would not be the kind to die. Because in more than a year, he had done too many things through the descendants of his own gods. When Carlos thought of the hundreds of beauties he had practiced double cultivation, he knew that he had offended countless people. Most of those girls were heirs from pure-blood families. Even the heirs, Carlos remembered that there were dozens of female heirs. The magic world of Wying, France, and Germany should not say that the entire European magic world is trying to steal beautiful pure wizard girls for him. Now this kind of power has extended to the United States and even Russia and Daxia. Carlos remembered what he had told Catherine and Ankaraj. Even girls from the non-magical world had probably collected hundreds of thousands of pure virgins, all of them beautiful women. Those who have not grown up are probably even more exaggerated. According to Anna's description, if not all the people who stopped Carlos would have aged more than 30 years in an instant when they just wanted to take action. Even in Carlos's Lucifer family, those who had just started to have ideas were punished by God, at least the punishment of aging for more than 50 or 60 years. Many old people who had just started to have ideas all ran out of life and turned into ashes. But even under such pressure, Anna and the others could not collect beauties fast enough. But everyone in the magic world already knew that Carlos wanted to use these girls as sacrifices. They even went so far as to send all kinds of beauties to Carlos with those pure-blood families. The ones they sent last year were all their bloodline heirs, and the wizards in the magic world discovered them. In the year after Carlos Lucifer was born, all large-scale research by non-magical Muggle scientists made no progress at all, as if they were cursed by Lucifer. In addition to wasting a lot of money, none of the lethal ones have been developed, except for some life-related technological products. In addition, Carlos's actions of harvesting beauties also attracted many Muggles in the non-magical world. Those who had just stopped Carlos from collecting beauties began to age in droves. But the whole world is in panic and undercurrents are rolling. After all, in the space of non-magical Muggles, all wizards in the magical world have regarded Carlos as the savior. Think of Carlos' behavior as he is looking for sacrifices. What happens in the entire world is the result of those sacrifices. The entire magical world, including goblins and other magical creatures, are helping Carlos collect pure beauties. Otherwise, the number of beauties collected by Carlos might have increased from a few hundred 2 months ago to hundreds of thousands in just one summer vacation. This is the result of the efforts of the entire magical and non-magical world's top management. Yes, most of the higher-ups in the non-magical world are already ready to help Carlos. In their view, once Lucifer comes, it means that gods will come to this world. When the time comes, these high-level officials will only have to pay a huge price to deal with hell, and they will have a slim chance of obtaining real immortality. Of course, Carlos would not tell them that the so-called summoned Lucifer was the result of those people's lust. What caused all this was his own reaction to the whole world's plundering of the origin and increasing his strength. Carlos saw that Alina was obviously lost in memories, and he didn't bother her. He just wanted to listen to some key plot points. As for Alina's memories, to be honest, he really understood them very well. But Qiu Zhang was obviously fascinated by what she was listening to. From time to time, she would look at Alina with envious and doting eyes, and those eyes were filled with motherly love. Regarding Alina's use of this method to bring her and Qiu Zhang closer together, Carlos can really only say one word, and that is hi. You must know that this method is completely incomprehensible in terms of bringing the relationship closer. As for him and Qiu Zhang, they felt that Alina had become much more real and close. This was not an illusion. The real Alina gradually became clear in Carlos's mind. Alina's memories were still going on, and there was a happy smile obviously on her lips, and her tone became gentler, with a hint of rare happiness. I angrily picked up the bowl and handed it to Benitez while complaining and asking questions. You should still have a lot of money from betting on last year's World Cup. Why do you want to fight black boxing? And we have agreed that I will figure out the financial resources of the orphanage. Drink the soup first. Although I was not a senior football fan in my previous life, because I liked the song Don't Cry for Argentina very much, I still vaguely remember the tragic Argentina led by Maradona this time. At that time, I still made a lot of money thanks to those few upsets. £6,000. You have to know that even if the orphanage's buildings are renovated and everyone's meals are improved, logically speaking, at least there will not be difficulties and embarrassment that require Benitez to go to the underground boxing ring. Alina paused for a moment as she said this, with a happy smile clearly leaking from the corner of her mouth. At that time, Benitez blew on the soup bowl in his hand, took a sip, and replied to me in a calm tone. I saved the £6,000 for you. The savings from the previous orphanage were used to renovate the house and provide 3 meals. Why? Who asked you to save it? When I heard Benitez's answer, I was like a cat with exploded hair, waving my arms and angrily glaring at the man in front of me and asking. If it weren't for the fact that his body had just recovered, I would have had the urge to pounce on him and hit him. My adoptive father, Benitez, shrugged at me, swallowed the omelet in his mouth slowly, looked at me with my teeth open, and pointed at the empty bowl in my hand curiously and asked, Then tell me frankly, what is this? You must know that the last time the Wildlife Conservation Society came to your door because you were frying fish in the lake. Besides, I don't know when a new species suddenly appeared nearby. It's called the Scottish round-faced fat chicken breed. Every time I was asked this question before, I always found an excuse to fool him. So Benitez has always been curious about the source of this free chicken soup these days. Alina spread her hands and admitted openly, okay, this is actually owl soup. Before Alina could continue to speak, Qiu Zhang seemed to explode. He took Alina's hands with both hands and pulled hard, roaring. Alina, you actually eat owl, you are basically a devil. You have to know that owls are our wizard's companions. How dare you eat owls? Wait a minute. Qiu Zhang suddenly paused here, then grabbed Alina's struggling little hand and said seriously, Alina, are you absolutely not allowed to kill our messenger owl? Especially Alice, otherwise I will destroy you together with Sister Penelo. Qiu Zhang looked at Alina with a serious expression and said. Looking at Qiu Zhang's serious look, Alina nodded seriously. She could be a genius academic master. Even if she was crazy, she would not eat her own owl. You really think that Alina is a glutton? Okay, she is a glutton. But even if I beat her to death, I won't eat my own owl, which is her future helper. She ate those owls just because she didn't want to go to Hogwarts to learn magic. Little did she know at the time that there was a humanoid super bug like Carlos in this world. Even if Alina is stupid now, she won't waste time getting those technologies. After all, Carlos has said that his current combat power can suppress a big country by himself. It was Qiu Zhang who was in front of her. She said clearly that she and Penelo could suppress the magical and non-magical world of the entire Wying Kingdom together. This is not relying on the army like the first-generation Dark Lord Grindelwald, but relying on the combined personal combat power of the two. She, Alina, is a genius time traveler. According to her future expectations, as long as she becomes a woman of Carlos with the help of the Carlos system, as long as she has enough time, she can even become a god in the future. No. It should be said that she has a chance to compete for the position of the divine concubine in Carlos's harem or even the divine queen. This is the most important thing for her in the future. Carlos was not surprised by Qiu Zhang's outburst. Qiu Zhang and Penelo were often together and the two women often took care of Helena and Alice. But Helena had learned bad things recently. Carlos remembered that when he was dragging a large group of harem couples, Helena was dragging Alice, and a cat and an owl were often watching in the corner. Never give up on any of Carlos' double trainings, it's like learning, yes, learning. No idea, he shouldn't have risked his life by giving Helena and Alina 2 intelligence development potions, and he shouldn't have taken it for granted that the potions found in the restricted section of the Hogwarts library were fake. There are a total of 298 medicine formulas, only 38 of which are real, the rest are fake. But the so-called IQ development medicine is exactly the animal version of the brain development medicine. Qiu Zhang and Penelo have used wizard methods to test the intelligence of Helena and Alice, which is the intelligence of an educated 18-year-old human girl and a 12 or 13-year-old junior high school student. As for Penelo, he recently went to practice the transformation.
Hello, everyone! As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500+ novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.